As the apocalypse descends and the undead surround the city, I am engulfed in panic. Until my Delta Operation warehouse transforms into reality. Fully equipped with an M14. 6 sets of bulletproof vests, billions in Hafcoins, over 30 African hearts, 20 ocean tears, and even a dozen revival respirators to resurrect agents. Along with a plethora of red and crimson items. His gaming warehouse has become the only lifeline in this grim reality. And his game agents are his sole companions in life and death. Chapter 1. Zombies, Summon the Dragon. Stop. Help. Is anyone there to save me? No. It's not safe there. My arm, it hurts. Enough with the noise. Lin Feng jolted upright from his chair, his head still clouded. The computer screen before him glowed, the Delta Operation game interface frozen in the team lobby. How could I have dozed off while gaming? He scratched his disheveled hair and smirked at his own folly. Picking up his phone, he saw a message from his sister. Brother, are you still alive? Seeing Jin Yin's message prompted him to reflect. I can't continue in this state. It's time to find a job. Even my sister is worried I might have perished. Lin Feng's family background was rather unusual. His father had died during his childhood, leaving him with his mother, who later remarried. After a few years, his mother also passed away, leaving him to live with his stepfather. Fortunately, his stepfather treated him well, and Lin Feng's childhood was relatively happy. Eventually, his stepfather remarried again, and his new stepmother was kind to him, providing him with a half-sister, Jin Yin. Sadly, his stepfather also passed away, and it was left to his stepmother to care for him and his sister. After a tragic car accident, though she survived, she bore significant injuries. By that time, Lin Feng was already 18, feeling as though he were cursed with a fate that brought misfortune to those close to him, which led him to leave home early and enter the workforce, though he maintained contact with his stepmother and Jin Yin. Just as his thoughts settled, a sudden deafening noise erupted outside. This was followed by a series of collisions, reminiscent of a chain reaction involving several vehicles. What is happening? Lin Feng furrowed his brow and approached the window, drawing back the curtains. The sunlight pierced through, causing him to instinctively squint. It took him a moment to adjust before he could fully open his eyes. What he beheld sent a chill through him. Chaos unfolded on the street below. 3 or 4 dark figures were frantically attacking a woman lying on the ground, clawing at her with wild abandon, their mouths emitting guttural growls. The woman's cries for help grew feeble, eventually fading into a haunting whimper, and soon, there was silence. Lin Feng blinked, questioning whether he was still dreaming. Surely this must be a movie shoot, he murmured, vigorously rubbing his eyes. Yet, in the next instant, his breath caught in his throat. Within just a minute or two, the woman suddenly sat up. Her eyes rolled back, revealing a ghastly white, while dark red blood froth clung to the corners of her mouth. A guttural roar erupted from her throat as she turned and lunged at a nearby bystander, who stood frozen in terror. The unfortunate soul let out a blood-curdling scream as she pinned him to the ground, her teeth sinking into his shoulder, creating a gruesome, bloodied wound. Lin Feng's voice trembled, and he abruptly turned his head, scanning the roadside. The pedestrian who had just lost half a leg to a vehicle was desperately crawling on the ground, dragging along his bloodied remnant, frantically inching toward the woman. He opened his mouth to bite at the arm of another bystander. The owner of that arm shrieked in agony, blood pouring from the wound, yet the crawling man seemed oblivious to the pain, consumed by the frenzy of biting. Lin Feng stumbled back a step, his back colliding painfully with the wall as his heart raced, nearly leaping from his throat. Doubts shattered in an instant, leaving only raw, unadulterated fear. My God, this is a zombie. Lin Feng paced the room anxiously, his mind in turmoil. He sent a message to Jin Yin. Sister, are you okay? But after a long wait, there was no reply from her. What should I do? He muttered, rummaging through the house. There were no weapons. No food. Only a single bag of instant noodles. This is it. 2 days at most before hunger strikes. And how could he even attempt to rescue Jin Yin? He slumped back into his computer chair, leaning heavily against it, his mind buzzing with images of zombies and a haze of half-sleep. His hand, seemingly with a will of its own, unconsciously slid the mouse, accidentally clicking the launch button for the Delta Force operation. As the matchmaking interface appeared on the screen, Lin Feng sat up straight, slapping himself across the face. What the hell? Are you out of your mind? He glared at his hand, scolding, even in the apocalypse. You're thinking about gaming? Is the Delta Force addiction that strong? Your sister's life hangs in the balance. Just as he was berating himself, the computer screen flickered. The loading interface vanished, and a gray dialog box with white text popped up. Host detected in a high-risk survival environment. Binding conditions met. Would you like to activate the Apocalypse Survival Assistance System? Lin Feng's scolding abruptly ceased, his hand frozen against his face. No way. He swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper. This plot, am I becoming the protagonist of a novel? Another zombie roar echoed outside, pulling his thoughts back to reality. Regardless of whether he was the protagonist, having a system was certainly preferable to starving. Without further hesitation, he swiftly clicked the confirmation button in the dialog box. As he clicked, the screen instantly illuminated with a blinding brightness, and the dialog box transformed into a scrolling progress bar, accompanied by mechanical chimes emanating from the computer speakers. System binding in progress. 10. Synchronizing host basic information. Lin Feng, 22 years old, freelancer, physical rating D. Survival skill rating E, binding progress, 3050. Please be patient, host. The unlocking of the beginner survival kit will occur upon completion of the binding. Lin Feng fixated on the progress bar, his heart racing, not out of fear, but rather with a surge of excitement. Am I no longer required to go to work? He was taken aback at his own thought. Even in the face of an apocalypse, he was still preoccupied with the idea of work, which seemed rather lacking in ambition. His eyes remained glued to the progress bar, watching as the number stalled at 80 for 2 seconds before leaping to 99. Ding! The sound echoed, and the loading interface vanished in an instant, replaced by a familiar screen. Upon closer inspection, Lin Feng realized it was his personal warehouse from the countless hours spent in the game Delta Force. Initially stunned, he then sprang from his chair. No way. How can this be identical to my in-game warehouse? Trembling, he opened the warehouse to find over 20 complete sets neatly arranged on the shelves. Further down, dozens of M14 and M7 rifles were stacked to the brim. He hesitated, feeling an overwhelming reluctance to use them. As a cautious player, he had always opted for the UZI, saving the better weapons for critical moments, never anticipating that such a moment would coincide with an apocalypse. Thank goodness I didn't choose the aggressive playstyle. Lin Feng's back teeth almost ached from the strain of his smile. Had he adopted a more reckless approach, entangled with classified aerospace technology, he might now struggle to even afford a bottle of water, considering that it cost 100 Hafcoins. His fingertips trembled as he navigated to the second page of the warehouse, where the upper tier was stacked with over 30 hearts of Africa, alongside 20 or so tiers of the ocean, and more than 10 revival respirators. The currency bar at the top dazzled his eyes with a staggering sum of over 1.5 billion Hafcoins. Suddenly, he recalled rummaging through his fridge 10 minutes earlier. Now, gazing at the wealth of supplies in his warehouse, his heart swelled with emotion, nearly bringing him to tears. A sudden zombie roar outside jolted Lin Feng from his euphoria. Wiping the corners of his eyes, he chuckled softly, murmuring, "It's fortunate I'm a hoarder, and I'm glad I didn't choose the aggressive playstyle. Package has been dispatched. Would you like to summon GDI operator Wyvern now?" His eyes still riveted to the treasure trove within the warehouse. Lin Feng almost reflexively clicked to confirm. Why would one forego a free operator? That would be foolish. Just as he clicked, the computer screen erupted in a blinding golden light, illuminating the entire room. Lin Feng instinctively squinted, and when he opened his eyes again, a rugged figure clad in tactical gear stood before him. The man stood there, donning a night vision helmet, his face obscured by a tactical mask, and cradling a UZI submachine gun in his arms, reminiscent of a character leaping forth from a video game. He was poised for action, ready to charge in. With a resounding voice, the soldier, known as Weilong, barked orders in a manner so authoritative that it caused Lin Feng's ears to tremble. Lin Feng swallowed hard and circled around Weilong, poking at his tactical vest, which was as solid as steel, truly the real deal. Goodness, Lin Feng murmured, his eyes wide with astonishment. This system is incredible. It has actually manifested a character from the game. Weilong remained steadfast in his stance, his keen gaze sweeping across the room before settling on Lin Feng, who was caught off guard by the address of commander. Recovering quickly, Lin Feng chuckled. Well, I can't give any directives just yet. First, teach me how to use those weapons in your arsenal, if you would. Chapter 2. Preparing for evacuation. Weilong nodded sharply in response. Certainly. He then raised the UZI, demonstrating its specifications to Lin Feng. This weapon has a firing rate of 780 rounds per minute and a muzzle velocity of 450 meters per second. I made a few modifications as well. Suddenly, Lin Feng interrupted him, scratching his head in confusion. Wait a moment. With so many guns in my arsenal, why did you only bring the UZI? Weilong cast a sidelong glance at him, his tone laced with a hint of sarcasm. Because, Commander, the UZI is the weapon you most frequently use in the game. It was the default assignment from the system, as it is what I am most familiar with. The other firearms are merely for backup. By the way, the medic mentioned that you are rather frugal, even withholding ammunition from him, leaving him to beg for survival in a classified mode. Lin Feng fell momentarily silent, his face flushing with embarrassment, before finally managing to reply, "That's quite true." He snatched the UZI from Weilong's grasp and carelessly tossed it onto the table. From now on, we shall not be using this piece of junk. He opened his inventory, scanning through a line of weapons until his gaze fixated on a fully modified M14, adorned with an array of attachments and a 50-round extended magazine. Here it is, Lin Feng said, dragging the weapon before Weilong. We will use this from now on. Anyone familiar with Delta Force knows that the M14 is one of the most reassuring firearms in their arsenal. Although versions may evolve and no weapon holds eternal supremacy, there has always been one name synonymous with reliability, the M14. As Weilong's eyes locked onto the M14, he instinctively stepped forward, his gaze igniting with an unadulterated desire for power. Slowly, he reached out, his fingertips grazing the weapon, and he could barely suppress the movement of his Adam's apple. This was no ordinary gun. It was a symbol of authority capable of tearing through anything on the battlefield, a testament to the confidence required for life and death. To wield this weapon meant that no wall of despair would remain impenetrable on the battlefield. In the past, Lin Feng was exceedingly frugal. He wouldn't even spare a glance at the fully modified M14, let alone touch it. Yet now, he had it thrust into his hands. Weilong grasped the stock of the gun tightly, the cold, hard metal sending a chill through his palm. Into the fray, Commander. Lin Feng rummaged through the warehouse interface for a considerable time, finally retrieving 2 sets of Titan ballistic armor and 2 DCH-9 heavy helmets. He handed a complete set to Weilong. Put this on, and wear the helmet. Weilong accepted the armor, having previously only seen other players don such gear from a distance. Lin Feng, who had been miserly even with ammunition, let alone such premium equipment, was now treating Weilong like royalty, something he could hardly have dared to imagine before. His voice was tinged with barely concealed excitement as he swiftly unfastened his tactical vest and donned the new armor. Lin Feng, too, grabbed another set and started putting it on. Just as he secured the shoulder straps, he bent over and exclaimed, "Wow, this is heavy." Grimacing, he leaned against the table, suddenly recalling the syringes in the warehouse, and quickly retrieved them. 3 vials of stamina enhancers, 3 vials of M2 muscle injectors, and 3 vials of OE2 combat stimulants. The stamina enhancers would significantly boost his physical abilities. The M2 muscle injectors would enhance his strength and increase his carrying capacity, while the OE2 combat stimulants would restore substantial energy in a short period. Quickly, use this first. Lin Feng administered 3 doses to himself and tossed the remaining 3 to Weilong. Otherwise, this cumbersome armor will weigh us down and hinder our movement. Weilong had already donned the armor swiftly, securing the helmet in place, revealing a pair of sharp eyes. He approached the window, lifted a corner of the curtain, and surveyed the situation below. The streets were teeming with zombies. Some wandered aimlessly while others were frantically tearing at a mangled car, screams echoing from within. He withdrew his gaze and turned to Lin Feng, speaking with calm authority. "Commander, we must evacuate immediately. Is it that urgent?" Lin Feng hesitated, the syringe poised at his arm. It was not merely urgency, it was necessity. Weilong pointed outside. The population density in this city is too high. At the current rate of conversion, within half a day, the entire district will be overrun with zombies. We are at the outset of the apocalypse. They have yet to form a large-scale horde, and the streets are not completely blocked. This is our only window of opportunity. If we delay, the zombies will cluster and obstruct our escape, making it exceedingly difficult to break free even with our gear. Contemplating Weilong's words, Lin Feng recalled that just moments ago, there were only a few stragglers below, and now they were nearly forming small groups. A cold sweat broke out on his back. Resolving not to hesitate any longer, he gritted his teeth and plunged the syringe into his arm. The instant the icy liquid coursed through him, he winced and exclaimed, "Ouch. That stings a bit when you jab it in." Weilong had also completed his injection and was inspecting the magazine of the fully modified M14. Hearing Lin Feng, he lifted his head. "Bear with it. The enhancement effects will manifest swiftly." No sooner had he spoken than Lin Feng felt a surge of warmth radiate from his arm throughout his body. The previously burdensome armor suddenly felt significantly lighter, the weight dissipating by more than half, and the M7 in his hands no longer felt as cumbersome as before. He flexed his arms and legs, raising an eyebrow in surprise. The marvels of technology are truly impressive. With a firm click, the dragon closed the magazine, chambering around, and glanced toward the doorway. "Equipment is ready, and our state is optimal. Commander, I have a general sense of the route. We'll descend the stairs, eliminate any zombies lurking in the corridor, and then head straight for the underground garage to find a vehicle we can drive out." Lin Feng tightened his grip on the M7, though a twinge of fear lingered in his heart. The sight of the dragon-esque composure and the surge of strength within him instilled a sudden confidence. "All right, I'm with you. Let us break out of this wretched place." The dragon grasped the doorknob and slowly pressed down, the metallic hinges emitting a soft creak that sent Lin Feng's heart racing. He shrank behind the dragon, clasping his hands in silent prayer. "Please, no zombies. Please, no zombies." Just as the door opened a crack, A grayish hand slapped against the door frame, revealing a zombie clad in a delivery uniform, leaning ominously towards them. Lin Feng's heart sank. What on earth is the neighbor ordering at this time? Before he could voice his frustration, the dragon stepped forward, delivering a swift kick to the zombie's abdomen, sending it staggering backward with a dull thud. Following this, the dragon drew a black and blue axe from behind his waist. With a flick of his wrist, he swung it down, the blade cleaving through the zombie's head and plastic helmet with a crisp sound. The creature crumpled to the ground, and the dragon nonchalantly kicked it aside. Turning back to Lin Feng and gesturing, "Let us go," proceed as planned to the underground garage. As they took a couple of steps toward the staircase, the dragon suddenly halted, turning to Lin Feng with a serious tone. "Commander, do you have a car?" Lin Feng froze, his expression falling. "Me? A homebody who plays video games? I can't afford a car." Chapter 3. Leaving the complex, an apocalyptic love story that doesn't involve me. He scratched his head in frustration, when suddenly a light bulb went off in his mind. Oh, the neighbor. She ordered takeout, which means she's home. And she has a car. Oh, the dragon raised an eyebrow. Lin Feng quickly elaborated. "I've seen her a few times. She's a beautiful CEO, and seems to have a penchant for SUVs, so there's definitely one parked in her garage. If she's dead, we can take her keys. If she's alive, we can borrow her car." The dragon nodded in agreement. "Let us give it a try." They turned and approached the neighbor's door. The dragon rapped on the security door. "Is anyone there?" After several knocks, silence ensued. No response. The dragon glanced at the lock. "Let us break in and see if there's a key." Lin Feng leaned closer. "How do you plan to open it? With the Mandel unit? That might be a bit loud, no?" Without a word, the dragon retrieved a palm-sized device from his tactical pouch. "A magnetic bomb. I've adjusted the dosage. It won't be too loud." As he spoke, the dragon affixed the bomb to the lock and motioned for Lin Feng to step back. Moments later, a soft explosion echoed as the lock was blown open. The dragon approached, fiddled with the door for a moment, then gave it a gentle kick, and the security door swung wide. As they stepped inside, an eerie noise emanated from the living room. Lin Feng peeked from behind the sofa, where sat a woman clad in a silk nightgown, none other than the stunning CEO from next door. Yet, her once vibrant eyes were now rolled back, and blood dripped from her lips, clearly transformed into a zombie. Lin Feng sighed, expressing his disillusionment. Indeed, the narratives of apocalyptic tales where heroes rescue beautiful women only to engage in romantic escapades are nothing but fabrications. The grim reality is that the beauties succumb to zombification first. Weilong had already raised the black blade, gesturing for Lin Feng to step back. "We must first deal with her before searching for the keys." The female zombie struggled to rise from the sofa, her twisted limbs reaching out towards them. With a swift flick of his wrist, Weilong brought down the dark blue axe, cleaving directly into the zombie's neck. The creature made no sound, collapsing lifelessly onto the carpet. Lin Feng turned to search for the keys within the room. Fortunately, the CEO was quite organized. The drawers in the living room held a neatly arranged key box. Upon opening it, he discovered 3 or 4 car keys, though he could not ascertain which belonged to the off-road vehicle. Regardless, he decided to take them all, stuffing the keys into his pocket. He was about to call for Weilong when he caught sight of a safe standing in the corner of the study. He immediately halted, nudging Weilong's arm. "Look at that thing. Wouldn't it be a shame not to give it a few touches?" Weilong followed his gaze, grinning as he rolled up his sleeves. "I agree. Leave this to me. I specialize in cracking safes." He crouched in front of the safe, retrieving a compact decoder from his tactical pouch. His fingers danced across its surface, listening intently to the sound of the lock tumbling. In less than half a minute, a satisfying click echoed as the safe door swung open. Inside, there were no jewels or precious metals, just a neatly stacked pile of gold bars gleaming under the light. Lin Feng eagerly began to stash them into his warehouse. The bars were small, and soon he had collected them all. Glancing at his warehouse notification, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Good heavens, this totals over 300,000 Hafcoins. That should be sufficient for us to exchange for a considerable amount of supplies." Weilong stood up, checking his tactical watch. "Enough celebrating, Commander. We need to hurry. We've already wasted too much time in the corridor. If we delay any further, the lower floors may be swarming with zombies." Lin Feng slapped his forehead, securing the key box. Right, let us go. We need to drive out of this neighborhood first." The two dashed down the stairs, and upon reaching the basement entrance, a musty, damp odor wafted towards them. Under the dim light, rows of vehicles came into view, with a mangled electric bike lingering in the distance, a testament to someone's failed escape attempt. "We must locate the off-road vehicle." Lin Feng rummaged through the keychain in his pocket, grasping the thickest key to try first, eliciting a flicker from the sports car's headlights. Quickly, he switched to the second key, unlocking the sedan with a couple of beeps. "What is going on?" Lin Feng felt a twinge of anxiety. Earlier in the morning, many people would have been preparing to drive to work from the basement, so it was highly likely that zombies lurked within. At that moment, a sudden roar echoed from the depths of the basement, followed closely by the chaotic sound of footsteps. The loud unlocking noise had attracted the zombies lurking in the corners. Don't try it. Look over there. Weilong suddenly pointed to a corner where a white Wrangler stood, adorned with a distinctly feminine sticker. Lin Feng quickly retrieved the last key and pressed it against the Wrangler. Beep. This time, it was finally correct. The two dashed toward the Wrangler, while behind them, the zombies had surged within mere meters, the foremost dragging a severed leg, likely that of the zombie that had just collided with the wall. Just 2 steps from the car door, a zombie lunged at them. Weilong swiftly swung his Black Sea, sending it sprawling, and shouted, "Commander, get in the car." Lin Feng yanked the door open and dove inside, with Weilong swiftly taking the driver's seat. Just as the key was inserted and turned, a zombie crashed against the window, its hands slapping against the glass. Drive, drive, Lin Feng urged, staring at the zombie's grotesque face with a sense of nausea. Without hesitation, Weilong pressed the accelerator to the floor. The engine roared to life as the Wrangler surged forward. Bang! The leading zombie was flung away by the impact of the vehicle. The car rolled over several more zombies that lunged at them and burst out of the basement exit. As they turned onto the street, a horde of zombies surged from the roadside, some attempting to climb onto the vehicle. Hold on tight, Weilong shouted, flooring the accelerator once more. Fortunately, the Wrangler was powerful enough to push through the zombies, flinging those clinging to the vehicle away. Zombies? Merely speed bumps. A smirk crept across Weilong's lips as he deftly maneuvered around an overturned bus, speeding towards the outskirts of the city. Just as they had exited the urban area, Lin Feng suddenly pointed and exclaimed, "Hey, over there." Following his gaze, Weilong spotted a gleaming large freight truck parked by the roadside, its headlights still flashing, indicating that the key had not been removed. They exchanged a glance, excitement igniting in their eyes. This truck was far sturdier than the Wrangler, serving as a veritable mobile fortress against the zombies, provided they did not evolve. "Shall we go?" Weilong raised an eyebrow. "Absolutely." Lin Feng nodded without a hint of hesitation. Weilong pushed open the car door, his M14 in hand, and promptly shot the heads off 2 zombies beside the truck. Lin Feng followed suit, but just as he stepped out, he noticed a throng of zombies drawn by the commotion, closing in rapidly. "Run!" Weilong shouted, sprinting towards the truck. Lin Feng trailed behind, acutely aware of the encroaching horde. At that moment, Weilong suddenly produced a magnetic bomb from his pouch and tossed it behind him, declaring, "Magnetic bomb deployed." Lin Feng shouted while running, shedding skin and flesh, but not falling behind. Bang! The bomb detonated behind them, sending a wave that hurled a cluster of zombies into the air. Those who survived were either tripped by fallen bodies or knocked down by the shockwave. Seizing the moment, the two climbed into the truck's cabin. With a firm grip on the steering wheel and the accelerator pressed to the floor, the heavy truck's engine roared to life. "Oh, this is what one calls a sense of security." Lin Feng chuckled as he patted the driver's seat. Chapter 4. Journey to Dawn University. At that moment, a horde of zombies had already clawed at the car doors, their ashen hands scraping against the windows. "Commander, hold on tight." Without further ado, Weilong slammed down the accelerator, propelling the truck forward. The front tires crushed 2 of the lunging zombies, and as the vehicle jolted, Lin Feng, seated in the passenger seat, couldn't help but remark, "Now that's what I call a human speed bump." Outside the windows, the zombies continued to hurl themselves at the truck. Some clung to the rearview mirror, while others were crushed anew by the back tires, quickly transforming into a puddle of muck at the roadside. Fortunately, the road was wide enough. Although abandoned vehicles lined both sides, there were no barriers. With a deft turn of the steering wheel, Weilong maneuvered the truck into the center of the road, crashing through the obstructing wrecks as they sped toward the outskirts of the central district. As the throng of zombies receded into the distance, until their clustered shadows were no longer visible, Lin Feng slumped back into his seat, exhaling a long sigh of relief. "We finally made it out. This truck is truly invaluable." At this moment, Weilong also relaxed, glancing at Lin Feng. "Commander, where are we headed now?" Lin Feng responded, "To Dawn University, to pick up my sister." As the truck advanced, the zombies outside became increasingly sparse. What began with one every few meters diminished to just 1 or 2 staggering figures after a considerable stretch. Lin Feng leaned against the window, peering ahead as the outline of Dawn University's teaching buildings gradually came into focus, the clock tower piercing the gray sky, both familiar and somewhat foreign. "We're almost there." Approaching Dawn University, a sense of worry crept over Lin Feng. Weilong gently pressed the accelerator, stabilizing the speed, his gaze sharper than before. "We're nearing the campus. Stay vigilant, and do not let your guard down." The truck halted at the university gates, and Weilong casually engaged the handbrake before both men exited and closed the doors behind them. Outside, a few wandering zombies shuffled by, swiftly dispatched by Weilong's M14. The sound muffled by the added suppressor, preventing the noise from traveling far. Lin Feng opened the chat window with Jin Yin, typing rapidly. Where are you? Within seconds, Jin Yin's reply popped up. I'm still in the girls' dormitory. Wait for me. I'm already at the school gate. Lin Feng responded. Brother? Are you insane? Don't come in. There are a lot of zombies in the school. Just leave and find a safe place. If possible, go home and check if mom is still there. She lives in the village and should be relatively safe. Lin Feng stared at the screen, fingers flying across the keyboard, as the old saying goes. Since you've come this far, just wait in the dormitory. I'll come to get you shortly. He then sent a reassuring emoji and tucked his phone back into his pocket. Taking a deep breath, Lin Feng turned to Weilong, his tone serious yet tinged with a hint of embarrassment, and slowly said, Wang Yuhao, I will need your company for a short while. As Lin Feng spent more time with Weilong, he discovered that the latter possessed his own emotions, rather than being merely a cold assemblage of data. Given the large number of students at Dawn University, it followed that there would also be a multitude of zombies. Lin Feng, therefore, required Wang Yuhao, a person endowed with self-awareness, to accompany him in navigating through the university to rescue someone. As such, Lin Feng did not make his request to Weilong with unyielding confidence. Weilong was inspecting the magazine of his M14 when he heard the name Wang Yuhao. His movements momentarily paused as he lifted his gaze to Lin Feng, a faint smile curling at the corners of his mouth. It was the first time he had heard his true name since being summoned. Yes, Commander, Weilong replied succinctly. Shouldering the M14 and securing the black sea axe at his waist, he glanced at a few zombies staggering unsteadily near the school gate before turning to inquire. Which building is the girls' dormitory? I shall clear the path first. Following his gaze into the campus, Lin Feng pointed. It's the one at the far end. However, we must exercise caution. It's quite a distance. As he spoke, he accessed the warehouse and swiftly drew out 2 compound bows, which he had modified into a high-risk shooting configuration at a cost exceeding 300,000. He handed the bow and quiver to Weilong, saying, Use this. The sound of gunfire is too loud. We should avoid direct confrontation with the zombies and stealthily infiltrate to rescue the person. Weilong accepted the compound bow and tested its draw weight before looking back at Lin Feng. Commander, keep close to me and do not fall behind. Of course, even if my skin and flesh are lost, I shall not lag behind. Lin Feng patted his chest and secured his own bow. Weilong could not help but smirk, teasing, if you truly lose skin and flesh, wouldn't that render my escort rather unprofessional? Lin Feng chuckled and took a couple of steps towards the school gate. Lowering his voice, indeed, if something goes wrong, I will compensate. The two exchanged glances, and Weilong was the first to crouch and slip into the campus. Drawing the compound bow taut, aiming at a nearby zombie gnawing on a garbage bin. With a release of his hand, the arrow struck the zombie squarely in the back of the head, causing it to collapse. As the two stealthily approached the girls' dormitory, they rounded the corner of a teaching building when 3 zombies in school uniforms suddenly emerged from the bushes, one reaching out to claw at Weilong. Be careful, Lin Feng warned sharply, but Weilong had already sidestepped, releasing an arrow that found its mark in the eye of the foremost zombie, which fell lifelessly to the ground. The remaining 2 attempted to pounce, but with a flick of his wrist, Weilong had already knocked a second arrow, which pierced the temple of another zombie. The last one was met with a swift kick to the knee, causing it to crumple, and with the black sea axe sliding into his hand, Weilong severed its head in one decisive stroke. The entire sequence unfolded in less than 10 seconds, leaving Lin Feng in awe. Impressive. No wonder you are a GDI assault specialist. Just as they were about to proceed, a voice suddenly called out from behind them. Hey, down here. Help me. Glancing up, they spotted a girl in pajamas clinging to the railing on the 3rd-floor balcony of the girls' dormitory, her voice high-pitched and piercingly clear. Lin Feng felt a sudden chill run down his spine. Good heavens, does this girl intend to summon all the zombies in the school? Weilong furrowed his brow, scanning the surroundings and noticing several zombies being drawn in by the noise, hastening toward their direction. Commander, we must leave swiftly, or we shall be surrounded. Indeed, that was the plan. Lin Feng quickly seized Weilong's arm, urging him to run toward the targeted dormitory building. The girl, seeing their intent to flee, raised her voice sharply. You heartless wretches, turning a blind eye to my plight. If I am devoured by zombies, I will haunt you as a ghost. Before her tirade could subside, a sudden cacophony of growls erupted from the adjacent dormitory, as dozens of zombies crowded the hallway, advancing towards the sound emanating from Building 3. Many more tumbled from balconies, rising as if unscathed, while dark, grotesque heads peeked from windows, sending shivers down one's spine. The girl on the balcony ceased her cursing, her voice trembling. Don't come any closer. She frantically attempted to retreat indoors, pleading, "Help me, don't leave." However, Lin Feng and Weilong had already slipped into the gaps between the buildings, not daring to look back. As they ran, Lin Feng muttered, "Even in the apocalypse, they still can't count?" Yelling and screaming is like broadcasting their location. Weilong nodded, gesturing toward the dormitory with the red roof ahead. "That's our target. There are 5 zombies at the entrance. I'll eliminate them. You find a chance to open the door." With keen focus on the 5 zombies at the entrance, Weilong knocked an arrow to his compound bow, swiftly taking down the one closest to the door. The arrow pierced its skull, causing the zombie to topple backward. The commotion drew the attention of the other zombies, who began to charge toward Weilong. One collided with an electric scooter, triggering its alarm and attracting more zombies from a distance. Before he could release a second arrow, he spotted 7 or 8 zombies staggering from the direction of the classroom building, making their way toward them. "Damn that electric scooter." Weilong clicked his tongue, releasing 2 more arrows that felled the remaining zombies at the entrance. As the last 2 lunged at him, he discarded his bow, drawing the black sea axe from his waist and cleaving one zombie's head clean off while kicking the other, sending it crashing against the wall. However, the horde behind them continued to swell, encircling the dormitory building. Weilong retreated to the dormitory manager's office entrance, urgently calling out to Lin Feng, "I've cleared most of the ones at the door, but a crowd is approaching from behind. I'll hold them off. You hurry inside and find the room key. The faster, the better." Lin Feng glanced at the encroaching zombies behind Weilong, his heart tightening. "You hold them off. I'll be right there." Chapter 5. Entering the girls' dormitory, he flung open the door and dashed into the dormitory manager's office. As he shut the door, the dull thud of an axe striking flesh and the growls of zombies echoed from outside, leaving him no time to waste. Lin Feng quickly scanned the office desk. Just as he was about to rummage through the drawer, the curtain for the inner room was lifted, revealing a zombie clad in a floral pajama set. Reaching out toward him, there was no time for hesitation. Lin Feng tightened his grip on the compound bow, hesitating to draw the string. His unfamiliarity with the weapon would not allow him the luxury of time in such dire circumstances. Lin Feng wielded his bow like a club and struck the head of the dormitory zombie with a forceful blow. The zombie staggered, giving him the opportunity to retreat 2 steps, from which he swiftly drew an arrow from his quiver and, summoning all his strength, plunged it into the creature's temple. It was a desperate gamble. The arrowhead pierced the zombie's skull, causing it to collapse lifelessly to the ground. Lin Feng, ignoring the blood on his hands, hastily yanked open the drawer of the desk, rummaging through it until he discovered a blue room card, bearing a label indicating it was for the girls' dormitory, Building 3. Grabbing the card, he dashed toward the door and, as he opened it a crack, shouted, "Weilong, I found the room card." Outside, Weilong was already stained with the foul blood of the undead, skillfully kicking away an approaching zombie. Upon seeing Lin Feng with the card, he quickly backed toward the entrance, urging, "Swipe the card. I'll hold them off for a moment." With that, he swung his axe down upon the neck of the nearest zombie. Clutching the room card, Lin Feng rushed forward, presenting it to the electronic lock. A soft beep echoed, and the red light transformed into green, the door unlocking with a click. "It's open." Weilong, with his black sea axe, delivered another strike against the foremost zombie. "Hurry in. I'll cover you." Lin Feng swiftly pulled the door inward, retreating inside as Weilong followed suit, shutting the door behind him. He retrieved climbing rope from his waist and wrapped it tightly around the doorknob, securing it firmly. Outside, the sound of zombies battering against the door resonated, their guttural howls creeping through the barrier, sending chills down their spines. Thankfully, the door was sturdy. Lin Feng took a deep breath and glanced up the hallway. Most dormitory doors were tightly shut, with only a few ajar, occasionally emitting strange sounds. A mere 2 or 3 zombies meandered through the corridor, likely former students who had risen early. "It's fortunate there are fewer people and zombies when classes are not in session," Lin Feng muttered, following Weilong toward the stairwell. Just as they reached the 2nd floor, a sudden thud emanated from a nearby dormitory, as if a zombie were attempting to break through the door, startling Lin Feng into instinctively gripping his compound bow. The 2 ascended the stairs cautiously, the silence only broken by the sound of their footsteps and the occasional thumping from distant dorms. Upon reaching the 6th floor, Lin Feng navigated toward the innermost dormitory, recalling how he had assisted Jinyan in moving her belongings at the beginning of the semester, a task that had left him quite fatigued. Arriving at the door of room 602, Lin Feng did not knock, but instead took out his phone and sent a message, "I'm at your dormitory door, open up." No sooner had the message been dispatched than the door cracked open, and a blood-soaked figure lunged out, tightly embracing Lin Feng. "Brother, you really came." It was Jinyan, her clothing smeared with dark blood. It's all right, brother is here," Lin Feng reassured her, patting her back. His peripheral vision catching sight of 2 zombie corpses sprawled on the floor, their heads smashed beyond recognition. In the corner, a girl clad in pajamas cowered, her face pale. Upon seeing them, she instinctively shrank back further. Lin Feng gestured toward the bodies on the ground and quietly inquired, "Did you all kill these zombies?" Jin Yen released him, wiping the blood from her face. "To be precise, I did. 2 of my roommates mutated this morning, and I used the leg of my desk to smash them." Lin Feng paused for a moment, then raised his thumb in admiration, grinning. "Well done, Nian Nian. You are truly fierce." Weilong leaned against the dormitory doorframe, his gaze fixed at the end of the corridor, where he noticed Lin Feng still conversing with Jin Yen. He quickly lowered his voice to interrupt. "Let us not chat any longer. The sound of zombies banging on the door outside is growing louder. This place is unsafe. We must evacuate promptly." Lin Feng nodded, shifting his attention to the corner where a girl was huddled, Jin Yen's roommate, her face smudged with dirt, hands tightly clutching the hem of her clothing. Lin Feng turned to Jin Yen, who looked at her roommate and spoke directly. "Li Meng, are you coming with us? We need to leave now." Li Meng raised her head, her eyes filled with hope, but her words carried a hint of hesitation. "Can we wait for my boyfriend to come so we can leave together? He just messaged me that he is almost downstairs, and it would be safer if we went together." As she spoke, her gaze flickered toward Jin Yen, clearly hoping for a delay. To her surprise, Jin Yen showed no sign of hesitation. She swiftly pulled the door closed, abruptly silencing Li Meng's plea. Turning to Lin Feng and Weilong, she raised an eyebrow. "Let us go, brother. Let her wait for her boyfriend." Lin Feng couldn't help but smile at his sister's decisiveness. She had clearly learned well, adept at resisting moral coercion. Back in school, no one could manipulate her. Weilong gestured towards the stairwell. "Let us head down. I observe that there are not many zombies below the 4th floor. We need to move quickly." The 3 of them tiptoed toward the stairwell, faintly hearing Li Meng's anxious calls from behind, yet Jin Yen acted as if she were oblivious, her steps unwavering. In this apocalyptic world, taking care of oneself was already a challenge. There was no room to concern oneself with the troubles of others. As they reached the 4th floor, a girl suddenly emerged from around the corner. Upon spotting the compound bows on Lin Feng and Weilong, her eyes brightened. "You have weapons. Can you take us with you?" A girl with a ponytail asked courageously. "We won't be a burden. Most of us are athletes, and our stamina is fine." Lin Feng glanced at them, then at the gathering zombies below. Although there were few zombies in the building, any erratic movement could inevitably draw them in. He shrugged. "If you want to follow, you can. Your legs are your own. I won't stop you, but if anything goes wrong, don't blame anyone." The girl hesitated and then quietly called back. "Xiaoya, there are people here who want to leave." Soon, another girl with a ponytail emerged, and after exchanging glances, they hurried to join. "We're coming too. We can't be trapped in the dormitory. Once someone goes out, opening the door will let the zombies flood in, and then escape will be impossible." Their movements down the stairs gradually attracted more girls eager to flee the dormitory. Upon finally reaching the 1st floor, Weilong cautiously peered around the door, immediately frowning. There are a dozen zombies piled up at the entrance, far more than before. "Oh my, so many." One girl's calves cramped, and she retreated a couple of steps. "I think I'll wait in the dorm for rescue. Going out is tantamount to suicide." The moment those words were spoken, silence fell among the girls behind her, with 2 even taking a few steps back. "With so many, maybe we should go back upstairs and wait?" Chapter 6. Imbalance of goals. Upon uttering these words, several individuals rushed up the staircase. Lin Feng approached the entrance and peered through the glass door, witnessing the relentless assault of the zombies against it. Turning to assess the situation, he noted that out of the original 12, 7 had stealthily retreated to the staircase, leaving only 5 standing their ground. Among them were the 2 girls he had encountered on the 4th floor, along with several from the 3rd floor brandishing weapons. He reached into his backpack, discreetly accessing the trading system, and spent 65,000 Hafcoins to procure 5 stone hammers in an instant. He then handed them out. "For those willing to venture outside, take these and fight your way through. For those who prefer to retreat, you may return to the dormitory unimpeded." The 5 girls hesitated not a moment longer. The first girl he had encountered reached out and grasped a hammer. "I'm going. Waiting to die back there is not an option. We must fight. Who knows when rescue might arrive, or if we will even be alive by then." The girls' dormitory holds no food or water. The others nodded in agreement, their bodies still trembling slightly, yet they gripped the hammers tightly and inched toward the door. It was preferable to carve out their own path to survival than to wait for salvation. Weilong had already unsheathed his Black Sea axe and shot Lin Feng a glance. "I will open the door and clear a path. Commander, cover me." Taking a deep breath, Weilong grasped the doorknob and yanked it open. As the glass door cracked ajar, the nearest zombie lunged forward with a frenzied intensity. "Fire!" Weilong commanded sharply. Lin Feng had already drawn back his composite bow, and an arrow flew forth, striking precisely into the zombie's forehead, causing it to collapse lifelessly. He swiftly followed up with another shot, targeting a second zombie that had just raised its arm, the arrow embedding itself in its eye socket. As Weilong retreated, their bows sang in unison, a continuous barrage of armor-piercing arrows dispatched from their quivers, swiftly taking down 5 or 6 zombies. Yet, more zombies continued to surge forward, some climbing over the fallen bodies of their companions, threatening to breach the line of arrows. "Brother, I'm coming," Jin Yin suddenly shouted, wielding a stone hammer as she flanked the two. One oblivious zombie lunged toward Lin Feng, but Jin Yin leapt up, delivering a powerful strike to the creature's lower back, causing it to topple over. She followed through with a second blow to the back of its head, blood splattering upon her. "Where did you find such strength?" Lin Feng exclaimed, momentarily taken aback. Jin Yin did not respond. Instead, she locked onto another zombie lunging toward a girl, pulling her back and bringing the hammer down swiftly and fiercely along the zombie's neck. Her actions far more ferocious than Lin Feng had anticipated. The 5 girls, initially quaking in fear, began to find their courage as they witnessed Jin Yin's ferocity. The girl with the ponytail from the 4th floor seized the opportunity when one zombie fell to an arrow, rushing forward to deliver a hammer strike to its head. The girl, initially filled with trepidation, observed as Jin Yin dispatched a zombie with a decisive strike, her resolve hardening as she approached, gritting her teeth. One zombie, struck in the shoulder by Lin Feng's arrow, remained upright. With her eyes tightly shut, she swung downwards at its head. Lin Feng, while continuing to shoot arrows, shouted urgently. Seeing a cluster of zombies fall at the entrance, he signaled to Weilong to clear a path and head towards the heavy truck. Without a word, Weilong reached behind him, retrieving a shoulder-mounted grenade launcher, which he steadied against his shoulder. He squinted at the mass of zombies for 2 seconds before pulling the trigger. Tiger squat cannon. "Here we go." A buzzing sound followed by a thunderous boom resonated as the compressed air projectile soared through the air, crashing into the heart of the zombie horde. Before anyone could react, the shell exploded, unleashing a shockwave that sent the advancing zombies flying backward, many collapsing to the ground, some even colliding with nearby lampposts, struggling to rise. "Target destabilized," Lin Feng exclaimed, his eyes wide with astonishment as he called out to Weilong. Weilong swiftly detached the launcher and brandished his black sea axe, charging forward to strike the nearest zombie on the head. Lin Feng followed suit, wielding a stone hammer to pound the fallen creatures. Jin Yin relentlessly struck the back of the heads of the incapacitated zombies, landing precise blows that felled 3 in no time. The 5 girls, undeterred, joined in. The girl with a ponytail mimicked Jin Yin, targeting the heads of the zombies, while the short-haired girl partnered with another wielding a fruit knife. Though their strength was modest, they took turns striking, effectively coordinating their efforts to take down the zombies. The early morning horde was already diminished, having suffered greatly from arrows and hammers. And with the remaining zombies obliterated by the tiger squat cannon, they had no chance to recover, quickly silenced by the group's relentless strikes. In a mere half-minute, the final zombie was dispatched by Jin Yin's hammer, and she brushed the dust off, panting and smiling. "All done." Weilong stowed the launcher, raising an eyebrow. "That was quite noisy. We need to vacate the dormitory building swiftly." Just as the group began to move towards the heavy truck, they heard footsteps approaching from the dormitory entrance. The 7 girls who had retreated earlier were now rushing down in a panic, with the blonde girl at the forefront shouting, "Wait, hold on, take us with you." Upon hearing the commotion, Jin Yin turned around, her expression instantly turning cold as she replied sharply, "We didn't see you during the fight against the zombies. You were hiding in the stairwell, too afraid to show your faces. Now that the zombies are cleared, you want to tag along? Where were you when we needed help?" The short-haired girl who had fought alongside Jin Yin chimed in, "Exactly. When we were battling zombies at the entrance, you were cowering in the back, waiting for rescue. Now that it's safe, you want to hitch a ride?" "Ridiculous." The blonde girl flushed from the rebuke but stubbornly retorted, "This road isn't yours to claim. Why shouldn't we be allowed to leave? Besides, more hands could be beneficial. We might help if trouble arises." A girl in a dress echoed her sentiments. "Yes. You all are being so selfish. They are all classmates. What is the harm in bringing a weapon? Need assistance?" Jin Yin chuckled, shaking the bloodied stone hammer in her hand. "Get lost. Don't follow us, or I'll smash your head with this." Lin Feng furrowed his brow and glanced at the 7 girls, pointing towards the street corner in the distance, where several zombies, drawn by the earlier commotion, were now ambling towards them. "Those types won't last long. Let us leave the school first." The 7 girls exchanged glances, none daring to stay behind. The sounds of the earlier battle in the stairwell were frightening enough. The thought of facing zombies alone was beyond their courage. The blonde girl bit her lip, refraining from further protest, and quietly urged her companions to stay at the rear of the group. Jin Yin rolled her eyes, choosing not to say more, merely exchanging a knowing glance with the few girls fighting alongside her. Lin Feng glanced back at those trailing behind, and decided not to intervene further, simply nodding to Weilong. Let us go, we'll talk once we reach the vehicle. The group quickened their pace towards the heavy truck, while the 7 girls behind them dared not even breathe, closely adhering to the edges of the group. Their earlier bravado vanished without a trace. Only Jean Yen occasionally glanced back, muttering under her breath, "Unbelievable. Even in the apocalypse, some still wish to be freeloaders." Chapter 7. Parting. As the group moved towards the heavy truck, it was clear that the formation had split into 2 distinct factions. Lin Feng, Weilong, Jean Yen, and 5 girls who had fought zombies together led the way, while the previously retreating 7 trailed at a distance of several meters, evidently wary of getting too close and facing confrontation. After just a few steps, whispers began to emerge from behind. What is the big deal about not helping to smash zombies? Why act so high and mighty? Just because they have weapons? A girl in a dress quickly tugged at her companion's arm, whispering more quietly, "Keep your voice down. What if they really abandon us?" The girl in the hat retorted defiantly but instinctively quickened her pace, fearing being left behind. "Once we reach the truck, they can't just push us out, right?" While they continued their murmurs, Jean Yin in the front overheard them and was about to retort when suddenly, a trash can at the right street corner was toppled, and 3 zombies lunged out, moving much faster than the ones they had encountered before, directly charging at the 7 girls at the back. The girl at the end barely had time to react before a zombie sank its teeth into her arm, causing her to scream in agony. The blonde girl, terrified, felt her legs weaken and turned to run forward, only to be snagged by another zombie clutching her clothing. The scream echoed loudly, prompting 5 or 6 more zombies to emerge from a nearby alley, converging towards them in a dark wave. Jean Yin instinctively turned back, but Lin Feng seized her wrist firmly, urging, "Run. Don't look back." His voice was lowered, cautious not to attract more zombies. As he pulled Jean Yin towards the heavy truck, Weilong had already taken off running ahead, calling back to the 5 girls who had fought alongside them. "Hurry. Don't dawdle." The 5 young women displayed remarkable resolve. Their earlier synergy in combating the zombies remained palpable. Upon hearing Lin Feng and Weilong's words, they swiftly turned and fled, not daring to glance back at the harrowing cries behind them. "Help me. Please, someone save me." The desperate wails grew increasingly louder, intermingled with the unsettling sounds of zombies gnawing. Lin Feng caught a fleeting glimpse over his shoulder and saw that the 7 girls had become ensnared in a circle of zombies. Some attempted to rise and escape, only to be pulled back down by the relentless creatures. Gritting his teeth, he quickened his pace. In this apocalyptic world, no one could rescue those unwilling to save themselves. He had previously granted them an opportunity, yet they chose to cower at the back, relying on others, and the outcome was entirely predictable. Jean Yen, being pulled along by Lin Feng, felt her palms slick with sweat, but refrained from mentioning the idea of looking back. She had clearly heard the girls' murmurs and had seen them cowering in the stairwell, unwilling to assist. Moreover, she was no saint. Witnessing others perish before her eyes was indeed distressing, yet in such dire circumstances, attempting to aid them would likely lead to her own demise. "We're almost there," Weilong exclaimed, pointing to a heavy truck not far away. The group surged toward the vehicle, tossing their tools, a masonry hammer and compound bow, onto the truck before scrambling into the cab and cargo area. Lin Feng was the last to board, and just as he was about to close the door, he noticed the cries behind them had diminished, replaced by the ominous sound of approaching zombie footsteps. Without hesitation, he shut the door and shouted to Weilong, "Start the engine." Weilong had already inserted the key into the ignition. With a twist, the engine roared to life, and the truck began to roll forward. Lin Feng leaned against the window, casting a glance back to see that the horde of zombies had dispersed, and the 7 girls who had been murmuring moments before had vanished without a trace. Silence enveloped the cargo area for a few seconds until the girl with the ponytail broke the quiet, saying softly, "If only we had turned back to help them." Jean Yin shook her head, leaning against the wall of the truck. "There was nothing we could do. With so many zombies, we only had a few hammers. Turning back would have led to our own encirclement." The truck accelerated, leaving the zombies far behind. No one in the cargo area spoke further. Only the thrum of the engine filled the air. The truck continued forward until it reached an abandoned gas station, where it finally came to a halt. Weilong disembarked to inspect the surroundings and found only a single cashier had been turned into a zombie. He dispatched the creature with his black blade and returned, nodding to the others. "There are no other zombies nearby. We are safe for the moment." Lin Feng opened the truck door and jumped down, turning to the 5 young women with a smile. "We've arrived. It's time for you to get out." The girls exchanged glances, already aware of the situation. From the moment they began driving this way, they had sensed that Lin Feng did not intend to travel with a large group. In this apocalyptic world, the more people there were, the larger the target and the greater the trouble. The girl with the ponytail was the first to climb down, still gripping the masonry hammer. After a brief hesitation, She spoke up. Hey, could we keep this hammer? It would provide some security as we search for our families. Upon hearing this, the other girls quickly nodded in agreement, their eyes fixed on the hammer in their hands. Having used it to smash zombies moments ago, they understood its sturdiness, far superior to being unarmed. Lin Feng chuckled at the words and waved his hand dismissively. What is the issue with that? It was meant for your use, after all. Leaning against the car door, he recalled the scene at the entrance of the dormitory. Had it not been for those brave girls wielding hammers, he and Weilong might have had to resort to drawing firearms. The sound of gunfire would have attracted even more zombies, so those girls had indeed rendered significant assistance. Jin Yin also stepped down from the vehicle and nodded in agreement beside Lin Feng. Indeed, you are far superior to that group hiding at the back. That hammer truly belongs to you. Upon hearing this, the girl with the ponytail visibly relaxed, smiling as she adjusted the hammer behind her. Thank you so much. My name is Lin Xiao, with Xiao meaning dawn. I'm Zhao Rui. The short-haired girl quickly interjected, giving her hammer a pat. I owe you a great deal, otherwise I would have panicked. I didn't even know your names, but I will certainly repay you in the future. The girl wearing glasses suddenly teased, winking at Zhao Rui. In the future? Huh? Zhao Rui's face flushed with embarrassment, and she playfully slapped the girl's arm. Huangshu, are you trying to get yourself killed? The remaining two girls hurriedly introduced themselves. The girl with glasses was Chen Shui, while the one with twin ponytails was Jiangli. After exchanging names, Lin Xiao turned to Lin Feng. So, Lin Feng, where are you headed next? I'm not sure yet. First, I want to check if my mother is still safe. And then perhaps we will head northwest. What about you? This was indeed Lin Feng's plan. The northwest was sparsely populated, with fewer zombies, and nearby towns had supplies. Fertile land for cultivation. I can still contact my parents. I plan to reunite with them, Lin Xiao replied. However, Chen Shui's expression darkened a bit. I haven't heard anything from my parents, and I came here to study from another province. They might have Lin Xiao and the others express their gratitude to Lin Feng's group once more before shouldering their bags and carrying the stone hammers as they made their way out of the gas station. After taking a few steps, they turned back and waved. Lin Feng, Jin Yin, we're leaving now. Lin Feng waved back, watching until their figures disappeared at the end of the road before turning to Weilong. Let us go. We need to fill the tank and grab a few extra barrels of fuel. Weilong nodded, securing his compound bow as he began refueling the truck. Jin Yin tugged at Lin Feng's arm, whispering, Brother, you think Mom will be all right? She will be fine, I'm sure of it. The two climbed back into the vehicle, and the heavy truck roared to life, heading towards the outskirts of the city. Chapter 8. Brother, you can't possibly have a system, can you? The village back home was not far from Dawn University, merely a few kilometers away. However, the presence of zombies on the road necessitated detours around clusters of them in narrow alleys, making the journey take a grueling 2 hours before they finally reached the village entrance. Feeling both thirsty and hungry, Lin Feng rummaged through his backpack, retrieving 3 bottles of cold soda and 3 packages of stir-fried noodles labeled in foreign script. He placed them on the ground. Let us take a break and have a bite. Weilong and Jin Yin's eyes sparkled. To savor ice-cold soda in this apocalyptic world felt like sheer bliss. The 3 sat down on the ground, popping open the soda cans as bubbles rushed to the surface. The chilled liquid slid down their throats, instantly dispelling the heat from their arduous journey. The stir-fried noodles were ready to eat, savory and flavorful. As the 3 individuals finished their meal with great haste, Jin Yin finally took notice of the empty instant noodle packaging, furrowing her brow and murmuring, Brother, where did you procure this fried noodle? Is there such packaging for instant noodles available domestically? She scrutinized the package for an extended period, then abruptly raised her head, fixing her gaze intently on Weilong. May I inquire your name? Jin Yin's tone carried a hint of inquisitiveness. Weilong wiped the corner of his mouth and replied nonchalantly, Wang Yuhao. Upon hearing this, Jin Yin immediately turned to Lin Feng, suddenly slapping her thigh in revelation. I've got it. You must have awakened a system after the apocalypse, right? The kind that binds to the Delta warehouse and can summon operators. Lin Feng, who had just taken a sip of cola, promptly sprayed it everywhere, coughing and patting his chest. Weilong was not faring much better, as cola trickled down his chin while he wiped it off and coughed as well. How could you possibly think that? Lin Feng finally caught his breath after a while and asked with a mix of amusement and disbelief. It's so obvious. Jin Yin exclaimed as she counted on her fingers. Wang Yuhao's attire is identical to that of the tiger cannon we just saw, mirroring the equipment of Weilong in the game. And this fried noodle, the packaging resembles the supply packs from Delta. You may be the one wielding the knife, but I am the one safeguarding the operations. I see this every day. Besides, I have read my fair share of novels. Awakening a system in a post-apocalyptic setting. Summoning game operators. Everything aligns perfectly. The more she spoke, the more resolute she became. Otherwise, how do you explain the ice cola and the fried noodles from the game? And Wang Yuhao, are you not the Weilong summoned by the system? Weilong raised an eyebrow, refraining from outright denial, merely looking towards Lin Feng. After all, such matters were for the commander to decide. Having just recovered from the cola incident, Lin Feng wiped his mouth and noticed Jin Yin staring at him with wide eyes. Jin Yin had grown up alongside him, and if he could not trust her, he knew not whom to trust beyond the operators summoned by the system. Thus, Lin Feng decided to be straightforward, placing the empty cola can aside and nodding in acknowledgement. All right, I had no intention of hiding it from you. There indeed exists such a system that can access Delta's warehouse supplies and summon operators. He pointed at Weilong beside him and added, as you know, I still need to summon my Xiaowen, Feng Yi, and Hong Lang. I can't keep telling you I found them on the road. Besides, having played Delta with you for so long, how could I possibly keep it from you? Weilong listened attentively and nodded along. The commander had no intention of concealing this. It was simply that the circumstances were chaotic previously, and there was no suitable opportunity to disclose it. Jin Yin was momentarily taken aback. Wow, that is truly the case. I thought it was just a joke about cosplay. She then inquired eagerly, so, can my Xiaowen also be summoned? Lin Feng winced at her enthusiasm, grinning as he explained, I've only just awakened a few days ago, and I haven't fully grasped how to utilize it yet. Summoning Weilong was an emergency measure. Jin Yin waved her hand, her eyes brimming with excitement. Brother, please extend your legs so I may embrace it. If possible, allow me to utilize it. I meant the M14. I'll send you one. Jin Yin's spirits lifted further as she patted Lin Feng on the shoulder, exclaiming, now we can approach the safe zone with greater confidence. With a system and operatives, what fear do we have of zombies? Observing Jin Yin's enthusiasm, Lin Feng felt a sense of relief. He had initially worried that her reaction to the truth would be one of fear, yet this girl seemed even more exhilarated than he was. After the three finished their fried noodles, casually discarding the empty wrappers, Jin Yin inquired, how do we enter the village? Lin Feng shot a glance at her and retorted, littering shows a lack of civility. Consider yourself fined 800 yuan. You. Jin Yin started to protest, gesturing animatedly, though her words faltered. Your family is my family. We cannot be pinpointed. After teasing her, Lin Feng leaned against the front of the vehicle, stroking his chin thoughtfully. The village roads are too narrow for trucks, and if a horde of zombies is lurking inside, escaping would be perilous. If we need to break out later, it could lead to unforeseen trouble. Weilong, squatting nearby, nodded in agreement. I share that sentiment. We should lure the zombies out and eliminate them to avoid ambushes once we enter. He patted the back of the large truck. If too many come, we can simply retreat into the vehicle. The initiative will remain with us. Jin Yin, clutching the AKM she had just acquired, her eyes gleaming, asked, so how do we lure them? With gunfire? Precisely, Weilong replied, standing to raise the AKM to his shoulder, the barrel aimed skyward. Bang! The sound of the gunshot echoed sharply along the desolate country road. Before the smoke could dissipate, commotion erupted in the village. First, there were a few muffled roars, followed by the emergence of 5 or 6 zombies from beneath the old locust tree at the village entrance, swiftly shuffling towards the sound of the gunfire. They're coming. Lin Feng hastily readied his AKM, his finger poised on the trigger. The zombies were currently disarmed and unarmored. The M7 used only level 4 ammunition, costing around 1,700 per round, while the M14 required over 100 for its level 2 rounds. In contrast, the 7.62 by 39 rounds were merely 43 each, proving their worth as the king of cost-effectiveness. As they spoke, more zombies appeared, now within 20 meters of the trio. Weilong was the first to fire. Bang! Bang! The heads of the first 2 zombies exploded, their lifeless bodies collapsing to the ground. Lin Feng followed suit, missing his first shot, which grazed the shoulder of a zombie. He clicked his tongue in frustration. My aim is a bit off. He fired again, this time hitting the zombie squarely in the temple. It staggered before falling. Jin Yin, unable to contain her excitement, also began pulling the trigger. The 3 stood in a triangular formation at the front of the truck, the intermittent sounds of the AKM ringing out. Weilong's aim was remarkably steady, nearly every shot landing a headshot, while Lin Feng and Jin Yin cleaned up any that slipped through. Before long, the ground was littered with the first wave of fallen zombies, and the village fell silent once more. Let's wait a moment and see if there are more, Weilong suggested, lowering his weapon but keeping his gaze fixed on the village entrance, ears attuned to any sounds from within. After approximately 2 minutes, another dozen zombies staggered out, clearly attracted by the earlier gunfire, yet moving at a slower pace. Jin Yin seized the opportunity to fire, this time hitting her mark directly and taking one down. Lin Feng and Weilong each took a shot, swiftly clearing the area. After a brief 5-minute pause, silence enveloped the village, with not even the shadow of a zombie appearing. Lin Feng set down his AKM and glanced towards the village entrance, wondering if the threat had indeed dissipated. The village had never harbored many inhabitants, and the earlier gunfire had been sufficiently loud. Had there been any zombies, they would have emerged by now. It seemed prudent to venture inside for a closer inspection. He slung the AKM over his shoulder, advising caution, urging them not to be careless. Jin Yin followed closely behind. Lin Feng secured the truck's door and took up the rear. Chapter 9. The mother transformed into a zombie. The trio advanced into the village, AKMs in hand. The oppressive silence sending shivers down their spines. Weilong led the way, his finger poised on the trigger, scanning the tightly shut courtyard gates on either side. Lin Feng and Jin Yin walked side by side at the back. Suddenly, a dark figure darted from the right alley, drool hanging from its jaws. It was a mutated dog. It locked its gaze on Jin Yin, propelling itself towards her with a powerful leap. Watch out! Lin Feng shouted, just as Weilong swiftly turned. Raising his AKM to his chest, a sharp crack echoed as a bullet struck the mutated dog squarely in the head. The creature paused mid-air before crashing to the ground. Convulsing a couple of times before lying still, black blood seeping into the cracks of the earth. That scared me to death, Jin Yin said, swallowing hard. Her heart still racing. Weilong, keeping his AKM raised, scanned the surroundings and quietly warned, be cautious, there may be more. These things move swiftly. And we didn't hear a sound just now. As the three resumed their advance, the courtyard gate ahead creaked open, revealing two zombies clad in blue shirts, Aunt Zhang and Uncle Li from next door. Their eyes had turned a ghastly white, and they lurched toward the trio with a mindless determination. Lin Feng let out a sigh. Aunt Zhang used to dry fruits by her door and would always offer him a handful. Uncle Li had once repaired his childhood bicycle and often called him to the yard to pick watermelons during the summer. Yet now, he could only grit his teeth and pull the trigger. With 2 gunshots, the zombies fell lifelessly to the ground. Jin Yin's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Yet she remained silent. Weilong, too, offered no words, instead keeping a vigilant watch behind them to prevent any further surprises. They continued, dispatching 4 or 5 more zombies. All former neighbors. The weight of the AKM in Lin Feng's hands grew heavier, mirroring the slowing of Jin Yin's pace, both of them haunted by a singular thought. All they had encountered were zombies. What of his mother? Would she also have? Don't dwell on it, Lin Feng urged, taking a deep breath as he patted Jin Yin's back. His voice taut with anxiety. Let us head home and check. Mother will be fine. She's resourceful. Perhaps she has found a place to hide. Jin Yin nodded, tightening her grip on the AKM. Yes, Mother is waiting for us to return. Weilong glanced at the two of them and quickened his pace towards the eastern end of the village. Their shadows stretched long behind them, punctuated only by the sound of their footsteps and the occasional gunfire, resonating eerily in the desolate village. Each heart ached with hope, yearning for the moment they would push open the door to find a familiar figure waiting for them. After turning a couple more corners, they finally reached their own modest house with a small courtyard. As they drew nearer, Jin Yin's steps slowed, and she abruptly halted upon seeing the familiar iron gate at the entrance of the yard. The gate was closed, yet sounds of banging emanated from within, as if something were repeatedly striking against it. Lin Feng's heart tightened instantly. The two of them cautiously approached the iron gate, only to freeze in place the next moment. Inside the courtyard stood a middle-aged woman clad in a dark blue apron, her back turned to them as she relentlessly pounded against the wooden door of the main room. It was the very apron Lin Feng had purchased for his stepmother the previous New Year. Mom. Jin Yin's voice trembled, laced with disbelief, as if sensing their presence. The woman whirled around, her eyes clouded and white, saliva dribbling from the corners of her mouth, her once gentle face now contorted in a terrifying grimace. Upon seeing Lin Feng and Jin Yin, she let out a guttural scream, extending her grayish hand towards them, only to be thwarted by the iron gate, leaving her to claw frantically at the air. Jin Yin's legs buckled, nearly causing her to collapse. She grasped Lin Feng's arm tightly, tears streaming down her face as she repeatedly murmured, "How could Mom be like this?" Lin Feng stood frozen, his mind buzzing as memories flashed before him like a revolving lantern. Just days ago, his stepmother had urged him to return with some vegetables. How could everything have changed so drastically in such a short time? In his childhood, he had dismissed the village elder's ominous words about familial ties, but now, faced with his stepmother's grotesque form, he struggled to breathe. With his father gone, his mother lost, and his stepfather no longer present. Even his stepmother, who bore no blood relation, had succumbed to this fate in the aftermath of the apocalypse. Weilong stood behind them, refraining from advancing, silently gripping his AKM. He could sense the siblings' despair, yet he understood that any words of comfort would be futile at this moment. His duty was to maintain vigilance against other zombies encroaching upon their vicinity. Lin Feng slowly raised his hand and grasped the Black Hawk dagger, yet found himself unable to bring it down upon that once familiar but now unrecognizable face. The cold steel penetrated his fingertips, but he felt a feverish heat coursing through his body. After weeping enough, Jin Yin leaned against Lin Feng, her voice hoarse. "Brother, what should we do?" Lin Feng remained silent, gently patting her back while his gaze remained fixed on his stepmother, who continued to pound on the door, her screams growing weaker. A gust of wind swept through the courtyard, rustling the fallen leaves upon the ground. Lin Feng closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and when he opened them again, only a sense of helplessness remained. His mother was no longer present. Lin Feng picked up the Black Hawk dagger and moved a few steps closer to the iron gate. Jin Yin did not follow. She understood Lin Feng's intentions and recognized the necessity of his actions. No child wishes to witness their mother in such a wretched, half-alive state. It was far kinder to grant her a swift release. With a steady hand, Lin Feng pushed open the iron gate. The zombie's hollow eyes met his, and it lunged with a feral scream. He thrust the dagger into its temple, and in an instant, the creature collapsed to the ground. Lin Feng crouched down, gently brushing the dirt off his stepmother's face, his voice hoarse. "Mother, I am deeply sorry." Weilong stood at the gate, silent. Before turning to retrieve 3 shovels from the truck's trunk, Lin Feng, without glancing back, grasped a shovel and walked towards the grape trellis, while Jin Yin also stood up, wiped her face, and picked up another shovel. The grave was not particularly deep. Once filled, it formed a modest mound of earth. Jin Yin rummaged through the house and unearthed an old incense burner, searching for 3 sticks of incense. After several attempts with the lighter, she managed to ignite them, the flames flickering in the wind, prompting her to cup her hands around them. She placed the 3 sticks of incense before the mound, their smoke rising languidly into the air. Lin Feng took Jin Yin's hand, bowing 3 times before the mound. Gazing at the earth before him, he murmured, "Mother, rest assured. I will take good care of Jin Yin and live on." Jin Yin nodded, clutching Lin Feng's sleeve, remaining silent. Weilong glanced at the sky. The sun was rapidly descending in the west. Though reluctant, he softly urged, "We must leave. It isn't safe after dark." Lin Feng acknowledged with a hum, picked up the Black Eagle dagger from the ground, wiped the blood on his clothing, and fastened it to his waist. He led Jin Yin towards the gate, with Weilong trailing behind. As darkness fell, the 3 parked the heavy truck at the entrance of a temple outside the village, a place with a clear view of the surroundings, allowing them to observe any distant movements. They had laid down a layer of cool mats borrowed from the villagers during the day in the truck's cabin. Despite the sweltering weather, the air conditioning made it bearable. Jin Yin curled up in a corner of the cabin, hugging her knees and speaking little. Lin Feng offered her his jacket, which she accepted with a quiet thank you. Wrapping it around herself, Weilong leaned against the back seat of the driver's cabin, refraining from interruption, occasionally glancing outside to ensure no zombies were approaching before closing his eyes to rest. Chapter 10. Summoning the bee healer. Having cleared the zombies from the village during the day, the settlement was relatively safe, allowing the group to enjoy a peaceful slumber on the first day of the apocalypse. Early the next morning, Weilong awoke promptly, while Lin Feng, due to his biological clock, was not much slower to rise. "Let us go and collect the resources," Lin Feng grinned. "The zombies are cleared, and we shouldn't let the supplies go to waste." Weilong nodded in agreement. When Jin Yin rubbed her eyes and sat up, the 3 rummaged through their backpacks for instant noodles, slinging 3 large red envelopes over their shoulders as they ventured into the village. The young people had already left for work, leaving behind the old, weak, ill, and disabled, most of whom likely did not survive the onset of the apocalypse. They headed straight for the convenience store at the village entrance. The roll-up door was tightly shut, and without hesitation, Lin Feng spent 80,000 Hafcoins to purchase a hydraulic door breacher, quickly prying the door open. With a growl, the zombie shopkeeper lunged at them. Weilong's gaze sharpened, and the black sea axe gleamed coldly as it sliced through the air. With a precise strike, the axe embedded itself into the zombie's skull, sending it crashing to the ground. "Quickly, take everything we can. Time is scarce and the task is heavy. Start moving," Lin Feng commanded, and the trio descended upon the store like a swarm of locusts. Bottled water, instant noodles, condiments. They swept every battery and lighter off the shelves, leaving no stone unturned. Gazing at the desolate shop and the mountains of spoils piled outside, an exhilarating sensation of a zero-cost acquisition in this post-apocalyptic world surged within me. Before long, the convenience store was entirely emptied, with each return transport of heavy trucks accumulating a semblance of goods. Although bound to Delta, the market here lacked seasonings such as salt, chicken essence, and MSG, and the variety of food was rather monotonous. While these items were not essential for Lin Feng, who possessed a systematic approach, they could occasionally enhance the quality of life. Weilong leaned against the truck, wiping the sweat from his brow, and inquired, "Commander, where to next?" Lin Feng gestured towards the west of the village, his eyes glimmering with anticipation. There's a wealthy family over there. I used to dine at their house during the New Year celebrations. Their son mentioned they have a large safe. Perhaps we might uncover some valuable treasures. Let us break into the safe, Weilong declared, raising his hand with determination. The three of them then proceeded towards the opulent residence. Before long, they arrived at the entrance. Weilong approached the iron gate, glanced at the lock, and without seeking any tools, stepped back slightly and delivered a powerful kick to the lock. The iron lock shattered, and the gate swung open. As they stepped inside, the ominous groans of zombies echoed from within, and two figures stumbled forth. One was the wealthy family's elderly matriarch, and the other was their maid, both transformed into the undead. Be careful, Weilong cautioned, and without waiting for the zombies to close in, he drew his black blade and struck at the matriarch zombie. The maid zombie seized the opportunity to lunge at Jin Yin, who, though slightly flustered, reacted swiftly. Grasping a masonry hammer, she swung it decisively, striking the zombie's head, which fell silent without a sound. With the two zombies dispatched, the trio entered the opulent dwelling. The living room was spacious, and Lin Feng conducted a thorough search, discovering a safe as tall as a half-man in the master bedroom. Found it. Lin Feng called for Weilong, and together they maneuvered the safe out. Weilong, surveying the safe, exclaimed, "Let me handle this." After a brief moment of tinkering, a click resonated, and the safe door swung open. Inside lay a modest amount of cash, several stacks that could be exchanged for Hafcoins, roughly equating to 300,000 to 400,000. Additionally, there was a velvet box. Upon opening it, 3 gold bars as thick as arms tumbled out, glinting brilliantly in the light, igniting a warmth in the heart. Wow! Jin Yin gasped, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the cold surface of the gold bars. The drop rate is truly impressive. Weilong leaned in for a closer look. Raising an eyebrow, these 3 could easily exchange for over 1,000,000 Hafcoins. Suppressing his racing heart, Lin Feng stashed the bars into his backpack. This was truly a lifeline of hard currency. The trio refrained from further searching, as their primary objective had been achieved, and lingering too long risked attracting more zombies. After securing the wealthy family's door, they made their way back to the heavy truck outside the village. Once back inside the truck, Weilong promptly locked the doors. Jin Yin sank into a corner of the cargo area, rubbing her sore shoulders. After a long trek laden with supplies, combined with the weight of the gold bars, she felt utterly exhausted. Lin Feng took a seat beside the driver's seat, placing his backpack on his lap. As he unzipped it, he retrieved a velvet box. Upon opening it, 3 gleaming gold bars lay nestled within, their lustrous surfaces catching the light. Jin Yin leaned closer, her fingers lightly brushing against the bars, before the apocalypse. Even the thought of touching such wealth was unimaginable. Now, seeing them so substantial truly felt like a delightful marvel. Lin Feng smiled softly, and with a flicker of thought, a semi-transparent warehouse interface materialized before him, displaying the various supplies he had previously stored, with quite a few empty slots remaining. He lifted his hand and tapped, causing the 3 gold bars to vanish from the box and appear in one of the vacant spaces on the interface, marked with a label indicating their high purity. Following this, he selected the gold bar icon and chose the option to sell it to the Special Operations Department. A flash of white light swept across the panel, the gold bar icon disappearing, replaced by a series of numbers that danced joyously, indicating an increase of 1,200,000 in his account balance. Almost simultaneously, a crisp and clear notification echoed in his mind. Ding! The Special Operations Department has successfully retrieved 3 high-purity gold bars. 1,200,000 Hafcoins have been credited to your account. Congratulations to the host for achieving the million withdrawal accomplishment. The next stage achievement: accumulate 10 million Hafcoins in supplies. New feature unlocked. Skill template exchange options. Unlock reward: 1 operator summon slot. Lin Feng's eyes brightened at this revelation. Weilong, who had been resting with his eyes closed against the back of the seat, opened them at the mention of the panel. As an operator, he could naturally perceive certain system prompts, and he raised an eyebrow. Skill template? What can be exchanged? Jin Yin, equally intrigued, leaned closer to Lin Feng. Although she could not see the panel, the excitement on Lin Feng's face was unmistakable. Brother, can we exchange for operator skills? Lin Feng's fingertips glided across the panel, browsing through the options for skill templates, which included various operators' abilities. Each operator template required a material known as an ocean tier for exchange. He did not rush to make a selection, instead opting to click on the operator summon slot. The icon illuminated briefly, indicating it was available for use at any time to summon a Delta operator, requiring a resuscitation breathing machine and an African heart as materials. Fortunately, Lin Feng possessed a considerable number of African hearts, resuscitation breathing machines, and ocean tiers, so he felt no immediate concern. The skill templates could indeed be exchanged for various operators' abilities, Lin Feng succinctly explained, and he could summon another operator as well. Jin Yin's eyes widened with excitement. That's fantastic. We'll have another ally. Weilong nodded in agreement. The more hands, the greater the assurance. Lin Feng stroked his chin thoughtfully, turning to Weilong. Weilong, you are familiar with the Delta operators. Who do you think we should summon next? Weilong pondered for a couple of seconds, his brow furrowed in thought. Before finally responding, how about medic Royce? Royce was a medical operator, wielding a hormone gun capable of saving lives. Currently lacking a medic. Any injury could become quite a hassle. Moreover, that fellow had a commendable character and combat prowess. Weilong spoke in a calm tone, but revealed an intriguing background. Royce had once been involved with street gangs as a teenager before enlisting in the military, where he honed his medical emergency skills. Previously, there was an operation known as the Wind Rolling Grass Initiative. He was sent as support, and upon arrival, 2 assault team members succumbed to poisoning. Headquarters ordered a retreat, but he refused, fearing for the villagers' safety against the terrorists. He seized a rifle and single-handedly engaged from the entrance to the end of the town, resolutely completing the mission. Jin Yin had not delved deeply into the background story. However, she was afflicted with a peculiar condition that made her smile upon seeing the face of the beekeeper. She had not anticipated the beekeeper's prowess. What? Roy is so formidable. Upon hearing this, Lin Feng immediately nodded in agreement. All right, summon the beekeeper. With a smile, Lin Feng pressed the confirmation button to summon, and the interface flashed a soothing white light, displaying the message. Operator Beekeeper is being summoned, expected to arrive in 10 minutes. As the 10 minutes elapsed, a green luminescence suddenly emanated from the rear of the heavy truck. As the glow subsided, a figure was seen seated steadily. The beekeeper donned an olive green combat uniform, with a gas mask obscuring their features, revealing only a pair of eyes peering through the lenses. Wrapped in several loops of fluorescent green tubing, with thick black protective gear on their knees and elbows, they cradled a rifle in their arms. Indeed, the beekeeper bore a rather intimidating appearance, suggesting they were not of benevolent disposition. Raising a hand, their muffled voice emerged through the mask. Happy New Year, Commander. Welcome. I am Lin Feng. Lin Feng promptly introduced. This is Jin Yin, our, multifunctional team member. Weilong stepped forward and exchanged a fist bump with the beekeeper. Roy, long time no see. But the new year hasn't arrived yet. The beekeeper tilted their head, possibly smiling, and replied leisurely. To me, every time a new mission commences, it marks a new year reboot, you understand? Clearing his throat, Lin Feng hastily redirected the conversation. Beekeeper, your timing is impeccable. We have just discovered that by evacuating, or rather, gathering supplies to sell to the system, we can acquire Hafcoins to unlock achievements and new functions, such as summoning you. Following the beekeeper Roy's arrival, he swiftly integrated into the team and provided a crucial insight. Commander, according to the internal evaluation standards of the Special Operations Department, the simplest method to rapidly and abundantly acquire Hafcoins is to rob the bank vault. Weilong crossed his arms and succinctly interjected. Why not rob a gold store? Isn't that more straightforward? The beekeeper pondered for a moment before responding. Banks can be located in less populated areas, while gold stores are rarely found in such locations. I see the merit in your argument, Jin Yin affirmed, nodding vigorously. Yes, we can loot the gold bars inside. This revelation instantly illuminated Lin Feng's eyes. The bank vault, renowned as the most lucrative target in the Delta operations, certainly held promise. Lin Feng licked his parched lips, the audacity of the idea quickening his heartbeat. The gold inside must be enough for us to exchange for several million, right? The air inside the truck, charged with the vision of those millions of Hafcoins, was abruptly cooled by Lin Feng's most fundamental inquiry. Wait, let us not rejoice too soon, he mused, scratching his head with a look of curiosity. How does one even open the bank vault? Throughout my life, I have yet to see what it truly looks like. Jin Yin nodded in agreement, leaning in to chime in. Indeed, aren't the vault doors in movies exceedingly thick? As soon as they finished speaking, Weilong remained silent, merely turning away. When he returned, he astonishingly held a magnetic bomb in his hand. Mandel's exorcism unit, he spoke in a calm tone, is here to safeguard your assets. Hey, Feng, he exclaimed, pointing at the bomb, his voice tinged with professional disapproval. Commander, the noise from that device is enough to summon half the zombies in the street for a party. Besides, he glanced at Weilong. Do you truly believe that a bank's standard explosion-proof door can be breached with such a trivial amount of explosives? That thing can withstand military-grade explosives. Weilong lifted his eyelids slightly and tapped the bomb's casing with his finger. Who told you I intended to blow the door open? The carriage fell into an immediate hush, with Lin Feng and Jin Yin both taken aback. Meeting the trio's puzzled gazes, he explained leisurely, a standard bank vault door is typically composed of composite armor. Yet the walls on either side or at the back, for structural support and cost efficiency, usually have a lower level of defense. He paused, a faint smile gracing his lips. I merely need to create a hole in the wall. Feng Yi stared at Weilong for a long moment before silently giving him a thumbs up. Impressive. That thought had not crossed my mind. Weilong then stowed the magnetic bomb and added, of course, this assumes we first identify a suitable target. We need to locate a bank in an area with sparse buildings and few residents, preferably an independent branch. This way, any noise can be managed easily, and our escape route will be clear. At that moment, Lin Feng had a sudden flash of inspiration. Oh, I just remembered a place, the Qingshan town. He declared with conviction. It's less than 10 kilometers from here. That place used to be a famous gold mining spot, and nearly every household was involved in the trade. Many people there have goods. As soon as he uttered those words, the carriage fell silent. Jin Yin was the first to react, leaning closer to Lin Feng with a questioning look. Is that true? How come I never heard of this? After a brief pause, he revealed the crucial piece of information. A few years ago, I went there with my father to procure goods, and I distinctly heard people in town complaining that they couldn't sleep soundly for fear of their hidden gold being discovered. Back then, there were plenty of bandits, and eventually, they all deposited their treasures into the town's bank vault. During holidays, the bank had to hire extra security, fearing they might be targeted. Now that the world has fallen into chaos, that gold must still be sitting untouched in the vault. Weilong's tone grew more expectant. The bank in the gold mining village must have quite a substantial amount of gold reserves. Feng Yi nodded in agreement, tapping the wooden stock of his rifle. If the intel is accurate, Commander, we may indeed find ourselves exceedingly wealthy overnight. The four exchanged glances, and Lin Feng was the first to seize the car keys. Taking a seat in the driver's seat. What are we waiting for? Let us set forth. We must reach Qingshan town before nightfall and ascertain the bank's location and the surrounding situation. Understood. Jin Yin replied enthusiastically. Indeed, let us first redeem the skill templates. System. I request 2 sets of Dragon's skill modules. The Dragon possesses remarkable agility and jet propulsion, a rare asset in this post-apocalyptic world. The heavy-duty truck is en route to Qingshan town, encountering numerous zombies along the way. Some meander slowly in the middle of the road, resulting in collisions with the truck. After dispatching the undead, the medic, B, took the initiative to dismember the bodies, discovering an absence of crystal cores, yet extracted blood for experimentation. Eventually, the truck's windows were splattered with blood, and the faint metallic scent lingered in the breeze. Jin Yin and B occupied the rear seat. Jin Yin leaned against the window, admiring the scenery while B scrutinized the freshly collected blood samples. Suddenly, the truck came to a screeching halt, causing a slight jolt within the cabin. Brother, what's wrong? Jin Yin inquired, peering out. Ahead, a yellow school bus was awkwardly positioned on the narrow village road, completely blocking their path, flanked by muddy fields that rendered passage impossible. The bus driver's door swung open, and a man clad in a checkered shirt and spectacles exited briskly, with his hands raised high, signaling the absence of weapons. He cautiously approached, his voice laced with caution. Don't be alarmed. We mean no harm. We simply wish to discuss how to navigate past each other. Lin Feng exchanged a glance with the dragon and stepped out of the vehicle. As they approached, they heard hushed voices emanating from within the bus. Chapter 12. The situation in Qingshan town is beyond my control. Through the window, they observed a cluster of youthful faces, children around 7 or 8 years old, peering anxiously outside with wide eyes. I am Zhang Lei, a teacher from Qingshan Primary School, the man stated as he drew closer, lowering his hands and wearily gesturing towards the bus. These are the uninfected children from the school. We just escaped from Qingshan town, seeking a secluded place outside the city to hide for a while. Qingshan Primary School? Lin Feng and the dragon exchanged surprised glances, realizing that their destination was indeed the location of the primary school. The dragon curiously inquired, what is the current situation in Qingshan town? Zhang Lei sighed, fumbling through his crumpled pocket for a pack of cigarettes, his fingers trembling slightly as he offered it. Care for a smoke? It might help ease the tension. He glanced at the medic in the truck, who waved his hand in refusal. Lin Feng and the dragon declined as well. Zhang Lei lit a cigarette, taking a deep drag, his expression clouded by the smoke. This morning, zombies breached the school. Undead appeared within the premises, and despite the teacher's desperate attempts to barricade the doors, they were ultimately unsuccessful. I seized the opportunity to load this last group of children onto the bus, 18 in total. One person, with 18 children, escaping from a horde of corpses while also tending to the little ones. Lin Feng and the dragon fell silent, their hearts filled with profound respect. There was no other option, Zhang Lei remarked, sensing their regard. He flicked off the ash, his voice hoarse. I am their teacher. Jean Yin also exited the truck, approaching the school bus, smiling at the children inside and giving them an encouraging gesture. The children's emotions appeared relatively stable, despite the dire circumstances. The children's emotions seemed to have stabilized somewhat. A bold little boy timidly inquired, "Sister, are you going to fight zombies?" Teacher Zhang Lei replied that both humans and zombies were perilous at present. Another little girl mustered her courage and asked, "Sister, are you in danger?" "Please don't harm Teacher Zhang. He is a good teacher." Jean Yin nodded reassuringly. "We are also good people and will not harm your Teacher Zhang. We are going to combat zombies." Zhang Lei did not take Jean Yin's words seriously. "Are you planning to enter Qingshan Town? After all, this village road necessitated passage through Qingshan Town, and apart from that route, he could not fathom where they could possibly go." Lin Feng nodded. "I have a relative in the village beyond. We must pass through the town." Zhang Lei shook his head. "That area is now swarming with zombies. It is far too dangerous. It would be best to take a detour." Lin Feng nodded again. "We will approach from the outskirts. Thank you for the warning. Yu Hao, please help me reverse the vehicle to make way." As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, Weilong said nothing more and turned towards the truck's cabin. He opened the door, seated himself, grasped the steering wheel, and glanced at the rearview mirror to assess the traffic behind. Although the village road was narrow, there was a slightly wider space a few dozen meters back. With the engine roaring back to life, the truck slowly reversed. Zhang Lei observed from the roadside, his eyes filled with admiration. Maneuvering such a large truck on such a narrow road with such steadiness indicated a seasoned driver. Within 2 minutes, Weilong had deftly parked the truck in the open space and signaled to Zhang Lei that it was clear to pass. "Thank you so much." Zhang Lei quickly nodded in appreciation and turned to dash towards the school bus, eager to drive it over and avoid wasting time. "Wait!" Lin Feng suddenly called out to him. Zhang Lei halted, turning back in confusion. Lin Feng raised a hand towards Weilong, who rummaged through the equipment bag in the passenger seat, producing a black holster and handing it over. Lin Feng accepted it, unzipped the bag, revealing a QSC-92G pistol, equipped with a silencer, and also retrieved 3 sets of 9x19 rounds, one containing 60 bullets, which he stuffed into Zhang Lei's hands. Suddenly, Zhang Lei felt the weight of the firearm. Looking down at the gun and ammunition in his arms, his eyes widened in shock, unable to articulate a response for some time. Finally, he stammered, "Did you rob a police station? How did you come by this?" His astonishment was understandable. Firearm regulations in Huaxia are exceedingly strict, and apart from robbing a police station, Zhang Lei could not conceive of any other source for such weapons. Regardless of where it came from, just take it. Lin Feng gestured towards the school bus. "You are responsible for 18 children, and should you encounter any troublemakers, this will enable you to reason with them." He did not think too deeply about it. In the system's marketplace, the gun and bullets were merely worth the price of a meal of fried rice, not even enough for a soda. In his eyes, they were not particularly valuable. However, in this apocalyptic world, for a teacher willing to risk everything to protect his students, these items could very well be a lifeline. As Lin Feng gazed into the eyes of the 18 children within the vehicle, he felt a profound reluctance to allow them to perish inexplicably in this apocalyptic world. After all, children embody the hope for the future. The mere sum of 9,000 Hafcoins could be regarded as an investment in the nation's future. Zhang Lei tightened his grip on the cold gun handle, involuntarily swallowing hard. He looked up at Lin Feng, his eyes brimming with gratitude, and ultimately refrained from excessive pleasantries, simply uttering 2 weighty words, "Thank you, take care." "You too," Lin Feng nodded. "Stay vigilant on the road. If you encounter a horde of zombies, take a detour. Until fate brings us together again." Until fate brings us together again. Zhang Lei carefully tucked the gun and ammunition into his clothing, adjusting his attire to conceal them, before swiftly turning and boarding the school bus. The engine roared to life, and the vehicle gradually maneuvered past the heavy truck, with the children peering out the windows, waving at Lin Feng and the others. The 2 vehicles passed each other, slowly departing. One road carried faint hope towards the unknown outside the city, while the other, ablaze with ambition, surged forward into a sea of corpses and blood. At the fork in the road lay the essence of the apocalypse. Jean Yin stood by the roadside, waving in response until the school bus receded into the distance, vanishing at the end of the village path. "By the way, aren't you worried that he might misuse that pistol?" In this apocalypse, many people's mindsets tend to change over time, Jean Yin inquired, her curiosity directed at Lin Feng. "That is beyond my control. I am merely betting on his inherent goodness," Lin Feng replied as he and Jean Yin returned to the vehicle. Taking a deep breath, he said, "Let us go. If we delay any longer, nightfall will be upon us." The 4 of them reboard, and the truck turned around, resuming its route to Qingshan Town. The lively atmosphere within the cabin dissipated, and Jean Yin leaned against the window, softly commenting, "That teacher Zhang is truly remarkable. And you were incredibly cool when you gifted him the gun." Lin Feng smiled faintly, choosing not to respond. The heavy truck had not traveled far towards Qingshan town when the scenery along the roadside transformed. The previously clear path became cluttered with private vehicles, haphazardly abandoned. Remnants of a chaotic escape during the outbreak. Lin Feng reduced the speed of the vehicle, slightly adjusting the steering wheel to navigate around an overturned sedan. Jin Yan furrowed her brow, observing the congestion outside. With so many cars obstructing the way, it would be difficult to flee if we encounter a large horde of zombies. No sooner had she spoken than a green armored truck suddenly appeared ahead, halted in the middle of the road, surrounded by a dozen zombies, all snarling at the vehicle. An armored truck? Lin Feng squinted, quickly applying the brakes, bringing the truck to a stop several dozen meters away from the armored vehicle. The group leaned forward to observe. Noticing that the armored truck's doors were ajar, with two guards clad in bulletproof vests standing outside. Their faces were ashen and twisted, clearly transformed into zombies. One of the zombie guards was even clutching a shotgun, his finger resting near the trigger, a remnant of the instinct to wield a firearm that persisted even in death. Chapter 13. Can zombies operate firearms? Is there no regard for the basic laws of nature? It swayed its hands toward the surrounding zombies, its body swaying back and forth, while the sound of a heavy truck approaching captured the attention of the undead. The zombie, once a bank teller, slowly turned its head, swinging its arm violently to the side, just in the direction of the truck where Lin Feng and the others were. In that very motion, the rigid fingers were abruptly pulled by inertia, inadvertently pressing down on the trigger. Bang! A deafening explosion shattered the stillness of the empty road. Get down! The roar of Long Wei coincided almost perfectly with the gunfire. His massive frame surged with astonishing speed. One hand forcefully pressed Lin Feng down into the driver's seat, while the other shielded his neck, bending low with urgency. Lin Feng felt an overwhelming force pinning him down, his ears ringing with the thunderous gunshots followed by the sound of shattering glass. Countless shards rained down on his head and back like hail. In the back seat, Jin Yan and Feng Yi reacted instantly, huddling beneath the seats. Jin Yan's heart raced, nearly leaping from his chest, while Feng Yi instinctively reached for the AKM assault rifle. The echoes of gunfire dissipated into the wilderness, leaving only the eerie moans of the zombies. Trembling, Lin Feng slowly raised his head, only to be met with the sight of the completely shattered windshield and the glass shards scattered across the cabin. He touched the debris that had splattered onto his face, his voice quivering. What the hell? Can zombies actually shoot? Is there no basic law here? Long Wei had straightened up, his gaze sharp as a blade, firmly locking onto the bank teller zombie that continued to swing the shotgun mindlessly, a hint of fear flickering in his eyes. It's not that it can shoot. It merely pulled the trigger by coincidence while flailing its limbs. He paused, adding the most crucial remark. Fortunately, it was just flailing aimlessly. That shot went wide. If it were able to aim, we would be in serious trouble. I was too careless. This post-apocalyptic world is truly perilous. But worse was yet to come. The thunderous blast of the shotgun and the sound of shattering glass seemed to issue a command to the surrounding zombies. Those that had been swaying around the armored truck suddenly turned their heads toward the heavy truck, their ashen faces contorted with rage, growling from deep within their throats. And within the next moment, they charged toward the truck. These zombies moved with alarming speed, some crawling on all fours, others running upright, closing the distance in the blink of an eye. As Feng Yi peeked out, he caught sight of the bank teller zombie beside the armored vehicle, tilting its head, its claw-like hands gripping the shotgun, seemingly puzzled by the noise. His gaze sharpened, and he swiftly seized his silenced AKM, steadying the barrel on the zombie's head. That bank teller still has shells in the shotgun. I must take it out to prevent further complications. No sooner had he spoken than two soft sounds rang out, the silencer muffling the gunfire to an almost inaudible level. Two bullets striking the bank teller zombie precisely at the temples. The creature swayed slightly before collapsing to the ground, the shotgun slipping from its grasp. However, at that moment, the advancing zombies had already reached the front of the truck, a throng of dozens closing in. Arm yourselves. Lin Feng let out a low shout. Swiftly retrieving an AKM from his equipment bag, Weilong and Jin Yan were equally resolute, each grasping their own AKM. Though the car window was shattered, it conveniently formed a window for shooting. Bang, bang, bang. The rapid gunfire erupted instantaneously as the four of them began to unleash a barrage upon the encroaching zombies. After all, the 7.62 by 39mm rounds were only 43 cents each, affordable and durable, rendering them unconcerned about ammunition conservation in this moment. The bullets struck the zombies, some severing limbs, causing the creatures to tumble yet continue crawling forward. Others found their mark in the head, instantly felling the zombies, dark crimson blood splattering onto the ground, quickly pooling into a small puddle. Yet the zombies were undeterred by death, pressing forward amidst the gunfire, with those behind trampling over their fallen companions. Poised to invade the truck's cabin. Jinyan, focus on the left. Do not let them climb aboard. Lin Feng urged his sister as he continued squeezing the trigger. Jinyan nodded, shifting her aim to the left, and with a burst of fire, 3 zombies clinging to the car door collapsed in unison. Weilong displayed remarkable precision, nearly every shot resulting in a headshot. He frequently adjusted his position to support Lin Feng and Jinyan with covering fire. Feng, he remained vigilant, monitoring the front to prevent any straggling zombies from encircling the rear of the truck. The air inside the cabin was thick with the acrid scent of gunpowder mingling with the putrid stench of zombies. The cacophony of gunfire, the zombies' anguished howls, and the sound of bullets striking metal created an atmosphere that quickened the heartbeat. After a full 2 minutes of relentless shooting, the ground was littered with the corpses of zombies. The remaining few, witnessing their comrades fall, hesitated momentarily, yet they did not retreat. Almost done, Lin Feng shouted, swapping out his magazine and resuming the onslaught. After several more seconds, the last zombie was dispatched by Feng with a single shot to the head, crashing heavily to the ground, finally silenced. The 4 paused their shooting, panting heavily as they gazed at the mountain of zombie bodies outside, surrounded by spent shell casings. Momentarily lost for words. After a while, Jinyan wiped the sweat from her forehead and quietly remarked, these zombies are relentless. Fortunately, the ammunition is affordable, or we truly could not endure this. Lin Feng nodded, glancing at the shattered windshield, offering a resigned smile. This journey is anything but smooth. We haven't even reached Qingshan town yet, and we've already encountered so much trouble. Weilong inspected the car window and raised his head, stating, the vehicle cannot proceed in its current state. Without a windshield, we must find a hardware store to fabricate a new one. Lin Feng, upon hearing this, found it reasonable and nodded in agreement. Indeed, traveling without a window is far too perilous. I'll use my phone to navigate and find the nearest hardware store. Jinyan and Feng kept busy, assisting in sweeping the shattered glass from the truck's interior to the outside. Once they had tidied up, Lin Feng held up his phone and announced the direction. Drive forward for 3 kilometers. There's a convenience hardware store, and the navigation indicates it's right by the roadside. Weilong took the driver's seat, starting the truck as the wheels rolled over the zombie corpses, heading towards the hardware store. During this journey, none dared to relax as they had before. Jinyan kept her gaze fixed outside, while Feng gripped his AKM, ever watchful for any impending danger. Before long, the sign of Old Wang's hardware store appeared by the roadside. A few zombies staggered in the street in front of the store, and upon noticing the approaching truck, they immediately shrieked and charged forward. Doctor, let's disembark and clear them out. Swiftly and decisively. Within mere minutes, several zombies were dispatched. With a powerful kick, Weilong flung open the half-closed door of the hardware store. As soon as he stepped inside, a zombie clad in an apron lunged at him. Without a moment's hesitation, Weilong raised his axe and struck with precision, the blade cleaving into the zombie's skull, causing it to collapse lifelessly. Boss, I need to borrow some steel pipes and a welding machine. Chapter 14. M249 Lin Feng and Doctor soon entered, rummaging through the store. In a corner, Doctor discovered a bundle of appropriately sized steel pipes, while Lin Feng struck gold behind the counter, uncovering a nearly new portable welding machine. He plugged it in and tested it. The welding torch functioned perfectly. All set, Lin Feng declared, raising the welding machine and waving it towards the 2 outside. The group swiftly transported the steel pipes and the welding machine back to the truck. Without further ado, Weilong found a sturdy cardboard piece to place beside the seat, grabbing a small hammer to knock away all the sharp glass shards from the window frame. Lin Feng and Jinyan assisted by handing over tools, while Doctor cut the steel pipes to suitable lengths, arranging them in a grid to fit the car window. With preparations complete, Weilong and Doctor each took hold of the welding machine and the steel pipe, commencing the welding process at the front of the vehicle. The bright arc of the welder flared to life, releasing a searing scent as the blue electric arc fused the steel pipes together with unwavering strength. Meanwhile, Lin Feng and Jinyan kept their eyes busy, scanning the items on the shelves: screws, wrenches, iron wires, small motors, measuring tapes, hydraulic pliers, and even several rolls of waterproof tape. Send everything to the Special Operations Department. Let us not waste anything, Lin Feng exclaimed, activating the system's storage panel, deftly sweeping the usable hardware into the panel. Every loose bolt and entire roll of wire was swiftly collected into the warehouse. Even the smallest mosquito is still meat. In no time, they had cleared out nearly half the store. Jinyan leaned in, curious, and asked, Bro, how much do you think all this is worth? Lin Feng smiled and nodded at the panel. Hard to say, but selling in bulk should yield some profit, better than nothing. As Weilong and Doctor arranged the steel pipes in a grid, ready to weld, Lin Feng seized the opportunity to access the recycling interface of the Special Operations Department. Selecting bulk sale. Upon confirmation, the system promptly displayed a notification. Recycled a total of 127 various hardware components, earning 386,000 Hafcoins. Goodness, 386,000. Lin Feng's eyes gleamed with astonishment. I never imagined these scraps would be so valuable. Jin Yin gasped in delight, covering his mouth. So much? We hit the jackpot. After a moment of contemplation, Lin Feng replied, perfect, we can purchase a few light machine guns. They might come in handy when we enter Qingshan Town. With that, he accessed the system's trading hall, his fingers gliding swiftly across the screen until he quickly pinpointed his target. Due to the exceptional craftsmanship of the Saeed special weapon, the price of the M249 is remarkably high. Each unit costs a mere 60,000 Hafcoins, while the rail-mounted sight is only 16,000. Nearly half the price of other machine guns, and it employs first-grade ammunition. Without hesitation, he placed an order for 4 units, simultaneously equipping them with rail foregrips, ensuring that each of the 4 of them would have one. Moreover, he muttered to himself, searching for the M7 practical silencer to outfit each firearm. This accessory not only suppresses gunfire, thereby minimizing the attraction of excessive zombies, but also provides substantial recoil compensation, and most importantly, it is affordable at just 24,000. Next on his list was the K1 Elite Angled Grip, which reduces horizontal recoil, followed by the M249 Rhino Long Barrel, enhancing range and stability. Finally, he fitted them with skeletal sniper stocks to expedite handling. And let's not forget the bipods. Lin Feng slapped his forehead. While Weilong and Feng have the stamina to wield the machine guns without issue, neither Jin Yin nor I possess such strength. He then spent additional Hafcoins to equip each gun with bipods, finally completing the modifications. Brother, Jin Yin remarked, observing the rapidly diminishing balance in his account. Modifying just one costs 270,000. That's over 1 million for 4. There's no choice. In a biochemical scenario, ammunition capacity and stability are paramount. Lin Feng explained, his gaze shifting to the ammunition section. With a steely resolve, he placed an order for over 40,000 rounds of first-grade 556 ammunition, totaling a staggering 140,000 Hafcoins. He couldn't help but click his tongue at the sight of his account balance plummeting. I must find a way to earn more. Otherwise, my Hafcoins will dwindle before I can indulge. Fortunately, the system is considerate, as the purchased bullets are automatically loaded into magazines, with each magazine containing 100 rounds. Thus, over 40,000 rounds seamlessly transformed into 400 fully loaded magazines. Otherwise, loading them individually would take until next year. Lin Feng retrieved the modified M249S and magazines from the system warehouse, stacking them in the truck bed. Upon completion of welding the windows, Weilong and Feng turned around, their eyes filled with newfound confidence. After approximately half an hour, a square mesh window was completed, perfectly fitting the previous windshield's location. Weilong tapped the grid, producing a crisp sound, and nodded in satisfaction. It's done, although it somewhat obstructs visibility. Its sturdiness ensures we can reach Qingshan Town without issue. Excellent. Let us hasten our departure and aim to arrive at the outskirts of Qingshan Town before darkness falls. We shall rest for the night and set out at dawn. His gaze swept across his 3 companions, his tone resolute. We will enter the city and gather the gold bricks. This endeavor truly excites me. Feng adjusted his goggles. The 4 of them climbed back into the truck, which roared to life once more. With the mesh window now in place, they felt a sense of security as they continued their journey toward Qingshan Town. As the heavy-duty truck advanced, they finally spotted the sign for Qingshan Town. The sun hung low in the western sky, indicating it was just after 4 in the afternoon. Lin Feng glanced at his phone and murmured, in 2 hours, it will be dark. Given the uncertainty of the town's situation, entering in the dark would be perilous. We should find a place to set up camp and wait for daylight before proceeding. Weilong pressed the brake and stopped the vehicle by the roadside to check the navigation. Ahead lay a gas station, spacious enough to serve as a temporary camp with a little tidying up. The group drove over, discovering only 2 swaying zombies inside the gas station. Weilong descended with his black sea axe and dispatched them in less than half a minute. Lin Feng and Jin Yin unloaded the folding tents from the trunk, while Feng circled the gas station with his AKM. Confirming there were no hidden zombies before returning with a nod. Safe, there are no zombie nests nearby. We can take turns keeping watch tonight. Commander, should we gather some fuel? Let us wait until tomorrow after we finish with the bank. Extracting fuel is a significant endeavor. It's best to conserve our energy tonight. We can return for the fuel when we leave. Indeed, as they set up the tents, the sun dipped lower and the wind began to cool. Jin Yin rummaged through the vehicle and produced several buckets of instant noodles and bottled water, skillfully setting up a small pot to boil water. The warmth of the food began to dispel the chill of twilight. At that moment, as Feng prepared his noodles, he inquired, "Commander, when we enter the town tomorrow, should we consider the hospital as a potential target? We might find respiratory devices like ventilators and ECMO machines. Complete medical supplies could be exchanged for a considerable amount of Hafcoins at the Special Operations Office." Lin Feng paused, tearing open the packaging of the instant noodles, and replied thoughtfully as he squeezed the seasoning packet into the noodle block. "The items in the system likely differ from reality. The medical equipment in the game is conceptualized, whereas the devices in rural hospitals, even if intact, might not hold the expected value at the Special Operations Office. Hospitals are typically disaster zones, and given the abundance of zombies in rural towns, the risk is too high. It would only be worth a glance if it happens to be on our way, otherwise, it's not worth the detour." Feng nodded in acceptance of this assessment. Chapter 15. Zombie on a leash. Attacked at midnight. Weilong leaned against the tent pole, took a sip of bottled water, and suddenly furrowed his brow, asking, "What do you think the military is like now?" He paused, confusion lacing his voice. Zombies are, after all, carbon-based life forms, flesh and blood. If the military were to mobilize, with aircraft, tanks, and heavy firepower, clearing them shouldn't be too difficult. Yet, how is it that we hear no signs of rescue if there are troops stationed nearby? Moreover, after watching numerous videos today, I haven't encountered any relevant information. As his words hung in the air, a hush fell over the surroundings of the tent. Lin Feng shrugged helplessly. Who knows? But consider this, with a population of 1.4 billion in China, from Dawn University to our village, and through the accounts of Zhang Lei and his students escaping, we've seen far more zombies than living people along the way. Assuming a best-case scenario where only 70 have mutated, that's nearly 1 billion zombies. This doesn't even factor in the potential chaos and mutations within the military, nor their need to stabilize their ranks and allocate strategic resources. In the short term, expecting large-scale rescue seems unrealistic, especially since today marks merely the first day of the apocalypse. The formal restoration will require approximately 23 days, and the remaining soldiers are uncertain in number. 70%? The medic raised an eyebrow. This mutation rate exceeds my initial estimation by a considerable margin. I had anticipated a maximum of half. Not merely half. Jean Yin tightened her embrace around her knees, her voice muffled and tinged with despondency. The places we traversed had far more corpses than living souls, and let us not forget the animals. Do you recall that mutated dog in the village? It was far more ferocious than a typical zombie. Who knows what other creatures have undergone transformation? Do you think the military in this nation will, like the films I once watched, devolve into warlord factions? At this moment, the medic interjected. It won't happen. Just then, Lin Feng, Weilong, and Jean Yin spoke in unison. The medic was taken aback. Do you have such unwavering faith in them? You do not understand, Lin Feng, Weilong, and Jean Yin replied in unison. Lin Feng had consumed countless narratives set in apocalyptic realms, whether in novels or films, where the collapse of order and the military's descent into warlordism were not uncommon themes. If the story unfolded in distant lands on the other side of Blue Star, he might find it plausible. Yet here, on this soil where he was born, an instinctual trust resided deep within him. Those narratives might hold water elsewhere. But Lin Feng chose to believe, unconditionally, in the People's Army. It was different. Individual soldiers, before enlistment, might have been delinquents, underachieving youths, or amiable youngsters, hailing from all corners of the earth with diverse pasts. However, when they coalesce, donning their uniforms, they transcend their individuality. They become the armed force of the people, those who would not dismantle homes in the face of freezing temperatures, nor plunder in times of hunger. They are the ones who, when disaster strikes, boldly declare, "I shall take the lead." They are an organization deserving of the people's unwavering trust. As long as this banner remains aloft, as long as the army stands united, their essence is rooted in the people. Throughout history, in every calamity, have they not placed their lives on the line for us? This deeply ingrained belief will not easily waver in the face of an apocalypse. Some may argue that Lin Feng is overly naive. Yet he still chooses to believe that they are, at this very moment, somewhere enduring unimaginable sacrifices to uphold the front lines, executing orders, and striving to gather survivors. Their absence signifies that the challenges they face may be 100-fold more brutal than the ruins before them. It is essential to recognize that zombies move with astonishing speed, and the soldiers, possessing superior physicality, are at a heightened risk. Once transformed, these soldiers-turned zombies may embody speed, strength, and the instinctual discipline of their former selves, potentially surpassing any adversary they have ever encountered in terror. Inside the truck, Jean Yin curled up in her sleeping bag, her head gently resting against Lin Feng's arm, her breathing gradually becoming steady. Exhausted from battling zombies and transporting supplies throughout the day, she murmured in her sleep, "Mother, please don't go." Lin Feng gently patted her hand, his eyes half closed, not entirely lost to slumber, as his ears remained attuned to the sounds outside. After all, it was the night of an apocalypse, and vigilance was paramount. Not far away, the bee doctor leaned against the cold tire of a truck, an M249 light machine gun resting upon his lap. His eyelids drooped, appearing to succumb to sleep. Yet the slight tremor of his eyelashes revealed that his nerves were far from relaxed. The most alert of all was the dragon, perched atop the vehicle, M249 at his side, his gaze sweeping repeatedly across the desolate landscape swallowed by darkness. However, danger lurked beyond his line of sight. A few kilometers away, within the shadows of the field ridge, two eerie figures were on the move. Trailing behind was a zombie clad in tattered jacket, gripping a dog leash. The other end ominously attached to the neck of a zombie dog. The undead canine crouched low, its decaying nose pressed against the ground, fervently twitching as it hungrily sought the faintest trace of the living carried by the wind. A low growl rumbled from its throat, soft yet potent, serving as a silent rallying call. The previously aimless zombies froze in unison, then slowly began to converge towards the direction of the zombie dog. 1, 2, 5, 6 before long. A small horde amassed, silently trailing their lead dog. The zombie dog emitted another low growl, this time clearly directed towards the gas station. The leashed zombie followed, numbly tethered. Behind them loomed the gathering horde, resembling a creeping tail slithering through the darkness, inching closer to the makeshift camp along the field ridge. As the zombie throng drew nearer, faint growls wafted through the air, quiet, yet perceptible to the dragon. It was the zombie dog. He instantly straightened, shouting, "Enemy attack. All hands on alert." Almost as soon as his voice echoed, Lin Feng's eyes snapped open inside the truck's cabin. Jin Yen rubbed his eyes and sat up, reaching for the M249 beside him. "We can't shoot here, dragon. Drive away from the gas station," Lin Feng decisively concluded. "We have no idea how many zombies there are. Using firearms could endanger us all. The gas station is too perilous. A single burst of gunfire could spell our doom." The bee doctor had already grabbed his weapon and rushed to the passenger seat, while the dragon slid down from the roof and into the driver's seat, turning the key as soon as he settled in. The heavy truck's engine roared to life, its headlights slicing through the darkness as the tires ground against the terrain. Hastily departing the gas station and speeding down the road they had arrived on. Yet, the treacherous night roads posed their greatest challenge. The surface was riddled with potholes. Visibility was severely compromised, and obstructive steel netting further hindered their sight, forcing the dragon to reduce speed. Meanwhile, the zombies behind them moved with a speed that was alarmingly quicker than during daylight. The group, aided by flashlights, caught sight of a zombie leading a dog, sprinting ahead, while countless others surged in pursuit. They howled, forming a relentless wave of darkness that pursued them with increasing urgency, the distance closing swiftly. "Damn it! Why are the zombies running faster at night?" Weilong slammed the steering wheel, glancing into the rearview mirror to see the relentless horde gaining on them. Chapter 16. Tell that to my great fortune. They are too fast. They're about to catch up. It feels as if they're running even faster. Jin Yen cursed at the zombies behind. On top of the container. Establish a firing point. "Hurry up," Lin Feng shouted, without a moment's hesitation. Slinging the M249 onto his back, then pushed open the car window, reaching out to grasp the top of the container, and was the first to climb up. The doctor followed closely, swiftly securing a position. "Give me your hand." Lin Feng extended his hand towards Jin Yen below. Jin Yen, gazing at the rapidly receding ground beneath her, fought against dizziness, gritting her teeth as she grasped Lin Feng's hand, pulled up by a sudden force. Her knees struck heavily against the cold container wall, yet at that moment, she felt no pain. On the top of the container, it seemed like another world, cold, smooth, and completely exposed. Each jolt of the truck brought intense shaking. "Get down. Set your guns. Let them experience what a carbon-based life-form suppressor feels like," Lin Feng roared, pressing his body tightly against the icy surface to reduce wind resistance and movement, stabilizing the M249's bipod. The doctor and Jin Yen immediately crouched low. 3 machine guns lined up along the back of the truck, their dark muzzles aimed at the surging tide of death behind them. Bang, 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 bang. Almost simultaneously, the 3 M249s unleashed a deadly barrage of fire. The deep roar instantly drowned out the wind and engine noise, becoming the sole melody of this dark wilderness. 3 fiery chains lashed violently into the densest throng of zombies. The foremost zombies were torn apart as if thrown into a meat grinder, shredded by the furious stream of bullets. Limbs and severed arms mixed with black blood exploded in the air. falling like a horrific rain of flesh and blood under the crimson glow of the truck's taillights. The doctor remained expressionless, each short burst of fire accurately shattering a zombie's skull, transforming into a highly efficient killing machine. Lin Feng, with his finger firmly on the trigger, unleashed a frenzied suppressive fire that cleaved through groups of zombies, sending them tumbling. Initially, Jin Yin was overwhelmed by the massive recoil, her shoulder aching and bullets slightly erratic. But the instinct for survival and the deafening gunfire around her ignited the fierce blood within her. She screamed, not from fear, but as a release. Channeling all her strength into the gunstock, her fingers gripping the trigger tightly, her fiery barrage effectively slicing into the flank of the zombie tide. Empty shells erupted like popcorn from the ejection ports of the 3 machine guns, clattering against the top of the container, bouncing, rolling, the scorching brass even burning their skin. Yet no one cared. The acrid smell of gunpowder was overwhelmingly pungent, and the flames spewing from the gun barrels illuminated the frenzied faces of the 3. The truck sped recklessly along the bumpy night road, with 3 individuals clinging desperately to the top of the rapidly retreating container. Braving the ferocious winds capable of sweeping a person away, unleashing a torrent of fury with their roaring machine guns into the endless darkness behind them. The metallic storm conjured by the bullets was their sole reliance, the most resounding declaration they could muster against this wretched apocalypse. Just as the truck veered onto a dirt road, momentarily escaping the horde of corpses, a sigh of relief escaped the occupants. Moo! A distorted, hoarse, yet unmistakably bovine cry echoed from the darkness ahead. Following closely were more aggressive growls and the thunderous sound of hooves. Something was charging towards them. The driver, Weilong, issued a sharp warning. The headlights pierced the darkness, revealing a chilling sight. A dozen grotesque, swollen creatures with crimson eyes surged forth from the wilderness on either side of the narrow path, blocking the road completely. Clearly, they had been drawn by the previous cacophony of gunfire and the truck's roaring engine. Among them were mutated cattle with bulging muscles, sheep with drooling mouths and patchy fur revealing purplish skin, and even a few astonishingly swift mutated dogs mixed in. Their intent was unmistakable. This colossal, noisy steel beast that exuded the scent of food. They were mutated animals. They had barricaded the road. Jin Yin felt a sense of numbness. Having just escaped the wolf's den, they had now stumbled into the tiger's lair. Inside the driver's cabin, Weilong faced the oncoming swarm of mutated beasts with unshakable composure. Devoid of any panic, rather than slowing down, he slammed the accelerator to the floor. Tell that to my mighty truck. The enormous diesel engine of the heavy truck roared like a primordial beast, the tachometer soaring instantly. The massive front of the vehicle seemed infused with a raging spirit. Accelerating toward the beastly horde head-on. Hold on tight. Weilong's voice thundered. The trio atop the container clutched any secure point they could find, lowering their bodies. Crush. Pure. Unadulterated force. In the next moment, the collision of steel and flesh erupted with a deafening explosion. Bam. Crack. Splatter. The over 10-ton steel behemoth, in an absolute display of dominance, ruthlessly crushed into the heart of the beastly throng. The first mutated sheep, caught off guard, did not even have time to emit a mournful cry before it was transformed into a puddle of flesh beneath the heavy tires. Next came a gigantic mutated bull, lowering its head in a futile attempt to charge the truck with its horns. Yet, like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, both it and its massive form appeared somewhat ridiculous. You may be a beef cow, but I am an iron bull. I shall not yield to your might. Go ahead and crash into your destiny. Roar. With a muffled thud, its colossal body was sent flying. The sound of shattering bones ringing clear as it crashed heavily onto the roadside, motionless thereafter. The bee doctor remained undeterred. As he unleashed a torrent of fire from the M249 in his hands, accurately targeting the swift mutant canines attempting to leap onto the vehicle from the side. The bullets transformed them into a sieve mid-air, their mangled bodies plummeting to the ground, soon to be ruthlessly crushed again by the truck's tires. Meanwhile, Lin Feng and Jin Yin lacked the composure and skill of the bee doctor. They lay sprawled on the truck's roof, relentlessly suppressing the zombies that surged from behind. The entire truck seemed to traverse a rugged road paved with flesh and bone, the violent jolts threatening to displace their very innards. The windshield in front of the vehicle were instantly coated with viscous black blood and shattered flesh, while Weilong, smeared in gore, found solace in his full set of goggles, merely wiping them clean, which only rendered his vision more obscured. This was unequivocally a lopsided massacre. In the face of the truck's immense mass and power, these mutated, fleshy forms appeared alarmingly fragile. In a mere span of several seconds, the heavy truck charged forth like a bloodied war deity, breaking free from the encirclement of the mutated beasts. Behind it lay a desolate path strewn with carnage and a few unfortunate, injured mutants staggering and wailing in despair. The truck maintained its speed, racing along the dirt road. At the forefront, the trio gasped for breath, inhaling the nauseatingly thick stench of blood and gunpowder in the air, while observing the splattered gore on each other's faces. All sharing a profound sense of exhaustion from their narrow escape. The gunfire ceased, the roars of beasts quieted, leaving only the engine's roar and the tires grinding against the road. An eerie silence enveloped the scene. Jin Yin gazed at the hellish landscape behind them, murmuring, We survived. Lin Feng interrupted her, inspecting the barrel of his weapon, now too hot to touch. The bee doctor silently began to replace the last ammunition box, urging, We must leave quickly. Each of them understood that the intense stench of blood from the recent brutal onslaught, in the stillness of the night in this desolate wilderness, stood out like the most conspicuous lighthouse. It was only a matter of time before the area would be overrun by zombies. Chapter 17. Escape. The truck sped along the bumpy dirt road, temporarily leaving the tide of corpses and mutant beasts behind. Weilong gripped the steering wheel tightly, his peripheral vision catching a glimpse of the driver's side door, splattered with the thick, dark blood of zombies and the remains of mutant creatures. The night breeze rushed through the shattered front grille, carrying with it an overwhelmingly nauseating, acrid stench. He shouted towards the partition separating the cab from the cargo area. Commander, is there a small supermarket or a location with an external water source nearby? Lin Feng, crouched at the rear of the vehicle, was in the midst of replacing the emptied M249 with a heavy new ammunition box. Upon hearing, he straightened up against the wind, responding loudly, What's wrong? The truck's filthy. Weilong's voice broke through the wind in fragmented bursts. The cargo area, the tires, it's all blood and pieces of flesh. The smell is too intense. The zombies tonight feel different. I sense they might have a sense of smell. This scent is a living target. It must be washed away. As soon as he finished speaking, Jin Yin beside him could not help but retch. In the earlier moments of heightened tension and adrenaline, she had entirely overlooked the foul stench. Now, as she relaxed slightly, the pervasive odor immediately invaded her senses. She quickly covered her mouth and nose with her hands, murmuring in agreement, Brother, it truly reeks. I can hardly bear it. Lin Feng also swiftly recognized the gravity of the situation. He hastily retrieved his phone, his fingers gliding rapidly across the map in search. Found it. He soon raised his head and exclaimed, About 2 kilometers ahead, on the right side of the road, there is a Huiman convenience store. The navigation indicates it operates 24 hours. A flicker of hope ignited in Weilong's eyes, but his rationality quickly suppressed the impulse. He took a deep breath of the nauseating air, forcing himself to calm down, and resolutely dismissed the notion of heading there immediately. Note the location. We shall go there first thing in the morning. It's too perilous at night. The zombies react abnormally fast. Venturing into such an enclosed space in the dark could lead to us being ensnared by a horde of zombies. The bee doctor, who had just lowered his weapon, immediately concurred. Weilong's assessment is correct. Visibility is severely limited at night, and the internal structure of the supermarket is complex. Advancing blindly poses an extreme tactical risk. Lin Feng pondered for a moment and grasped the implications. He decisively tucked his phone back into his pocket. Understood. Then our first task tomorrow will be to wash the vehicle. The heavy truck momentarily escaped the entanglement of the zombie tide and mutated beasts amidst the jostling. Yet the pungent stench of blood clung to the vehicle like a malignant shadow, hanging over everyone's hearts like the sword of Damocles. As the truck progressed through the night, the foul blood smeared across the rear of the cargo area was continuously whipped by the night breeze, emitting a repugnant and acrid odor that wafted for considerable distances. Indeed, it was not long before rustling erupted from the nearby woods, and suddenly, 3 filthy, fur-covered mutated dogs, their eyes glowing red, sprang forth. Sniffing the air, they barked furiously and pursued the moving source of blood. Fortunately, they had distanced themselves from residential areas and had not stirred a large horde of beasts. Bang! Bang! The bee doctor calmly crouched by the edge of the truck, the barrel of his M249 slightly elevated, delivering 2 precise bursts that felled the 2 leading mutated dogs. He swiftly redirected his aim, and the third dog succumbed to a few more shots. Lin Feng let out a sigh of relief, wiping the cold sweat from his brow. Finally, some peace. If that stench continued to linger, who knows what other horrors it might attract. Gripping the steering wheel tightly, Weilong's gaze was sharp as he scanned the dark outline ahead. Suddenly speaking up, Commander, just ahead is the village path where we encountered Zhang Lei last time. It's remote. Shall we stop there to rest for a moment? Lin Feng silently agreed. I concur. All right then. With that, he sharply turned the steering wheel, guiding the heavy truck onto the narrow path. After driving a short distance, they came to a gradual halt, surrounded by open fields, a fleeting tranquility permeating the stillness. However, as the door swung open, The noxious amalgamation of odors permeated the air. As Jin Yin leaped from the vehicle, her footing faltered, and she was immediately assailed by a nauseating odor that churned her stomach. Coupled with the lingering dizziness from the bumpy ride, she instinctively leaned against the car door and retched violently. Once she had purged her stomach, her complexion turned pale, and she weakly grasped Lin Feng's arm. "Brother, this is utterly repulsive." Lin Feng patted her back, struggling to suppress his own queasiness as he forced down the bile rising in his throat. "Bear with it, you'll feel better after throwing up. If we can hold on until dawn and locate a supermarket, we can wash the vehicle thoroughly with water." Leaning against the car door, Lin Feng dozed off briefly, only to be roused by the dim light. He rubbed his heavy eyelids, still buzzing with fatigue from the night shift he had exchanged with Weilong, the unease in his mind refusing to dissipate. "Commander, it's time to depart. The sooner we leave, the sooner we return," Weilong rasped, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. Jin Yin crawled out of the vehicle, stifling a large yawn, her hair tousled and sticking out in disarray. "Finally, it's dawn. Nighttime is truly unbearable." Silently, Feng Yi handed over the remaining bottle of mineral water from the previous night. The group briefly rinsed their mouths and munched on compressed biscuits as a makeshift breakfast before promptly returning to their posts. The heavy truck roared to life again, navigating along the village road toward the Huimin convenience store, the navigation indicating a mere 4 to 5 kilometers, a journey of just a few minutes. Upon reaching the store's entrance, they found the roller shutter only partially lowered, revealing a cluttered array of shelves within. A handful of zombies aimlessly wandered at the entrance, but upon hearing the truck's approach, they immediately lunged forward with gnarled claws. Compared to the previous night, their speed remained swift, yet they lacked the frenzied ferocity, appearing considerably sluggish. "Just these few, let us finish them quickly," Weilong declared as he hefted the M249 and jumped from the vehicle, closely followed by Feng Yi. With a few precise shots, the two foremost zombies fell lifelessly to the ground. Within 2 minutes, the threat at the entrance was thoroughly neutralized. "I will search for cleaning supplies," Feng Yi announced. "Understood," Weilong replied, crouching as he entered the store. Moments later, he emerged carrying 2 large bottles of dishwashing liquid and an entire box of white vinegar. The acetic acid in the vinegar was excellent for neutralizing odors, and combined with the dishwashing liquid, it would effectively eliminate bloodstains. Feng Yi found a red plastic bucket and filled it with water from the truck's tank, pouring in the vinegar in a measured ratio based on experience. After shaking it to mix, he handed it to Weilong. The 2 men procured a wooden stool to elevate their efforts. Weilong dipped a cloth into the diluted vinegar solution and began scrubbing vigorously from the area of the truck bed most stained with blood. The dark, semi-dried blood gradually faded under his persistent efforts, the pungent metallic scent being overpowered by the sharp odor of vinegar. Feng Yi held the bucket, rinsing away the blood and foam that had been wiped off. The white foam mixed with the dishwashing liquid streamed down the walls of the truck, and soon, the entire vehicle appeared to be cloaked in a layer of frothy white. While the 2 men focused on their cleaning task, Lin Feng and Jin Yin had already ventured deep into the store to scavenge for supplies. The shelves still held a considerable amount of goods, and Lin Feng, disregarding the specifics, began hastily gathering items by the boxful for the System S storage. Jin Yin meticulously gathered toothpaste, toothbrushes, toilet paper, and sanitary napkins, which were of paramount importance to her. As Weilong and Feng Yi washed away the last traces of blood from the vehicle, Lin Feng and his companion had nearly evacuated all valuable supplies from the supermarket. The nauseating stench of blood that once permeated the truck had been completely replaced by a faint aroma of white vinegar. While not particularly pleasant, it was at least no longer revolting. Weilong circled the now considerably cleaner vehicle, contentedly patting the door. "All right, the odor has been mostly eliminated." Lin Feng nodded, casting his gaze towards the direction of Qingshan town, his tone resolute. "Excellent. It is still early. Today's objective remains unchanged. We will enter Qingshan town and retrieve all the gold we can." "Yes, Commander," Weilong and Feng Yi replied in unison, their fighting spirit rekindled. Chapter 18. The wall has been breached. The heavy truck ascended a gentle slope along a dirt road, and Lin Feng pressed the brakes. The elevated terrain provided a vantage point that allowed them to see the main thoroughfare of Qingshan town in its entirety. Peering out the window, Lin Feng's brow furrowed instantly. Good heavens, the density. In the soft light of dawn, the town's principal asphalt road was teeming with zombies. The densely packed black figures nearly covered the roadway, extending as far as the eye could see. Jin Yin leaned in for a glance and gasped, retreating in alarm. "If we drive in through the main road, our vehicle will be instantly overwhelmed." Weilong had already silently climbed to the roof of the truck, scanning the entire town with binoculars. After a moment, he pinpointed a target, his finger steady as he indicated the center of the town. "Do you see that 3-story old building?" That is the target. It is easy to identify. Lin Feng immediately retrieved his phone, pulling up an offline map for comparison. Target confirmed, approximately 2 kilometers in a straight line from our current position. However, how do we get there? The main road is a death trap. Driving this heavy truck in would be suicide. Feng leaned against the door of the truck. Abandon the vehicle and proceed on foot, utilizing alleys to maneuver while prioritizing stealth. If necessary, we can take refuge in the building. After all, there is a special operations team, so we need not worry about ammunition. Agreed. The plan was swiftly established. Weilong carefully backed the heavy truck into a dense thicket. Conducting a makeshift camouflage, the 4 of them inspected their equipment, loading bullets and tightening suppressors, and then, like phantoms, they silently entered the town from its edge. The alley was exceedingly narrow, barely allowing 2 people to walk side by side, but fortunately, it was devoid of zombies. This alley is absurdly narrow, Jin Yin whispered. Just as they turned a sharp corner, an unexpected turn of events occurred. 3 ragged zombies suddenly lunged from the other side of the corner, targeting Weilong at the front of the group. Puff, puff, puff. Weilong's reaction was lightning fast. He raised his weapon, aimed, and fired in one fluid motion. The suppressed light machine gun emitted merely 3 muted sounds. 3 bullets accurately pierced the foreheads of the zombies, who fell to the ground without a sound. Lin Feng and the bee doctor followed closely behind, their silence a testament to their unspoken vigilance. As they progressed, they encountered a handful of wandering zombies, all of which were calmly dispatched at close range by Weilong and the bee doctor using their silenced weapons. After approximately 20 minutes of tense and oppressive silence, they emerged into a clearing at the end of an alley. Before them stood a somewhat antiquated 3-story building, the sign of the Qingshan Town Credit Union prominently displayed. They had finally arrived. The group retreated behind a low wall at the alley's corner, as Weilong pulled out a magnetic bomb, gesturing. I'll attach the bomb to the vault's rear wall and set a 3-minute countdown. We'll retreat 50 meters away. Suddenly, the bee doctor interjected. Detonating the wall will create too much noise. There are already numerous zombies in the town. If we blow it up, they will all rush over here. And we won't even have time to enter. Lin Feng nodded in agreement. Should we create some noise to draw them away? Jin Yin also nodded. Recalling the density of zombies on the main road, if they all converged, even the best weapons would be futile. The bee doctor glanced towards the alley's entrance and lowered his voice. Is it possible to purchase a medical drone from the system? It doesn't have to be sophisticated, just capable of carrying something. We could also buy some military-grade explosives and have the drone deliver them to the eastern edge of the town for detonation. The noise should draw away most of the zombies, leaving only a few stragglers for us to handle. Brilliant. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. This tactic of drawing the tiger from its den was precisely to his liking. He immediately accessed the system panel, his fingers swiftly navigating until he found what he sought. A medical drone for 30 to 40,000 Hafcoins, and military explosives for 120,000. The prices were quite reasonable. Without hesitation, he confirmed the purchase. As soon as he clicked to finalize, a neatly folded drone and a hefty yellow explosives package appeared in the warehouse. I'll take charge of the drone, Weilong said, quickly unfolding and assembling it. Pressing the power button, the 4 propellers began to spin silently, producing minimal noise. Lin Feng secured the explosives package to the drone's hook and meticulously calibrated the remote detonator. The drone ascended quietly, tracing the alley's path as it deftly flew towards the eastern edge of the town. The group crouched behind the low wall, their eyes fixed on the diminishing speck of light. Estimating they were far enough away, Weilong decisively pressed the detonator. Boom! A deep, thunderous roar echoed from afar. The sound immense even at a distance, accompanied by a plume of black smoke rising into the sky. The effect was immediate. The dense horde of zombies on the main road momentarily hesitated, then, as though drawn by an unseen force, surged wildly toward the source of the explosion. The sight was overwhelming, sending chills down the spines of those who witnessed it. After observing for a moment, the bee doctor's tone became considerably lighter. Most have been lured away. Only a few dozen remain nearby, posing no significant threat. This is manageable. Let us proceed to the bank. Lin Feng suddenly fixated on the bank's main entrance, murmuring to himself. In truth, the main entrance is unobstructed and can be accessed. Blasting the outer walls would merely grant the zombies 2 additional points of entry. Combined with the main door, the defensive pressure would be immense. Their gazes converged upon the bank's front door. Entering through here and securing a single point of access would undoubtedly be a far more judicious strategy. The group crouched low as they approached the bank's entrance, unexpectedly discovering that the glass door was merely ajar. With the back of his foot, Weilong gently nudged it open, and a flood of bright light spilled forth. The bank lobby was well lit. Had it not been for the darkening pool of blood on the floor and scattered documents, the environment would have been quite pleasant. 7 or 8 zombies clad in shirts or security uniforms were immediately roused, lunging at them with outstretched claws. Bang, bang, bang. Weilong and Feng raised their guns almost simultaneously. The suppressed firearms emitted only a soft sound. The bullets accurately penetrated the zombies' foreheads, causing them to collapse one after another. Safe. Feng signaled succinctly. The four swiftly filed inside. Lin Feng and Jin Yin collaboratively shut the heavy door, pushing the solid metal reception desk against the doorknob to secure it. Time is of the essence. Lin Feng spoke rapidly. Weilong, prepare to detonate the vault. Feng scout for an escape route. Just as Weilong retrieved the magnetic bomb, Lin Feng abruptly raised his hand. Wait. The zombies drawn away by the drone may not have gone far. Once this bomb goes off, they will undoubtedly return. As he spoke, he swiftly tapped on the system panel. Deploy an additional contingency plan. With a few deft movements, he summoned a folding drone and a yellow explosives pack into the warehouse. Weilong, in seamless coordination, took the items, assembling and adjusting them in a matter of moments, placing them at the ready. Astute, Feng remarked, deftly climbing to the second floor to observe the movements of the horde through the window. Moments later, he rushed downstairs, visibly excited. Most of the zombies have been lured to the outskirts of the town. Now is the moment. Excellent. Weilong sprang toward the imposing metal door of the vault, pressing the magnetic bomb against the lock's core and setting the countdown. 10 seconds. Find cover. We are about to breach. The group quickly concealed themselves behind the sturdy bank counter, just managing to cover their ears. Boom. A tremendous explosion erupted within the confined space. The entire bank lobby trembled, with shards of light fixtures and dust cascading down. The thick outer wall of the vault was blasted open, revealing a gaping breach. Almost simultaneously with the detonation, the zombies, previously drawn away by the drone's explosion, returned like sharks detecting blood, converging on the bank from all directions. They have returned. In vast numbers. Feng stationed at the window, maintained his composure but had already readied his M249, his finger poised on the trigger. Chapter 19. Retreat. Weilong had already transformed into a fleeting shadow, dashing forward into the smoke-filled vault without a backward glance. Inside, a row of safes stood resolutely before him. Jackpot. With a low growl, Weilong charged forward, immediately commencing the intricate task of deciphering the safe's combination. As the safes were successively unlocked, the gleaming gold bars reflected such brilliance that they nearly blinded him. In a swift motion, Weilong hastily swept the bars into his backpack, the clinking of metal resonating like a melodious symphony. They had returned, and in great numbers. The voice of the bee doctor, stationed by the window, remained composed. Yet he had already raised the M249, his finger poised delicately on the trigger. Another drone. Lin Feng shouted. Without hesitation, the bee doctor maneuvered the backup drone, sending it soaring out of the window and ascending to its zenith, racing towards the outskirts of the town, away from the bank. Bang. Then came the distant sound of a third explosion. This time, the horde outside visibly fragmented. A portion of the intellectually deficient zombies, predictably drawn by the noise, turned to rush toward the source of the explosion. However, a greater number, particularly those that had surged close to the bank, paid no heed to the commotion in the distance. Their blood-red eyes fixated intently on the bank, they lunged violently at the doors and windows. Bang, bang, crash. The sound of shattering glass and violent impacts erupted as Lin Feng steadied the M249 at the vault entrance. Bee Doctor, Jin Yin, establish a defensive line with me. Weilong, take as much as you can. We will buy you time. With a resounding crash, the bank's glass doors ultimately succumbed to the relentless assault of the horde, collapsing in a cacophony of splintering glass. The shards scattered like hail, soon followed by grotesque, decaying faces and gnarled, withered arms surging through the breach like a torrent unleashed. Open fire. Lin Feng's command rang out almost simultaneously with the shattering glass. 3 M249 light machine guns unleashed torrents of searing fire. The deep, continuous roar filled the entire bank hall, drowning out the zombies' wails. The true metal storm had commenced. The 5.56mm rounds, propelled by tremendous kinetic energy, effortlessly tore through their decaying forms. Arms were blasted away, skulls exploded like ripe melons, and dark blood along with shredded flesh splattered backward, instantaneously transforming the entrance into a hellish tableau. Lin Feng bellowed, the stock firmly pressed against his shoulder, relishing the reassuring recoil. His barrage covered the central area of the entrance. To his right, the bee doctor maintained his remarkable calm, targeting those zombies attempting to squeeze in from the edges. Each shot finding a head. Jin Yin, positioned to Lin Feng's left, unleashed a formidable onslaught that was sufficient to shred any creature daring to breach from her side. The zombies pressed forward, ignorant and unfeeling, trampling over the shattered corpses of their comrades as they advanced. What awaited them was an unending torrent of metal. The bullets, like the scythe of death, harvested them in waves, obliterating their ranks. Empty casings quickly formed a thick, golden carpet at the feet of the trio. Reload. Lin Feng was the first to empty the ammunition belt. With a fierce shout, he crouched down swiftly, deftly removing the empty box and retrieving a heavy, fully loaded one from his feet. Almost simultaneously, Feng Yi and Jin Yin subtly adjusted their shooting angles, crossfire instantly enveloping his defensive zone, leaving the zombies no opportunity to breach their line. With a decisive click, Lin Feng forcefully closed the bolt cover and sprang to his feet. The roaring flames of gunfire harmonized once more. Jin Yin followed suit. I'm out of bullets. Crouch. Reload. Without a glance, Lin Feng slightly adjusted his aim, and together with Feng Yi, they swiftly cleared the zombies before her. Jin Yin's movements were unexpectedly swift. With a sharp click, a new ammunition belt was secured in place. The trio operated as a finely tuned machine of destruction, alternating, crossing, and covering one another. The corpses of the zombies piled higher at the entrance, forming a makeshift low wall that somewhat slowed the relentless onslaught. Yet, the horde remained never-ending, frantically clawing upward, only to be utterly shredded within the intertwining lines of fire. The fear of the undead began to dissipate, replaced by a different sensation. Euphoria, an exhilarating thrill in a deadly dance, crushing everything with overwhelming firepower. The zombies surged like a rising tide, climbing atop the bodies of their fallen comrades, while the incessant gunfire of the 3M249s never ceased. The barrels heated enough to fry an egg, yet the horde continued to flood in as if to fill an insatiable void. I'm out. Fall back. Weilong's voice boomed as he emerged from the vault, dragging a heavy backpack, which he slung over his shoulder before dashing towards the inner wall adjacent to the street. He forcefully slapped the last magnetic bomb against the wall. Boom! A tremendous roar erupted, bricks and stones flying in every direction. The wall was blown apart, a gaping hole opening to the outside, allowing light and air to rush in. A fresh escape. Hope for survival. However, the noise attracted the zombies outside. Dark shadows surged towards the breach, with an ambush ahead and pursuers behind. The newly created path threatened to be sealed once more. Tiger cannon ready. Weilong stood at the opening, clutching the grenade launcher. Lin Feng, Jin Yin, and Feng Yi instantly adjusted their gun barrels, unleashing a fan of fire from the 3M249s against the approaching horde, forcing them back and creating a fleeting window of opportunity. Subsequently, Lin Feng and Jin Yin stowed their M249s, while Feng Yi remained at the rear. The two retrieved the Tiger cannon and stood alongside Weilong fire. Weilong pulled the trigger, and Lin Feng and Jin Yin followed suit. 3 rounds of the Tiger cannon whistling forth, compressing air crashing into the zombie mass. Bang! The air-driven projectiles exploded violently, sending the zombies scattering like bowling pins, effectively stalling the advance of the horde. Move. The jet propulsion system at Weilong's waist activated. Whoosh! The device unleashed a brief burst of thrust, propelling him from the breach onto the street. Lin Feng and Jin Yin swiftly followed suit, activating their jet devices to propel themselves a considerable distance outward. The bee doctor lacked such equipment, yet his speed was unyielding as he surged forward in pursuit. Just as he was on the verge of escaping the cave, a few zombies struggled to rise, howling and reaching for him. Rat-a-tat-tat. Outside the cave, Lin Feng and the others had just regained their footing, and 3M249s were swiftly re-aimed. With precision and intensity, they unleashed a barrage that instantly obliterated the zombies threatening the bee doctor. As the bee doctor passed the trio, he did not even glance back at his comrade's cover. His feet continued to pound the ground. Run. These 3, equipped as they were faster than him. And the bee doctor had no illusion of outpacing them. Thus he ran without a moment's hesitation. No need for a second command. The 4 of them sprinted down the street toward the concealed location of the heavy truck, with the relentless tide of zombies surging behind them. Chapter 20. Evacuate immediately. Magnetic bombs blocked the way. While running, Lin Feng shouted. Jin Yin, in perfect sync with him, simultaneously pivoted. Without even glancing back, they instinctively hurled the last 2 magnetic bombs toward the densest cluster of pursuing zombies. Boom, boom. The nearly simultaneous explosions echoed behind them. The closest zombies were instantly reduced to mere fragments, and even more fortuitously, the blast sent debris and zombie remnants flying, forming a natural barrier. The mindless zombies behind tripped over the fallen corpses of their predecessors, while those further back, unable to stop in time, collided like a row of dominoes, crashing down en masse and swiftly blocking the narrow street. Seizing the opportunity, the 4 of them surged forward with all their might, leaving the chaotic horde and the cacophony of their roars far behind. As they broke free from the zombies' pursuit, a fiery sensation surged within their lungs, mingled with the acrid scent of blood and gunpowder wafting from behind. At that moment, 63 gold bricks, 18 million Hafcoins. We struck it rich. Weilong could hardly contain his elation, his exuberant shout erupting like a firework. This usually composed and reliable tough guy was now so animated that his voice had transformed, his arms waving wildly as the excitement nearly spilled from his face. This outburst ignited a spark, instantly reviving the frayed nerves of the group who had just escaped death. Wait, is the treasury really that bountiful? Lin Feng was momentarily taken aback, only to feel a surge of adrenaline rush to his head. His smile stretching from ear to ear, his body tingling with the enormity of this unexpected joy. Ha! What a windfall! Jin Yin, too breathless to catch his breath, laughed heartily while running, a delightful blend of relief and the thrill of sudden wealth intertwining in his heart. The bee doctor, even more enamored with riches, was now salivating at the mention of 18 million, so ecstatic that he could hardly articulate a word. What's wrong with the bee doctor? Oh, don't mind him. He often gets like this, overwhelmed by the excitement. For individuals dashed down the alleyway from which they had come, though the distant howls of the undead echoed behind them. Their hearts were filled with an ineffable exhilaration. They had not only emerged alive, but had also acquired great wealth. Quickly, the zombies won't catch up to us just yet. Let's hurry back to the truck. Lin Feng suppressed his racing heart, striving to maintain a calm demeanor. With a clear objective, they raced homeward, eager to return. In Qingshan town, on the third floor of a street-facing residential building, Qinyang cautiously parted the curtains and peered down from the window. Below, the chaotic tide of zombies continued to futilely howl in the direction where the heavy truck had vanished, their numbers swelling as they were drawn in by the commotion. The few zombies that had previously blocked the entrance to the building had also disappeared, lured away by the noise. The crisis had, for the moment, been averted. Who are those people, after all? Qinyang mused, eyes fixed on the direction of the truck's disappearance, his brow furrowed in disbelief. In this world, instead of seizing food or medicine, they choose to rob a bank? What use is money now? At 27, he had scarcely assumed the role of mayor of Qingshan town before the world had irrevocably changed. Now, he could only shelter with his wife and child, along with a few surviving neighbors, in this cramped room. What are they after? His wife, Lin Hui, cradled their 3-year-old son, gently patting his back as she whispered. At least they have drawn those monsters away from the street. Honestly, we should thank them. Otherwise, we might have been trapped here. She cast a worried glance at the now somewhat emptier street below, adding, but where did they get so many guns and explosives? Qinyang withdrew his gaze and firmly closed the curtains, shutting out the perilous world beyond. He turned to the 7 or 8 neighbors crowded into the room. Each held makeshift weapons, kitchen knives, iron rods, and even mop handles. Let us not ponder their motives. They're irrelevant to us, Qinyang said, his voice steadier than before. Now is our chance. My friend has informed me that the government has begun establishing safe zones. His gaze swept over the group, his speech quickening and becoming more coherent. Old Zhang, divide the remaining food into packages for each household and do it swiftly. Aunt Li, gather the children by the door and ensure they remain silent. Everyone, check your weapons and gather whatever supplies you can carry. This is our only opportunity. We must evacuate the town while the zombies are distracted. If they return, we may not escape. Lin Hui promptly entrusted their child to a reliable neighbor, then turned to gather the scant supplies left in the corner, stuffing them into a few tattered plastic bags. Upon hearing the clear evacuation orders, the room's occupants did not panic. Instead, they seemed invigorated, as if receiving a shot of adrenaline. The previous despair and tension were swiftly replaced by an urgent instinct for survival. The opportunity created by the mysterious group moments ago could very well be their last chance. Qinyang approached the door, pressing his ear against the door panel, listening intently for a moment. Once he confirmed that there were no unusual sounds in the corridor, he cautiously opened a crack to observe again. Stay close to me. He turned back, lowering his voice, his gaze sharp. Move quietly. We must descend without making a sound. We'll exit through the back alley. Gripping the steel pipe, his knuckles turned slightly white from the pressure before he forced himself to relax a bit. The memory of the rampaging truck and the deafening explosion lingered in his mind. Those individuals were certainly not ordinary. Yet, this thought was fleeting. His sole focus was on leading the dozen or so people behind him out of this deathly town, his only duty as the former mayor. The group descended the stairs, supporting one another, while Qinyang held the car keys. Fortunately, Lin Hui had previously engaged in e-commerce and purchased this sturdy, durable van. Who would have imagined that in the apocalypse, this vehicle would still shine with utility? He quickly inspected the vehicle. Aside from a few scratches, the glass was intact, and the tires were in good condition. Quickly, get in, Lin Hui urged, clutching several bottles of mineral water she had just scavenged, shoving them into the vehicle. I think I saw shadows moving from the west towards us. Don't dawdle. The 7 or 8 accompanying residents, middle-aged individuals, young people, and even a few children, exhibited remarkable efficiency, swiftly packing the limited food and medicine into the van's cramped space. No one uttered a word. The tense atmosphere tightened everyone's nerves. As the last person squeezed into the vehicle, the door was pulled shut. The van's engine emitted a muffled sound before finally roaring to life. Chunyang grasped the steering wheel, feeling the familiar yet strange sensation, and couldn't help but murmur, truly worthy of being the legendary mobile office of Chun Haonan. He really knows how to pack it in. Chapter 21. The zombies began to exhibit their pre-death instincts, even showing signs of learning ability. Mayor Chun, where are we heading now? A woman in the back seat quietly inquired. First, we'll head to the gas station on the outskirts, Chunyang replied, gazing straight ahead. We won't get far with this little fuel. If we don't secure gas, we won't be going anywhere. The vehicle gradually moved towards the town's exit. However, within less than 10 minutes of driving, the roadside scenery began to grow increasingly bizarre. Initially, only a few dismembered zombie corpses lay scattered by the roadside, their deaths tragic. As they continued forward, the bodies multiplied, becoming so densely packed that the sight before them left everyone breathless. A road paved with death emerged before them. From the entrance of the gas station, as far as the eye could see, the ground was littered with the shattered remains of zombies and mutated beasts. The corpses nearly obscured the original road surface. The air was saturated with an overwhelming and unshakable stench, a grotesque amalgamation of blood, the acrid scent of decay, and a foul, putrid odor reminiscent of spoiled entrails, pervading the vehicle's confines. Suddenly, a woman in the back seat could no longer endure it. She violently flung open the window and leaned out, retching uncontrollably. Lin Hui's complexion turned ashen, her hand instinctively covering her mouth and nose, her stomach churning violently as she fought to suppress her own nausea. Even Chunyang, reacting on instinct, slammed the brakes, bringing the vehicle to a jarring halt. His eyes widened in disbelief as he beheld the horrific scene before him, akin to a slaughterhouse. The road stretched endlessly ahead. The tire tracks embedded ominously within a mound of corpses, scattered bullet casings from machine guns littering the roadside. How many zombies must have been slain? A young man in the back murmured, recalling their prolonged hiding in town, where they had only managed to dispatch a mere handful. Yet this scene was unfathomable. Chunyang stepped out of the car, crouching by the roadside to examine the bullet casings. They were from a firearm, and the firepower was formidable. Who were those people? He recalled the figures he had seen that morning. A path had been forcefully carved through the throngs of zombies and mutated beasts. The sheer combat prowess was terrifying. We must leave quickly, Lin Hui urged, her voice trembling as she tugged at Chunyang's arm. He nodded, rising to glance toward the gas station. Finding no zombies in sight, presumably cleared out by that previous group. Let us hurry. After refueling, we must leave this place immediately, he instructed. Old Zhang, help me with the fuel canister. Shaolin, keep an eye on the vehicle and ensure the elderly and children stay inside. Just as he positioned the canister at the pump, the distant roar of an engine caught his attention. Deep and resonant, unlike a standard car, it sounded more like a truck. The group froze as the sound drew nearer, a shadow emerging from the intersection, revealing a heavy-duty truck, exactly like Lin Feng's vehicle. The truck gradually came to a stop beside the van, its engine silenced. In the cloud of dust, two figures emerged from the driver's and passenger's seats. The tension in the air at the gas station felt palpable. Chunyang's muscles tensed, cold sweat instantly soaking his back as he observed the two armed men disembarking from the truck, his heart racing, threatening to leap from his chest. Instinctively, he concealed the steel pipe he held behind him, an action that seemed utterly feeble and ludicrous in the presence of their professional equipment. The residents behind him were silent, not daring to breathe, while children were tightly held by their guardians, mouths covered. Lin Feng's gaze swept over Chunyang and his companions, finally settling on Chunyang's face, which feigned calmness but betrayed an unmistakable fear. He detected their anxiety. Lin Feng merely raised his empty left hand, making a downward gesture to signal for calm. His voice filtering through the heavy helmet with a hint of tranquility. Do not be alarmed. We mean no harm. He tilted his head towards the truck behind him, succinctly conveying their intent. We are merely passing through. Our vehicle is low on fuel, and we need to refuel before continuing on our way. Chunyang gazed at Lin Feng and his companion's professional equipment, and as he recalled the deathly path paved with the remnants of zombies they had traversed, a thought suddenly flickered through his mind. Suppressing his palpitations, he mustered his courage and tentatively inquired, "My friend, were those zombies you encountered along the way cleared by you?" Lin Feng, who was skillfully connecting the fuel line, turned his head at the sound of Chunyang's voice. Peering through his mask, he nodded succinctly, yes. We cleared them on our way here. Despite having harbored suspicions, the confirmation from Lin Feng left Qinyang and the residents behind him in a state of shock. To think that such a hellish scene was merely dismissed as a casual task by these two. After the initial astonishment, a complex admiration emerged on Qinyang's face. He forced a wry smile and shook his head. I see. It seems we have taken advantage of you. We were at a loss on how to evacuate from Qingshan town, and it was fortunate that you lured away the zombies, allowing us to escape. He paused, his tone growing more earnest. Acknowledging the formidable strength of his interlocutors, he understood that mere gratitude might come across as insipid. He needed to offer something of equal value. We cannot accept this benefit without reciprocation. I possess some information that may be of use to you. Consider it a trade for the fuel and my earlier thanks. Lin Feng raised an eyebrow, appearing intrigued. What information? I received word through a friend that the military is still operational, having initially quelled the internal chaos, Qinyang revealed. This news prompted a significant exchange of glances between Lin Feng and Weilong. Undoubtedly, it was one of the most promising updates since the onset of the apocalypse. However, Qinyang's subsequent statements cast a shadow over this glimmer of hope. However, the news is grim. Their losses have been catastrophic, with barely 1 in 10 surviving. Given their current manpower and equipment, it seems unlikely they will be able to initiate large-scale rescue operations. He paused again, his tone turning even graver as he divulged a more shocking piece of information. Moreover, according to intelligence obtained at great cost on the front lines, a portion of the zombies has begun exhibiting pre-mortem instincts, even showing signs of learning capability. Learning capability. Lin Feng's voice rose sharply, and the expressions of Feng Yi and Wei Long sharpened instantly. Indeed, learning capability, Qinyang affirmed, his face reflecting disbelief and fear. Although their numbers are exceedingly rare, it has been confirmed that some zombies can utilize muscle memory to operate simple weapons, such as pulling the trigger of a gun. This revelation struck each person like a block of ice, plunging into their hearts. It signified that zombies were no longer mere instinct-driven monsters in pursuit of flesh. Among them, individuals capable of wielding tools, perhaps even inheriting some combat skills, were beginning to emerge. This fundamentally overturned their understanding of this post-apocalyptic world. Lin Feng remained silent for several seconds, exchanging glances with Wei Long and the others, recalling the zombie that had wielded a shotgun, staring blankly at the weapon in its hands after inadvertently firing a shot. At present, it seems to be a contemplation on how to utilize the situation. Alongside the incident from last night where a dog walk led to the discovery of a horde of zombies, Lin Feng suddenly experienced a moment of clarity. Turning to Qinyang, and solemnly nodded. These two pieces of information are exceedingly significant. Thank you. Chapter 22. Summoning the Super Soldier Asura Guard. With funding in place, even a genius youth will accomplish great feats. Where's the base? Lin Feng inquired next about the location of the base. To the north of the city. It was once the former garrison of the 7th Field Army, now repurposed into the primary base. The original military facility has been tainted by zombie blood and corpses. The sewers are filled with the blood of the undead. An announcement should be made online in the next couple of days. But how many will actually see it remains uncertain. Qinyang's tone carried a hint of yearning. There are high walls and stationed troops. It is currently one of the safest known locations. With the apocalypse only 2 days old, humanity has yet to succumb to psychological distortion. As time passes, who can say how things will unfold? Therefore, if one possesses strength, it is advisable to enter the base for development. Observing Lin Feng and his companions clad in superior gear, alongside that heavy-duty truck, Qinyang hesitated momentarily before sincerely extending an invitation. Brothers, since we are all seeking a way out, why not embark on this journey together? It would provide mutual support on the way to the military base. While we may not be of great assistance, more hands mean more strength. Without much contemplation, Lin Feng shook his head, his tone calm. Thank you. Your goodwill is appreciated. But we have some matters to attend to and shall not travel together for the time being. His mention of some matters was evidently a pretext. Yet Qinyang quickly grasped the underlying meaning. The strength of Lin Feng's group was apparent, and they clearly did not wish to be hindered by his entourage. Qinyang, being perceptive, displayed no signs of embarrassment or dissatisfaction at the rejection. Instead, he nodded in understanding. I see. I wish you all the best. He turned and signaled to his own group, filling the dilapidated van with fuel. The fuel gauge indicated a substantial remaining supply, yet he refrained from taking more, deliberately returning the nozzle and signaling to leave the remainder for Lin Feng and his companions. This act prompted Lin Feng to regard him with renewed interest. In a world where resources are scarce, the ability to willingly forego excess supplies speaks volumes about one's character and rationality. However, this was only the beginning of the apocalypse. Humanity's moral compass had yet to unravel. As for what lay ahead, who could say? With a sigh, Lin Feng contemplated the uncertain future. Qinyang looked at Lin Feng. Take care. May we meet again by chance. Lin Feng responded with sincerity. You too. Take care and be cautious on your journey. You as well. Qinyang clasped his fists together earnestly. Without further pleasantries, both parties exchanged succinct farewells. Qinyang and his group boarded the van, the engine roaring to life as they headed toward their safe zone, gradually vanishing at the end of the road. Meanwhile, Lin Feng and his three companions returned to the heavy truck to replenish its fuel. With the tank filled, the engine emitted a powerful, resonant growl. Four individuals ascended into the heavy-duty truck, choosing a path divergent from that of the Jinbei vehicle, as they continued their journey through the apocalypse. This fleeting encounter resembled a silhouette against the backdrop of a devastated world, where they exchanged intelligence and offered a modicum of goodwill before parting ways toward the uncertainties that lay ahead. The truck's engine rumbled deeply, gradually pulling away from the gas station. After traversing a certain distance, Lin Feng discovered a dense thicket and maneuvered the massive truck in reverse, concealing it beneath the foliage that enveloped it completely. As soon as the vehicle came to a halt, Lin Feng eagerly leaped down. Weilong and Feng instinctively spread out to maintain vigilance, while Jinyan curiously approached Lin Feng. Brother, quickly check how many half-coins those gold bricks can be exchanged for. Lin Feng took a deep breath to steady his exhilaration, raising his hand to summon the semi-transparent system panel. He directly navigated to the logistics recovery interface, selecting the gold bricks from the warehouse. The panel illuminated instantaneously, displaying a prompt that quickened his heartbeat. Detected 63 solid gold bricks. Current recovery price 3,000,000. 000 half-coins. Do you confirm the sale? Confirm. All confirmed. Without a moment's hesitation, Lin Feng swiftly pressed the button. Ding. Recovery successful. You have obtained 18,900,000 half-coins. 18,900,000. We are rich, brother. However, the surprise was not yet over. The system panel flickered once more, and a brand new pop-up window with a metallic frame forcefully appeared. Congratulations, host. Cumulative recovery amount has surpassed 10 million. Unlocking new feature. Unit summoning. Units? Lin Feng paused, realizing this time it was not merely individual GDI operatives. Curiously, he clicked to reveal the detailed information. Available units for summoning. Asala Minion, 9. Asala Shield Bearer, 1. Summoning conditions. Provision of 3 basic meals daily. Asala Minion. One-time payment of 1 million half-coins each. Asala Shield Bearer. One-time payment of 3 million half-coins. Note, providing additional bonuses may yield surprising experiences. With sufficient funds, even a prodigious youth can achieve remarkable feats. Unit capabilities. Proficient in close-quarters combat and intent perception, able to detect and pinpoint the source of attention. Masters of efficient combat techniques such as armored leg strikes and unarmored headshots. Weaponry must be supplied by the host. Intent perception? Incredible, a superhuman machine. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. 1 million each, plus the meal expenses, was mere pocket change for them now, with billions of half-coins resting in his account. Coupled with the recent influx of nearly 20 million, he felt a newfound confidence. Adding 10 specialized aids would drastically change their stance against hordes of zombies or other threats. Purchased. Lin Feng waved his hand decisively, confirming the summoning of 10 soldiers. Buzz. Just as he completed the action, a soft blue light flickered from the truck's cargo compartment behind him. Immediately, a cacophony of 10 coarse, boisterous voices, thick with accent, erupted from the carriage like a thunderclap. Surrender or face the Reaper. Come, let us have a practice match. The coffin is ready for you. I shall extinguish you. Jin Yin fell silent in an instant, a twitch at the corner of his mouth. Brother, this line sounds so familiar, so endearing. Lin Feng was equally taken aback and hurriedly pulled open the heavy carriage door alongside Weilong. To their astonishment, 10 soldiers clad in signature Asura-style combat uniforms, robust in stature and fierce in demeanor, stood in unison within. Weilong and Feng leaned in for a glimpse. Upon hearing the distinctive slogan, Weilong instinctively furrowed his brow, murmuring to Feng, I seem to reflexively feel a twinge in my legs. Feng silently rubbed his wrist, offering a wry smile and nodding. I am quite different. My hands are the ones that ache. Lin Feng surveyed the menacing little soldiers in the carriage and glanced at the shadowed expressions of Weilong and Feng, feeling both amused and exasperated. The superhuman machinery was no jest. As the carriage doors swung wide, the 10 Asura warriors leapt down, swiftly forming a somewhat ragged, yet formidable line before Lin Feng. At the forefront was the most imposing figure, a burly man bearing a heavy shield. He stepped forward, clenched his right fist, and struck it heavily against his left chest, producing a resounding thud akin to a bell. reporting to the commander. The Asura assault team is assembled. I am the captain. You may call me Shield Mountain. From this day forth, my life and that of my brothers is yours. His gaze was direct and valiant, imbued with a profound loyalty. Excellent, Shield Mountain. Lin Feng replied with a nod, his eyes sweeping over the eager, fervent new recruits. Here, the rules are simple. Obey commands, survive. And together we shall carve out our dominion in this wretched apocalypse. Without further ado, he commenced with the task at hand. Distribute the firearms. Chapter 23. The heist as he commanded with intent. The System-S inventory panel unfolded before the group, under the astonished gaze of Shield Mountain and his comrades. Lin Feng retrieved modified M249 light machine guns, handing them one by one to the 9 Asura soldiers. What is this? Exclaimed one soldier, trembling as he received the weapon. This is the M249 that only the esteemed commander said is permitted to wield. No. Another soldier interjected, caressing the gun with reverence, excitement brimming in his voice. Are you blind? Look at the barrel. Observe the rail system. Examine the stock. This is far more valuable than the one commander said possesses. A dream come true. Truly, a dream come true. The soldiers clutched their new weapons, each face alight with pure exhilaration. Finally, Lin Feng's gaze settled upon Captain Shield Mountain. What he produced was not an M249, but a more formidable PKM general-purpose machine gun. The iconic 125-round belt showcasing the terrifying potential of its sustained firepower. Shields Mountain, you are the heart of the team and currently the strongest member of Asura. Lin Feng solemnly handed the PKM, valued at 500,000 Hafcoins, into Shields Mountain's hands. This PKM, a formidable weapon only available to high-ranking officers within the Asura faction, now firmly rests in his grasp. The cold touch of the metal ignited the fervor within his chest. An indescribable thrill and a profound sense of honor from absolute trust enveloped him in an instant. He raised his gaze to Lin Feng, and within his already valiant eyes, an unwavering, almost fervent light burst forth. A soldier dies for the one who understands him. The commander not only trusts him, but has also bestowed upon him the finest equipment. This esteemed recognition will undoubtedly be repaid with the lives of Shields Mountain and his brothers behind him. Commander. His voice resonated with excitement, booming even louder as he thumped his chest. Shields Mountain shall not fail the trust bestowed upon him. Lin Feng observed the rejuvenated, well-equipped, and high-spirited squad before him, a surge of grandeur swelling in his heart. He leapt atop the hood of the heavy truck, ensuring all could see him. Brothers, he proclaimed, his voice echoing through the woods, the guns are now in your hands. Next, we shall use these weapons to undertake an even grander endeavor. His gaze swept across the crowd. The treasury of Qingshan Town is merely an appetizer. Our next objective is to clear all obstacles along the way, to navigate this apocalyptic world, and to claim all valuable resources as our spoils. Do you have confidence? Yes. A thunderous roar erupted simultaneously from the 10 Asura warriors and Weilong, with even Jin Yin raising a fist in solidarity. The group reboarded the heavy truck, and as Weilong started the engine, he turned to Lin Feng. Commander, where shall we head next? Lin Feng settled cross-legged in the passenger seat. I don't know. We'll take it one step at a time. If you were to ask me now, I couldn't provide an answer. We currently lack any information. Surviving comes first before considering what lies ahead. Initially, Lin Feng had numerous considerations. He had contemplated heading north. Zombies are carbon-based organisms. And if they were to reach the north during winter in sub-zero temperatures, would they still be agile? At that point, a few fire trucks could spray them with water. And once it froze, the zombies would become rigid and immobile. However, as soon as this thought crossed his mind, he chose to abandon it. The reason was simple. Lin Feng was currently located in Fujian province, and reaching the north would essentially require traversing the entirety of China. It was too far, overall unsafe. And heating during winter posed a significant issue. Furthermore, with the emergence of zombies, one could never predict extreme weather conditions. Heading north under such circumstances might lead to even quicker demise. The heavy truck progressed along the dilapidated national highway, the scorching sun rendering the atmosphere somewhat oppressive. Inside the carriage, Jin Yin softly hummed a discordant tune, while Wei Long remained intently focused on the road ahead. Feng Lin was engaged in a game of chess with the bee doctor, and within the confines of the container. Lin Feng was concerned that the Asala guards would suffer from the sweltering heat. To mitigate this, he had procured solar panels and installed an air conditioning unit. Fortunately, this group of Asala brothers was exceptionally resourceful, transforming the carriage into a cooled haven. Otherwise, under such oppressive temperatures, a heavy truck would struggle to accommodate so many passengers. Everything appeared calm and monotonous. Suddenly, a sharp gunshot shattered the tranquility. This was quickly followed by the thunderous sound of a tire bursting. causing the entire truck to lurch violently to the right. Weilong gripped the steering wheel tightly, applying a series of quick brakes. The truck skidding awkwardly for several meters before finally coming to a halt. What on earth is happening? Lin Feng seized the handrail and leaned forward to look. The front right tire had been shot out. Weilong's voice was as cold as ice. It's an ambush. At that moment, four ragged men emerged from behind a dilapidated vehicle blocking the road. Clad in prison garb, their sleeves caked with dried mud, they were clearly escapees. The leader, a man with a scarred face, brandished a firearm and shouted menacingly, "Everyone get out of the vehicle, or the next shot will hit you." His three accomplices advanced, wielding machetes and steel bars, their eyes scanning the cab with ferocity. However, upon noticing the superior tactical gear worn by Lin Feng and Weilong, they hesitated, realizing that their intended victims were of a significantly different caliber than the civilians they had previously robbed. Escaped from prison? Lin Feng glanced at the blurred numbers on their uniforms, too afraid to enter the city for supplies, reduced to ambushing travelers in the wilderness? The scar-faced leader, enraged by Lin Feng's scrutiny, raised his shotgun higher. "Stop wasting time. What's in your cargo hold? Open it." Lin Feng suddenly smiled. The cargo hold? Compressed biscuits, instant noodles, bottled water. Oh, and a few cases of beer and some cigarettes. These words seemed to cast a spell, causing the eyes of the four prisoners to light up instantly. The scar-faced man, trembling with excitement, shoved aside two of his accomplices. "Hurry, open the cargo hold. Now." The two prisoners rushed eagerly towards the rear of the truck, their lips curving into uncontrollable smiles. The heavy cargo door swung open with a jolt. The first man, rushing forward, was immediately captivated by the neatly stacked boxes behind the door, compressed biscuits, bottled water, and those boxes emblazoned with the word beer, all so enticing. He reached out with wild joy, his voice cracking with excitement. "We hit the jackpot. This is enough for us." Yet, before he could finish his sentence, he froze in place. At that moment, his peripheral vision caught sight of a figure standing silently in the shadows at the back of the container. It was the imposing Shield Mountain. Cloaked in darkness, the only discernible features were the wide grin revealing rows of pearly white teeth and a pair of cold, penetrating eyes. What instilled greater dread within him was the sight of the PKM general-purpose machine gun clasped in Xuanshan's hands, its formidable barrel unwaveringly aimed at his forehead. There was no salvation for him. The gun barked. Scorching bullets penetrated the foreheads of his two underlings, leaving behind gaping wounds. The immense kinetic energy instantly stripped them of all vitality, denying them even a muffled groan as they fell back, lifeless. Scarface and the last remaining accomplice still brandished their weapons at Lin Feng, but upon hearing commotion from the direction of the vehicle, Scarface abruptly turned his head. What met his gaze were the lifeless bodies of his two subordinates slumped against the car door, as armed soldiers from the Asala Guard descended from the vehicle, causing him to drop his gun in terror. Chapter 24. Target prison. Before Scarface could react, Lin Feng swiftly drew his lever-action rifle, pressing it firmly against Scarface's temple. The cold metal sending shivers down his spine. The lanky figure collapsed to his knees, prostrating himself fervently. "Big brother, spare my life. We were blind to your prowess. We will compensate for the tires. We will give you everything." Scarface, regaining his composure, pleaded with a quivering voice. "Yes, yes. We have hidden some food and tobacco. All for you. We implore you to spare us." Lin Feng paid no heed to their desperate entreaties, gesturing to Xuanshan in the vehicle. "Clear the area and replenish supplies." "Understood, Commander." Xuanshan replied robustly, jumping down with two subordinates to begin managing the scene. Lin Feng then turned to Weilong in the driver's seat. "Check the spare tire and make haste in replacing it." He glanced at the dilapidated van from which the four prisoners had emerged, adding, "Inspect that wretched vehicle as well. Salvage whatever may be of use." "Understood," Weilong acknowledged. Before long, the spare tire was replaced, and the meager supplies hidden by the prisoners were thoroughly scavenged and tossed into the truck's cargo area. Lin Feng looked down at the two prisoners, now crumpled on the ground like discarded refuse, and said coolly, "Scram, I shall not take your lives." These words fell upon Scarface and the lanky figure like a decree of mercy, leaving them in disbelief. They were momentarily stunned, then erupted into euphoric relief, tears streaming down as they bowed profusely. "Thank you. Thank you for sparing us, brother. Thank you." They scrambled to their feet, disregarding direction as they crawled and rolled frantically towards the wilderness at the roadside, lamenting their parents for not having bestowed upon them two more legs. Watching their desperate retreat, Lin Feng said nothing. He merely turned and patted Xuanshan on the shoulder. Subsequently, he approached the passenger seat, and just as he pulled open the door, bang, bang. What defined professionalism was encapsulated in those two crisp, succinct gunshots that rang out behind him. In the distance, Scarface and the lanky figure, having barely escaped a few dozen meters, were struck down, blood bursting forth from their backs as they collapsed onto the ground. Scarface, summoning his last ounce of strength, twisted his head to glance back towards the truck, his eyes brimming with resentment and confusion, as he hoarsely cried out, "You are untrustworthy." Seated within the vehicle, Lin Feng gazed through the window at the dying gaze outside, speaking in a calm tone, "I mean to say, I will not kill you." He paused momentarily, helplessly raising his hands before adding, "But it is not my doing." Outside, Shuntan expressionlessly lowered the smoking PKM in his hands, blowing away the lingering smoke from the muzzle. Weilong silently started the heavy truck, while Feng Yi continued to engage Lin Feng in a game of chess. And Jinyan merely cast a glance outside before withdrawing his gaze. The Asura soldiers in the cabin remained utterly unresponsive. Releasing a tiger back into the mountains brings endless troubles. Those scoundrels, who committed heinous acts even before the apocalypse, now possess no boundaries on the very first day of this new world. Their continued existence would only bring more harm to the struggling survivors. Rather than allow them to potentially threaten oneself or other innocents in the future, it would be far wiser to extinguish that threat right now. Showing mercy to enemies is merely cruelty towards oneself and one's comrades. The heavy truck resumed its journey along the national highway, with most occupants resting or remaining vigilant. Only Feng Yi in the passenger seat remained silent. Leaning against the back of his seat, he had formed an idea upon seeing the prison uniforms of the fugitives. The more he contemplated it, the more he felt there was merit in his thoughts. As the noise in the cabin diminished, Feng Yi suddenly turned to Lin Feng. "Commander, I have an idea." Lin Feng, chewing on a biscuit, looked up at the mention, and before Feng Yi could finish, he interjected, "You're suggesting we use the prison as a stronghold?" Feng Yi paused for a moment, then chuckled, pointing at Lin Feng. "Ah, you're on the same wavelength. How did you come to think of that?" Lin Feng set down his biscuit and wiped his mouth. If they could summon Asura soldiers, perhaps they could also summon Havoc troops or even vehicles from the grand battle. All these would require sufficient space for accommodation. Finding a safe haven in the apocalypse is challenging, yet prisons are inherently designed for containment, typically surrounded by walls and often topped with barbed wire or even electrified fences, forming the first and most reliable line of physical defense, effectively repelling most ordinary zombies and marauders lacking heavy firepower. Weilong chimed in, his eyes fixed on the road. "Indeed. Prisons have few entrances, generally just one or two main gates, all reinforced with thick steel plates. Securing them would mean keeping danger entirely at bay. And guard towers." Lin Feng continued, "The watchtowers are readily available, providing a broad view, allowing for the observation of several kilometers around, enabling early detection of threats, an ideal position for snipers and long-range surveillance." Feng Yi nodded in agreement, unscrewing a bottle of mineral water. Most crucially, they are self-sufficient. Prisons are equipped with backup generators and deep wells. In this world, electricity and clean water are more precious than gold. A generator allows for water extraction and lighting, while a deep well ensures a continuous supply. Jin Yen leaned in, his eyes sparkling. "And there are the cells. While the cells may be rudimentary, they are resistant to wind and rain, and their numbers are plentiful. Furthermore, the locking systems of the cells can provide effective isolation and control in case of internal issues." Lin Feng concluded, "It can be said that a well-functioning prison, with its foundational design and reserves, is perhaps one of the most exquisite prototypes of a refuge in the apocalyptic world, far more efficient than constructing a base from scratch." The bee doctor concurred, "Indeed. What we require now is a solid rear guard, a base from which we can develop, recuperate, and radiate our influence outward. Following that, we can dispatch individuals to gather supplies and exchange them for Hafcoins." Thus, it was settled. Lin Feng slapped his thigh. "Our next clear objective is to find a suitable prison that we can clear out. Let us head to the nearest prison." The heavy truck rumbled along the national highway, the sun baking the roof until it was scorching, while the cabin buzzed with noise. The atmosphere, compared to the prior tension, had relaxed somewhat. The substantial gains from the bank vault, along with the addition of 10 new Asura soldiers, fortified the team's morale like never before. However, tranquility in the apocalypse is always fleeting. As the heavy truck entered a segment of Factory Road, danger lurked ominously nearby. Something felt amiss. Weilong was the first to sense the anomaly, easing off the accelerator, slowing their speed. "What's wrong?" Lin Feng instantly sat up straight. Ordinarily, the factory area would be bustling with workers, yet this stretch of road was eerily quiet, devoid of even the usual wandering zombies. Just as his warning left his lips, hiss. Like the opening of the gates of hell, piercing shrieks and roars erupted instantaneously from both sides of the highway. Countless zombies surged forth, while from the desolate forest on the left, several mutated dogs lunged directly towards the wheels. Chapter 25, Tank Zombies and Mutated Handgun Zombies, A Tide of Corpses. An unprecedented deluge of the undead. More chillingly, amid the sluggish, ordinary zombies, there were a few imposing figures. Two massive tank zombies, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with arms as thick as battering rams, emerged, their blood-red eyes fixated intently on the heavy truck, drawn to the cacophony of noise and the essence of life it emitted. "Step on the gas," Lin Feng shouted, and without hesitation, Weilong slammed the accelerator to the floor. The truck's engine roared violently, its colossal frame lurching forward with ferocity. He intended to carve out a path to survival through sheer weight and power. "Prepare for battle," Lin Feng bellowed towards the rear of the cabin. In an instant, all remnants of the relaxed atmosphere vanished. The Asura soldiers swiftly transitioned into combat readiness, bullets chambered. Shield Mountain let out a low growl, his massive form bracing against the front of the cabin, the muzzle of the PKM aimed at the side window. The heavy truck charged like a raging bull, directly colliding with the zombies blocking its path, and a hapless mutated dog, sending them flying and crushing them. The sounds of splintering bones and mangled flesh were drowned out by the roar of the engine and the howls of the undead. Yet, the tide of corpses was overwhelming. They surged forth like a black tide, relentless and unyielding, as the mutated dogs, utilizing their agility, attempted to leap towards the car windows. "Open fire," Lin Feng commanded. The deep, thunderous roar of the M249 and the continuous growl of the PKM erupted instantaneously. Bullets gushed forth from the observation windows on either side of the vehicle. The zombies at the forefront fell in droves, akin to wheat being cut down, as black blood and shredded flesh splattered everywhere. Yet, this was merely the beginning. The largest tank zombie emitted an ear-splitting roar, lifting a chunk of concrete, presumably wrenched from somewhere, and hurled it towards the driver's cabin. Weilong swerved the steering wheel just in time, the concrete grazing the front of the vehicle and crashing onto the road, leaving a shallow crater. "We cannot break through. There are too many," Weilong bellowed, as the truck's speed noticeably diminished from the continuous collisions with corpses and the need to evade attacks. Just as the heavy truck struggled forward with brute force amidst the sea of zombies, everyone unleashed their firepower upon the ordinary zombies and mutated dogs flanking them, when suddenly, a new aberration emerged. From the shadows behind the horde, an extraordinarily bizarre, mutated figure became visible. It was not particularly large, even smaller than the tank zombie. Yet its appearance caused Lin Feng's pupils to constrict with alarm. This creature was clad in tattered police attire. However, the most chilling aspect was its arm. Below the elbow, instead of transforming into a claw, flesh and bone had morphed into a rough, yet distinctly structured handgun. At the end of the barrel, a deep, ominous hole was faintly discernible. Its murky eyes seemed to retain some instinct from its former life, coldly surveying the battlefield, ultimately locking onto the front wheels of the struggling heavy truck. That mutated gun arm slowly raised, adopting a standard aiming posture. "Careful, right front. A new type of mutant." Lin Feng's warning cut through the din of gunfire and roars. "It possesses ranged attack capability. Its target is our tire." Upon hearing this, Weilong instinctively sought to swerve and evade, but zombies swarmed from all directions, leaving virtually no room for maneuvering. The doctor reacted swiftly, almost concurrently with Lin Feng's alert. He redirected his gun, swiftly locking onto the head of the police uniform mutant. He calmly squeezed the trigger. As the gunshot rang out, the bullet raced towards its target. However, just before the bullet was about to strike, the police uniform mutant seemed to possess an uncanny combat instinct, suddenly jerking its head to the side. The bullet grazed its decaying cheek. "Damn it, it dodged. How can it evade bullets?" The doctor muttered under his breath, immediately preparing for a second shot. But it was too late. The mutated arm of the police uniform figure trembled violently. Bang! With a crisp sound, a bullet, not composed of metal but rather formed from hardened bone fragments, shot forth at high speed from the hole at the end of its arm. The bone projectile struck the right front tire of the heavy truck with unparalleled precision. With a sharp pop, the tire was instantly torn open, air gushing out violently. But that was not the end. Almost simultaneously with the impact on the right front tire, its mutated arm vibrated with an inhuman swiftness once more. Bang! The second shot followed closely behind. The left front tire burst in response. Oh no, the tire. Weilong felt the steering wheel become unbearably heavy, and the sensation from the brake pedal was utterly disconcerting. With both front tires incapacitated, the heavy truck lost all balance and steering capability, careening forward like a wild stallion. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar, the massive truck crashed violently into a dilapidated brick wall by the roadside. The force of the collision caused the entire vehicle to shudder violently, visibly deforming the front, while thick black smoke mixed with steam billowed out from beneath the hood. The acrid scent of charred material permeating the air. Ouch! Jean Yin was jolted against the seat, just as everyone regained their senses. They heard a roar from outside the vehicle. The tank zombies had caught up, slamming against the truck's cargo area, sending a shockwave that numbed their ears. The heavy truck, their mobile fortress of survival, was utterly incapacitated. It was awkwardly wedged between the ruins, immovable. "Take it down," Lin Feng shouted into the communicator as his body was violently thrust forward by inertia, almost without the need for his command. In the moment of the vehicle's loss of control, Shudian and several Asala soldiers had already unleashed a furious barrage of bullets towards the direction of the mutated figure in the police uniform. A hail of gunfire riddled it, and the surrounding zombies, the bizarre handgun zombie obliterated. Yet, it was too late. Outside, an endless wave of zombies and mutants, driven mad by the tremendous crash, surged forth. Inside the vehicle, they found themselves in an immediate deadlock, devoid of mobility. Lin Feng shook his head, slightly dazed from the impact, inhaling a breath filled with smoke and despair. His voice pierced through the swirling dust, reaching every ear clearly. "Everyone, disembark. Establish a circular defense around the vehicle." With the vehicle immobilized, they had completely become trapped like fish in a barrel. The horde of zombies and mutated beasts, akin to sharks sensing blood, surged from all directions, surrounding the wreckage of the truck with relentless fervor. The group swiftly ascended to the roof. The well-trained Asala soldiers, without needing extensive directives, quickly formed a defensive line facing outward, centered around the incapacitated truck. Lin Feng, Weilong, the bee doctor, and Jin Yan each maintained a position in their respective directions. Chapter 26, Blood Battle. Casualties. The roar of the M249 and PKM instantly reverberated across the battlefield. A metallic storm of bullets erupted forth, shattering the limbs and exploding the heads of the zombies at the forefront. The overwhelming firepower temporarily staving off the most ferocious tide of the undead. However, the number of zombies far exceeded expectations. They advanced mindlessly, trampling over the remains of their companions. Complicating matters further, the mutated dogs exploited their speed and agility, opting not to confront the barrage head-on, but instead attempting to breach the defensive line from the flanks. Shield Mountain served as the cornerstone of the defense. His robust physique resembled a rocky outcrop, with the PKM's fiery tongue primarily employed to suppress the oncoming horde, while his other hand wielded a heavy ballistic shield, continuously deflecting the side assaults of the mutated dogs. Each collision emitted a dull thud, causing his arm muscles to bulge, yet he did not waver. However, it was evident to all that the ammunition chain box he carried was swiftly depleting. The consumption of ammunition was alarmingly rapid. A soldier from Asura shouted as he replaced the second ammunition chain. Everyone could sense the dwindling supplies at their waists. Although the ammunition could be infinitely replenished through Lin Feng's procurement, the intervals required for reloading allowed the zombies to inch forward relentlessly. Reload. A soldier stationed at the rear flank of the heavy truck emptied his chain and, with a shout, quickly crouched down, deftly removing the empty box. In that fleeting moment, a smaller mutated dog suddenly sprang forth like a specter from the brick building above, lunging fiercely at the soldier engaged in reloading. "Watch out." A nearby comrade detected the imminent danger, but it was too late to redirect his aim. With a sickening crunch, the creature's razor-sharp teeth sank into the soldier's neck, and blood gushed forth in an instant. "Damn it." The comrade, his eyes wide with fury, turned his weapon and shot the mutated dog, sending it sprawling. The medic rushed over, aiming a hormone gun at the soldier's wound, infusing it with a faint blue healing energy. Yet the injury was too severe. The carotid artery had been completely severed, and the hormone gun could only delay death. More critically, the zombie virus was rapidly infiltrating through the bite. The powerful healing properties of the gun could only tenuously stave off the loss of vitality, unable to purify the lethal virus. The soldier's gaze began to fade, his throat emitting inhuman growls, a harbinger of transformation. The first casualty had arrived in the most brutal manner. Shield Mountain continued to fire the PKM at the advancing zombies, never looking back, but his gruff voice struck heavily upon every heart present. "Resupply." The command was succinct, yet it resonated with an inevitability understood by all who had endured the harshness of the apocalypse. They could not allow their comrade to become such a monster, nor could they permit him to become a threat to the team. The nearest soldier from Asura visibly stiffened. He gazed at his twitching comrade on the ground, whose face was contorting in agony. They had trained together, shared boasts, and dreamt of the future together. Taking a deep breath of the acrid air laced with gunpowder and blood, he abruptly raised his weapon, aiming at his comrade's forehead, which had yet to fully succumb to the void. A farewell squeeze through clenched teeth. "Goodbye, brother." After the gunfire subsided, the young soldier who had executed the command felt his eyes welling with tears. He averted his gaze from his fallen comrade on the ground and aimed his weapon once more at the mass of corpses outside, unleashing a torrent of bullets as if to expel all his grief and fury. Though these Asura soldiers were boisterous and fierce, they were still comrades in arms. Witnessing a fellow soldier fall at such close range cast a shadow over the hearts of all present. Reinforce the line. Gather near the carriage. Alternate your ammunition. Lin Feng's voice was tinged with a hint of hoarseness. At that critical moment when their supplies were dwindling, 2 tank zombies charged forward through the sparse gunfire. Like rampaging bulls, one of the tanks bent low, scooping up a massive chunk of concrete from the ground, and, like a catapult, hurled it towards the densest part of their defense. Scatter! Lin Feng's roar coincided with the sound of the projectile slicing through the air. Most of the soldiers instinctively or through training evaded the incoming danger, but one Asura soldier, preoccupied with shooting sideways, failed to notice the tank in time and was a moment too slow to react. Boom! The concrete slab, propelled with terrifying force, struck true. The soldier was knocked down instantly, not even able to emit a cry of despair. The medic had no choice but to temporarily abandon his light machine gun, turning to administer aid to the Asura soldier. Damn it! Shielder let out an enraged roar, aiming his PKM at the catapulting tank, unleashing a barrage of bullets upon its massive head and chest, creating countless holes, with dark blood gushing forth, yet failing to bring it down entirely. It merely roared in fury, once again bending to search for another stone. The 3rd-level armor-piercing rounds are insufficient. Weilong shouted anxiously, firing at the approaching ordinary zombies. Without hesitation, Lin Feng slung his M249 behind him, his consciousness sinking into the system's repository. In the next moment, the M14 designated marksman rifle was firmly in his grasp, loaded with 5th-level armor-piercing rounds specifically designed to combat heavily armored targets. Weilong, use 2 magnetic bombs on that one. Lin Feng growled, swiftly locating a position to shoot. Understood. Weilong responded without a moment's hesitation. At the instant Shielder used the PKM to temporarily divert the tank's attention, he swung his arm forcefully. The magnetic bomb arced through the air and, with a sharp sound, firmly adhered to the tank zombie's bare, blood-stained forehead. Boom! An explosive detonation ensued. The massive head of the tank zombie was obliterated, akin to a smashed watermelon, instantly losing half of its mass. Its colossal body swayed before crashing to the ground with a thunderous thud, stirring up a cloud of dust. Almost before the smoke from the explosion had dissipated, Lin Feng had already locked onto another approaching tank. The M14's distinctive, crisp, and penetrating gunfire rang out. The 5th-level armor-piercing round shot forth, tearing through the tank zombie's head with astonishing speed and force. The colossal creature momentarily halted, its head bursting open with gaping wounds from which black blood and shattered flesh violently erupted. It emitted a thunderous roar, striving to advance. Yet the very essence of its life had been irrevocably obliterated. As the bullets rained down, the massive form of the tank zombie staggered forward a few steps before finally collapsing heavily to the ground, motionless. Although 2 tank zombies had fallen, an unending stream of new zombies continued to surge forth from the industrial area. Lin Feng could not help but curse vehemently. Where did all these people in an industrial zone come from? Chapter 27, Forasala. Just when everyone believed they were destined to battle to the bitter end, a horn sounded from the far end of the road, followed by the roar of an engine. All those capable of fighting, including the frenzied, howling zombies, instinctively turned their attention to the sudden, overwhelming noise. At the edge of their vision, that familiar yellow school bus charged forth at an astonishing speed, utterly disproportionate to its size, crashing aggressively into the flank of the horde. Though it lacked the absolute mass of a heavy truck, it maximized the amalgamation of weight, speed, and momentum. The cacophony of the terrifying impact resounded relentlessly. The school bus carved a path through the surging tide of zombies. The bodies of the undead were sent soaring into the air, while mutated dogs attempted to evade, only to be mercilessly struck down by the speeding vehicle. Crushed beneath its weight, sanguine blood and pulverized flesh splattered against the bus's windshield and body, instantly transforming it into a vessel of crimson. The vehicle jolted and swayed violently under the pressure of the onslaught, as if it might disintegrate at any moment, yet its momentum showed no sign of waning. Behind the wheel, Zhang Lei's eyes burned with fervor, veins bulging on his forehead, his hands gripping the steering wheel with fierce determination, the accelerator pressed to the floor. He let out a near-maniacal roar, for in that moment, he was no longer a teacher but a master driver, pushing the vehicle's performance to its very limits in a bid to save hope. Just as the front of the bus was about to collide with the wreckage of the heavy truck, Zhang Lei yanked the handbrake and sharply turned the steering wheel at an almost perfect angle. The piercing sound of tires screeching against the ground filled the air. The massive bus, propelled by inertia, executed a perilous, nearly uncontrollable drift, sliding sideways until it nestled beside the disabled truck's remains. forming an instant triangular refuge of steel amid the sea of corpses and blood. Almost simultaneously as the bus came to a halt, the window of the passenger seat was abruptly lowered, and a girl leaned out, her half-body exposed. With all her strength, she shouted a heart-wrenching plea toward the astonished Lin Feng and the others not far away. "Big brother, hurry, get in." This anguished cry pierced through the sounds of gunfire, the roars, and the echoes of explosions, resonating clearly in the ears of everyone present. "Commander!" The roar of Shun's Han echoed. "There are still GDIs. Escort the commander to retreat first. We will cover." No sooner had he spoken than Weilong and Feng demonstrated remarkable synergy. Almost in unison, they pivoted their weapons, unleashing a precise barrage against the zombies attempting to scale the vehicle's roof, clearing a small area. "Jump!" Weilong commanded tersely, leaping from the top of the heavy truck, closely followed by Feng. Upon landing, they swiftly established a temporary stronghold against the school bus, continuing to fire at the encroaching zombies, buying invaluable time for their escape. Lin Feng and Jin Yen soon followed suit, descending from the roof. The firepower from the vehicle suddenly diminished, and the zombies seized the opportunity, surging onto the rooftop like a ravenous tide from the opposite side. "Asala, jump with me!" Shunzhan bellowed, his voice deafening. The heavy PKM in his hands erupted with one last roar, the searing barrage temporarily suppressing the zombies ahead. He was the first to leap off the roof, with the remaining soldiers of Asala following suit, all jumping down. The moment they abandoned the rooftop, the suppressed zombies swiftly occupied the high ground, howling as they crawled down the edges and even leaped directly off, like dumplings falling into boiling water. They instantly surrounded the Asala soldiers below. "Open fire! Block them!" Shunzhan shouted, using his shield to repel the zombies charging at him. The Asala soldiers fought valiantly, their bullets transforming the plummeting zombies into a sieve. Weilong, Feng, Lin Feng, and Jin Yen also exerted their utmost to provide cover, but the sheer number and speed of the zombies overwhelmed them. The defensive line faced immense pressure in an instant. "Ugh, damn it!" Two brief, anguished cries rang out simultaneously. Two Asala soldiers positioned at the edges were pounced upon by zombies leaping from the sides, their sharp teeth sinking into their arms in an instant. The wounds rapidly turned black as the virus spread uncontrollably. "Kareem Jamal, Captain, you must go." Jamal glanced at his swiftly darkening wound, then raised his head sharply, shouting at Shunzhan, "We've been bitten. We can't escape." Kareem spat bloodied saliva vehemently, seizing the newly loaded M249 from a fallen comrade and firing madly at the advancing zombies. "Get the vehicle moving. We can hold out a little longer." Shunzhan, witnessing the stark loss of color in his brothers' faces and the resolute look in their eyes, felt his own eyes blaze with fury. He knew this was their only choice. Summoning every ounce of strength, he let out a heart-wrenching scream. "Retreat! Everyone, get in the vehicle!" In the precious moments bought by the sacrifice of those two soldiers, the Asala guards rushed through the school bus's door. The heavy door was slammed shut. Zhang Lei pressed the accelerator to the floor. The school bus's engine roared to life, surging forward and crushing several scattered zombies as it began to escape this hellish nightmare. Outside the vehicle, the two Asarala soldiers, who had been bitten, watched as the school bus began to move. The fierce expressions on their faces gradually softened, even revealing a hint of relieved smiles. Their M249s continued to roar, mowing down the hordes of zombies attempting to pursue them. Kareem gazed at the bus receding into the distance, his voice slightly hoarse. Having received such a generous salary as a commander and wielding such fine weaponry, at least I haven't labored in vain. Indeed, Jamal emptied the last rounds from his M249, casually tossing the weapon towards the mass of corpses, and slowly retrieved 2 grenades from his tactical vest, holding them tightly. "It has been a long time since we enjoyed peaceful days. I find myself longing for home." "Who doesn't wish for that?" Kareem also produced his final grenade. "I hope my wife and children can live a little better with the commander's salary." Their voices were soft, nearly drowned out by the zombies' growls as the bus continued to distance itself. Then, exchanging a glance, the last remnants of nostalgia vanished from their eyes. With a sudden determination, they yanked the pins from their grenades, raising them high as they emitted their final battle cry. "For Asarala! For Asarala!" Boom! The thunderous explosions erupted at the very heart of the undead horde. The immense sound and fiery blaze instantaneously engulfed their figures, successfully capturing the attention of all remaining zombies, clearing the path for the accelerating bus. Inside the bus, those who witnessed the sudden eruption of flames and heard the explosion fell into a solemn silence. Chapter 28. Journey to the Prison. Disappointment. The school bus was packed with people. The children huddled in their seats, curiously stealing glances at the blood-soaked, well-equipped yet fatigued adults around them. Lin Feng's team had paid a heavy toll, losing 4 lives, and their morale was somewhat diminished, suppressing the weight in his heart. Lin Feng focused on the back of Zhang Lei, the driver, and spoke earnestly. Teacher Zhang, I truly do not know how to express my gratitude. Upon hearing this, Zhang Lei wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled. What is there to thank? If you hadn't left me that gun last time, I would have been zombie fodder by now. Lin Feng sighed. That's one thing, but if it weren't for you, we would have all perished today. How is it that you happen to be here? Zhang Lei, cautiously maneuvering the steering wheel to avoid obstacles on the road, glanced at Lin Feng through the rearview mirror and explained, it wasn't he by chance. There's a sizable canned goods processing factory nearby. When the apocalypse first began, news spread rapidly, and many survivors from the vicinity flocked here, believing there might be food, all eager to take a look. Many people came at that time, and they indeed managed to clear out most of the zombies around the factory, even establishing a temporary stronghold inside, where we also took refuge for a while. Hearing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but twitch his lips, suddenly enlightened. No wonder so many zombies congregated around the factory's perimeter. What happened later? Why did the stronghold disappear? Zhang Lei let out a heavy sigh. A mix of helplessness and indignation etched across his face. And then came the fool. His voice was laced with suppressed anger. One person, while scavenging for supplies outside, got bitten and returned, hiding the truth. As a result, in the dead of night, right in the most crowded area of our stronghold, he transformed into a corpse. At the survivor camp, a police officer fired a shot, drawing even more zombies from the outside. Sensing the danger, I had no choice but to quickly take the children and hide in a cold storage room, narrowly escaping disaster. He paused, his tone tinged with a mixture of fear and relief. We huddled inside, listening to the hellish sounds outside, too terrified to emerge. It was not until later that we heard gunfire from your direction, which diverted the attention of the zombies surrounding the factory, giving us a chance to flee and find the hidden school bus. Just as we were about to leave, we spotted your truck trapped from afar. Zhang Lei smiled faintly. Thanks to the gun you gave me earlier, we've managed to survive. We owe you a debt of gratitude. Although the children are young, they understand the importance of gratitude and are eager to see if they can help. Thus, we decided to take a gamble. If the children are willing to take action, surely, as their teacher, I cannot lag behind. Lin Feng nodded in agreement. It seems to be a case of cause and effect. Through the rearview mirror, Zhang Lei observed the impressive equipment of Lin Feng and his group, curiously inquiring, what are your plans next? Where are you headed? Lin Feng did not conceal their intentions, laying out their objective clearly. We plan to head north to seek and seize a fortified prison as a long-term stronghold. Zhang Lei's eyes brightened at this revelation, and he eagerly proposed a prison? What a splendid idea. If you do not mind, may we join you? He glanced back at the children in the cargo area. The children can manage the logistics within the base, cleaning, organizing, even learning to cultivate crops. I am also willing to take up arms and undergo training. In Lin Feng's mind, he began to ponder the system. System, if there comes a day when I meet my end, will the soldiers I summoned remain here? The system quickly provided an answer. It is entirely voluntary. If they choose to stay, they may remain in this world or opt to return. Is it really that favorable? Lin Feng's gaze swept across the cargo area, where the children huddled together, their eyes untainted and innocent. He had a positive impression of Zhang Lei's group, as they had rescued him and others in a critical moment, and these children appeared to possess sound morals. Welcoming them would not be out of the question. A truly stable base requires not only formidable strength, but also a self-sustaining, vibrant community. These children could be the key to the long-term survival of the base. His inquiry to the system stemmed primarily from a concern for himself, fearing that one day he might inadvertently lead himself to ruin. Would he still be able to leave behind some strength to help others endure? All right. Lin Feng did not hesitate further and replied, welcome aboard. From this day forth, we shall be companions. The team has successfully merged, its numbers have increased, and with that, hope appears to have expanded as well. However, they have lost heavy trucks and 4 warriors. Their sole means of transport is an overloaded school bus, with their destination being a prison shrouded in uncertainty. The bus sways along the uneven road. Nearly 30 individuals are crammed inside. Children curl up in the gaps between the seats, while the Asura soldiers and Lin Feng's comrades grip their weapons, leaning against the aisle and the backs of the seats, gently swaying with the bus's motion. The children, surprisingly considerate, make little noise, peering out at the world beyond. Some rest against the arms of the Asura soldiers. Zhang Lei clenches the steering wheel, his eyes darting between the map and the road ahead. He turns his head toward Lin Feng in the passenger seat and says, Commander Lin, according to the navigation, once we cross that bridge, we will be in the vicinity of the prison. Lin Feng nods in acknowledgement, remaining silent, his gaze sharply scanning the path ahead. The vehicle veers past a desolate gas station, and the view opens up. In the distance, A cluster of gray buildings lies quietly on the horizon, the barbed wire atop them glinting faintly in the dim light. That is it, the Qinggang town prison. Zhang lowers his voice and parks the bus in a sparse grove by the roadside. The brief commotion inside the bus settles as everyone's eyes turn towards the structure ahead, filled with tension and a hint of anticipation. Let's South not get too close yet. Lin Feng advises, retrieving a military drone from beneath his seat. He hands it to Weilong, who has squeezed through the aisle. Weilong, could you please fly the drone inside to check for breaches in the walls and see how many zombies are present? Weilong takes it with a grin, understood. He deftly manipulates the controls, and the curious children stretch their necks to watch the peculiar device being brought outside the bus. The drone's blades stir a gentle breeze as it swiftly ascends, transforming into a small black dot heading toward the prison. All eyes follow its flight. The tablet screen in Weilong's hands becomes the focal point. The footage sweeps over the dilapidated bridge, then over the overgrown wasteland, finally revealing a clear view of the prison. At first, as they behold the towering walls and barbed wire, a sense of relief washes over several young soldiers. There are walls. They look quite sturdy. Even Zhang Lei exhales in relief. It seems our journey was not in vain. However, as the camera zooms in, the atmosphere shifts dramatically. The screen reveals large cracks at the base of the walls, and swathes of barbed wire have been torn down. What chills them to the core is the sight of countless zombies wandering in the prison yard, their numbers overwhelming. The soldiers, who had just moments ago shown relief, are now rendered speechless. Chapter 29. The 9th District. The camera pans past the prison gates, suddenly shifting to the east side, where clusters of low-rise houses huddle beside the prison. Zombies lurk in the doorways and on the windowsills, some even attempting to climb the drainage pipes along the prison walls. After a moment of silence, Weilong sighed helplessly, remarking that the residential area was alarmingly close to the prison. He noted that not only was the eradication of the zombies a pressing concern, but any significant commotion might inevitably attract a horde of them. The drone successfully completed its reconnaissance and returned. With a heavy heart, Weilong stowed it away, his hopes dashed. Although the children did not fully grasp the gravity of the situation, they could sense the foreboding from the adults' somber expressions. Lin Feng closed his eyes, massaging his temples. Moments later, he opened his eyes and exchanged glances with Weilong and Feng Yi, silently reaching a consensus. They must abandon this place. Their last glimmer of hope extinguished. The path ahead seemed once again shrouded in mist. Zhang Lei let out a deep sigh, resting his weary head on the steering wheel. The school bus roared back to life, but shortly after setting off, Zhang Lei suddenly thumped the steering wheel, his eyes brightening. I remember now. The cabin fell into an immediate hush, all eyes turning to him. He ran a hand through his hair and smiled. Before the apocalypse, I used to love watching online crime commentary videos, and there was mention of the 9th prison in Minbei. That place is designated for serious offenders and death row inmates, with the highest level of security. The commentary mentioned that its walls are significantly taller than those of ordinary prisons, and it has independent generators and wells, located in a remote area, so we need not worry about large-scale zombie incursions nearby. As soon as he spoke, the atmosphere in the bus perked up. Weilong sat up straight, leaning towards the driver's seat. Really? Then we have a destination. A soldier from Asalar whispered. Electrified barbed wire? If the zombies climb up, they'll get electrocuted. Lin Feng leaned in as well, pulling out his phone to search for navigation. But he couldn't locate that area. Do you remember which city it was near? Zhang Lei pondered for a moment. It should be in Nanping, Minbei. It's not too far from our current location, though it might not be easy to reach. For a moment, the earlier disappointment dissipated, and a flicker of hope returned to the cabin. Just as everyone began to discuss how to reach the 9th prison, Jin Yin suddenly spoke up in a slightly anxious tone. Wait, I have a question. Everyone paused to look at her as she continued. That prison houses death row inmates and serious offenders, correct? When the apocalypse broke out, the prison must have descended into chaos. What if those inmates survived and took control of the prison? It seems like it might be difficult for us to handle that. Noticing the silence from the others, Jin Yin added, there must be weapons inside the prison. If the serious offenders get their hands on weapons and there's no one to control them, they could be even more terrifying than zombies. Moreover, when the apocalypse began, the inmates were still locked up, effectively isolating them from the zombies. Even if some inmates mutated, given their ferocity, they might have killed their fellow inmates before they could turn into zombies. The number of people inside the prison should not be insignificant. The previously jovial Asalar soldier's expression darkened instantly. Weilong and Feng Yi furrowed their brows, remaining silent, clearly contemplating this aspect. While both, as special forces, would face no issues in a prison clearance, the ordinary Asarala soldiers were bound to suffer casualties, a scenario neither of them wished to witness. Zhang Lei's expression darkened. You are right. I was so focused on the walls and facilities that I neglected the most crucial element. He turned to face everyone. The Ninth Prison District is a facility for serious offenders, already guarded by armed personnel, and it contains a dedicated armory. If the prisoners manage to survive and seize control, a cohort of desperate individuals devoid of morals, armed and entrenched in such a sturdy prison, poses a grave threat. Feng, who had remained silent until now, nodded in agreement. Jin Yin's concerns could very well materialize. Furthermore, according to the law of the jungle, in such extreme conditions, those who survive and seize power will undoubtedly be the most formidable, cunning, and unscrupulous among the inmates. The atmosphere within the carriage shifted, and following a brief silence, various voices began to emerge. "What manner of fiends lurk within?" exclaimed a scarred Asarala soldier, slapping his rifle with a coarse voice. "Let us storm in with our weapons. It's a perfect opportunity to test our mettle. What are the prisoners? Can they rival us?" The seasoned insurgents forged in the crucible of battle? A few similarly impassioned comrades echoed his sentiments, evidently eager for a decisive encounter to prove their worth after their recent defeat against the zombies. They were determined to demonstrate that Asarala warriors were not merely recipients of handsome salaries. However, Zhang Lei found himself deep in thought upon hearing the Asarala soldiers' words. Insurgents? Where do they hail from? Their skin tone, their accents. These brothers seem rather reminiscent of Africans, and that Roy has a distinctly European visage. Suddenly, a realization struck him. Could it be that Lin Feng and his crew are mercenaries? This revelation made perfect sense. Those M249s and M14s were American equipment. How could an ordinary person acquire such arms? The unexpected hypothesis sent a chill of sweat down Zhang Lei's back. He discreetly observed Lin Feng and his taciturn, well-equipped comrades through the rearview mirror. At that moment, Weilong was peering at Zhang Lei through his goggles, noticing the peculiar expression on his face. Yet, Weilong was unfazed. The members entering this world were eternally loyal to their commander. With such formidable armed forces, any internal strife would be an underestimation of GDI, not to mention the potential addition of further members. As Zhang Lei locked eyes with Weilong for just an instant, he felt increasingly convinced that his suspicions were astute. This was a band of true professional warriors. While their skills might not fully manifest against zombies, they would undoubtedly excel in human conflicts. A sudden sense of security enveloped him. At this moment, Lin Feng observed that the conditions of the 9th detention area were indeed our most advantageous option. To abandon it entirely also posed a significant risk. All eyes turned to Lin Feng, who did not speak immediately. His fingers absent-mindedly tapped lightly on his knee as his gaze drifted through the window. Eventually, Lin Feng surveyed the group. The situation at the 9th detention area is undeniably tempting, and its facilities are currently our best choice. However, to completely abandon it in favor of another stronghold or to operate in the wilderness carries its own set of risks. Yet, without a comprehensive understanding of the internal circumstances, we must not act recklessly. We will first conduct a thorough reconnaissance of the 9th detention area, gathering intelligence on the guard conditions, personnel composition, and activity patterns. If the situation proves untenable, we will turn back and continue our search for the next target. He paused, his gaze sweeping over each individual. It is settled then. The target has been changed. We shall proceed to the outskirts of the 9th detention area to carry out reconnaissance. With the command given, the school bus roared back to life, turning its course northward. Chapter 30. Zhang Lei's choice. The school bus traversed the dilapidated national highway, enveloped in an eerie silence. Zhang Lei, seated in the driver's seat, reached out to switch on the vehicle's radio. The static reverberated within the cabin, although devoid of any news. It somewhat alleviated the desolate atmosphere. Just as he was on the brink of despair, a voice suddenly pierced through the noise. Striving to maintain composure, yet betraying an underlying weariness. Repeat, this is the temporary shelter in Bailey Town. We have established order under military guidance and possess reserves of food and medicine. We call upon all survivors who hear this broadcast to converge here and await rescue together. Repeat, this is a broadcast. This is a shelter. Instantly, the faces of Zhang Lei and the children seemed to illuminate with newfound hope. However, this beacon of optimism only brightened half of the bus. From the corner of his eye, he caught sight of the Asura soldiers, who appeared entirely unfazed, maintaining an unwavering calm. Meanwhile, Weilong, Feng Yi, and even Jin Yan, who seemed like an ordinary person, exhibited no signs of excitement. Their gazes transcended the eager children, fixating solely on Lin Feng in the passenger seat. Why were they so unmoved? Even the children understood this was a glimmer of hope. Did they only heed Lin Feng's judgment? Instinctively, he turned sharply to look at Lin Feng in the passenger seat. Lin Feng's eyes rested on Zhang Lei. What do you think, Lao Zhang? In that moment, Lin Feng was acutely aware that not everyone remained indifferent upon hearing of the shelter. The presence of food and medical supplies, along with the establishment of order, symbolized unity and safety in the eyes of ordinary people. The choice lay between joining a well-established shelter guarded by the military or venturing into an uncertain future alongside others. Zhang Lei is a savior to many. Had he not driven in at that critical moment, the casualties could have been far greater, and he himself might have faced peril. Therefore, Lin Feng respects Zhang Lei's decision. However, should Zhang Lei choose to head to the official refuge, their paths are destined to diverge. The system that Lin Feng possesses is an absolute secret that must remain concealed. Once he enters a large gathering place, his loyal and well-equipped Asala team, which does not resemble the locals, would undoubtedly attract unwanted attention. It would be absurd to venture into Guangdong and claim they are native inhabitants. Thus, such a formidable force would either be assimilated or provoke apprehension, both scenarios leading to endless complications. In this apocalyptic world, Lin Feng finds himself with two choices, either to wander the wilderness like a phantom, gradually amassing strength through his system, or to seek out a location akin to the 9th District, one that is easily defensible, to construct a stronghold entirely under his command. As for what the future holds, Lin Feng himself remains uncertain. The changes in this world are swift. In a mere span of time, mutated tanks and creatures capable of shooting tires have emerged. No one can truly predict to what extent these zombies will evolve. Tomorrow remains an enigma, and he can only proceed step by step. Yet, one thing is clear to him. If the 9th District fails, and he cannot find a suitable base, he can still carve a bloody path in this apocalypse with the potentially greater and stronger forces his system may provide. However, that path would inevitably be more solitary and sanguinary. Nevertheless, even if they part ways, Lin Feng has resolved to share a portion of his weaponry and ammunition with Zhang Lei, ensuring that the man who saved them has the means to survive. This act serves as a repayment for Zhang Lei's selfless rescue. Zhang Lei, once an ordinary teacher before the apocalypse, had never even fired a gun. The military holds a fatal allure for him. He is responsible for a group of children, and his primary mission is to provide them with a stable and safe environment. A well-organized refuge, brimming with resources, is evidently more reliable than embarking on an uncertain journey alongside Lin Feng. Moreover, the mercenary-like appearance of Lin Feng's team is far beyond his comprehension. The unpredictability of residing with a group of mercenaries is daunting. The assurance of a steady supply of food and medicine is an irresistible temptation for someone tasked with nurturing children. However, Zhang Lei has also witnessed the outbreak of zombies in gathering places. The tragic events of the past remain an indelible psychological scar. In this perilous world, the greatest threats often come from the living rather than the undead. An official refuge signifies a congregation of strangers. While there may be soldiers present, there will undoubtedly be thugs, rogues, and those with ulterior motives. As merely a teacher, leading a group of children, even armed, he would be the most vulnerable of lambs in such an environment. It is highly likely that they will face exploitation, bullying, or even lose these children once again. Although Lin Feng's team is shrouded in mystery, their combat prowess is undeniably formidable. They emerged from the tide of corpses with unwavering discipline. This instills a tangible sense of security, in stark contrast to the mere illusion of safety that a refuge provides. The broadcasts are one-sided. Their authenticity remains unverifiable. Lin Feng's demeanor, particularly his composure in the face of temptation, conveys an immense credibility. The utter disregard of the Asalar soldiers for the broadcasts only underscores Lin Feng's extraordinary control that transcends rationality. This is both terrifying and reliable. In this apocalyptic world, conventional logic no longer holds. What is required is an anomaly capable of defying norms, rather than a potentially crumbling status quo. Opting for the broadcasts means surrendering their fates to an unknown and potentially intricate official system. Choosing Lin Feng entrusts their destinies to a known and formidable individual. In comparison, while the latter carries significant risks, it presents fewer variables. Official broadcasts may sound alluring, yet the last gathering place began with similar assurances. However, due to a minor oversight, countless living souls were swiftly transformed into monsters. I took them out of school not to place them into another possibly more perilous cage. Lin Feng and his group are powerful. Although they appear as mercenaries, they have at least never harmed any of our children. Initially, it was sheer luck that allowed them to break free from Qingshan town with the children, and later, during the outbreak of zombies at the gathering place. They again found refuge in a cold storage, almost succumbing to starvation, a terror that still haunts me. But will fortune favor them a third time? Zhang Lei could not afford to gamble. The lives of over a dozen children rested upon his shoulders, a risk he could not take. Thoughts flashed through his mind like lightning, and the last vestige of hesitation vanished from his eyes. With all his might, he abruptly turned the radio dial to silence. The haunting broadcast ceased, and tranquility enveloped the carriage once more. Zhang Lei turned his head, his gaze resolute as he looked towards Lin Feng, his voice trembling with excitement and fear, yet imbued with unwavering determination. Captain Lin, I no longer trust this. We wish to follow you. We will all contribute. And the children will not hold us back. Please, ensure our survival. This was a desperate teacher at a crossroads, choosing what he deemed the path with higher survival odds for himself and his students. Lin Feng silently turned, directing his attention towards the children in the carriage. The seconds of silence felt like an eternity to Zhang Lei. Old Zhang, Lin Feng finally spoke, his voice low yet exceptionally clear. Enough for all to hear. Remember your choice today. This is not an easy path. He continued, we may confront horrors more terrifying than zombies. Blood may be shed, and some may even perish, but I assure you, none shall go hungry. I understand. These 3 words served as the final affirmation of Zhang Lei's choice. He took a deep breath, forcefully wiped his face, gripped the steering wheel tightly, and the school bus surged forward once more.